Welcome to day one. What we're going to talk about today is just in general how to productize yourself, right? That's why you signed up for this event, these trainings, is because you wanted to learn how to productize yourself, how to turn yourself into a business, how to stand out, how to create your first offer, your first service, your first product. We have 3 days, a few speakers ahead of us. So I'm going to set the scene first and hopefully give some value that you guys haven't seen before, some that you probably have if you've read my content a good amount or been to other products or trainings. I'm sure there's going to be some repeat principles, but with that said, those are principles, right? It's a good thing for them to repeat because if you do see them repeating, that usually means that they should be taken into account. Then after this hour, we're going to bring JK Molina on, and he's going to give one of his classic trainings. I feel like every time I bring JK Molina on something, on some kind of live, people just end. We end the call all super excited. Everyone's very like energetic and ready to implement whatever JK had to say. So we'll leave the introduction for JK and all that other stuff. Then, now, why you're here. Of course, you're here to learn how to productize yourself, but you're here because you want to make money. This is a safe space. It's okay. You're allowed to want to make money. That's why we're all here. Bond over it. Enjoy it. That's what we're here to do. So there's that. But the thing there is you love learning. You have various interests. You're like me, right? I have a feeling that we connect in some way. That's why you're here learning from me as opposed to someone else, or you just have similar values, right? You want to spend more time on the interests that you love. You love studying various interests, which poses a big problem when it comes to monetization because all you hear online is that you need to niche down, choose one specific topic, go all in on that. And it doesn't feel right to you. And so you see the opportunity to share your interests with the people on the internet, but you aren't sure how to channel those into one brand or make sense of it under one brand. Another thing here is that you see people going viral left and right. That's all you see on social media, right? You go on Instagram and it's like viral post after viral post after viral post, and you know you can create something more valuable, potentially more valuable than them, right? The reason I got started on social media is because I was a web designer at the time, and whenever I would log onto Twitter, I would see a few certain people. Jose Rosado was one of them, who's still around, and I would see that he was selling web design services. He was writing tweets, and I'm like, I like the tweets because I agreed with them, and since I agreed with them, I knew that I could do something similar, right? I know that everyone here, most people here, have something in their head that they can put online in a certain way that would lead to that post doing well, other people following them, and potentially over time, people buying from them, right? It's more than possible. We just need to learn the mechanics to do so. And that's exactly the thing. You don't know how to turn these things into an income source. And some of you probably do. Some of you probably have, but you're here to just get a different perspective. That leads to the big problem. Personal brands are dying. Not to sound polarizing or hyperbolic, they're not really dying. Just to set the scene, personal brands are dying because we're at this weird point in social media where AI is becoming a thing. Social media in general, social media advice, we've gone through the rounds of it, right? There's people on social media that are talking about how to grow on social media. I feel like the advice and the knowledge of how to do that thing is very abundant, right? You can see it anywhere and everywhere. You probably know most of the principles, but what this leads to, in my eyes, is that most creators have just become glorified search engines, right? They're told to niche down, focus on one thing, become valuable or authoritative in that domain, and that becomes their main focus. So you go to their page and it just looks like not a dictionary, but like a search results page. If I were to type something in on Google, like how to do web design, then that's kind of what their profile looks like. So they're repositories of specialized knowledge that anyone or any AI can create because they're talking about things that the AIs are trained on, right? Anyone can ask AI for that. Anyone can have AI write that content for them. We need something else. We need a way to make this unique, right? The other thing is that there's so many tactics and strategies out there. You can go watch a YouTube video, you can scroll social media, and if you start on social media and then you start implementing some of these strategies or tactics or hook frameworks or content templates or whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with those. They're actually very good training wheels, but a lot of people become dependent on them. And so that's all they do. And then they turn into this kind of shallow brand and they aren't really known for anything. So we need to solve that. People don't want to follow dictionaries. They want to follow people. So how do we become people? How do we become a person or a human? One last thing before we actually dig in is that everyone always asks, when is the best time to start? When, and when you actually think about it, it's kind of a funny question because when else are you going to start, right? Oh, you missed this wave. You missed before the For You page when it was quote unquote super easy to grow and people have this distorted view of the past where it was somehow easier for people to do something when that wasn't the case. If you were boring in the past, you weren't going to build an audience. If you didn't have value in the past, you weren't going to make much money selling a product or service, right? The principles remain, and now's always the best time to start. So the thing here is just a mindset shift, right? A lot of people are here, maybe unconsciously, because they want the quick cash. They just want to be able, Dan, give me 10 posts to write, a product to create, and just like the money should come into my bank account because I can execute these series of tasks like a robot. And I'm sure we can do that. I can give you some steps and maybe you can make a few bucks, but then you didn't learn anything. You're not actually able to replicate it. You're not going to build on top of it and take it further or do anything that's meaningful because you stripped all of the struggle out of it. It wasn't difficult for you because you just followed a series of steps that you asked ChatGPT for. So that's not sustainable. Nobody's going to sustain that. On to what we're going to talk about, not only in this training, but throughout the rest. So the first and foundational thing is that you just need something to sell. That's non-negotiable. We can talk about monetization paths all day. We're actually going to talk about that with Justin Welsh tomorrow, but I doubt that Justin Welsh is even going to mention anything related to platform revenue. So post on X or Instagram and you get a few $100 in your bank account, or YouTube AdSense, right? You post videos, you get a certain number of views, they send you money, I guess. If you want something sustainable and that you have some semblance of control over, you just need something to sell. And that's okay. Remember, we're here to make money. This is a safe space. Money is a two-way street. You provide something valuable, you receive something valuable in return. It's mutual benefit, win-win. Hopefully, that's what we're here to do. In this training today, what we're going to talk about after a bit more foundational work is that you need a profitable idea to work with, right? There's many different ways to create a product or a service or an offer or whatever it is, but the idea is the foundation. If you don't have a good idea, then it's going to be difficult to go and sell that idea. So we'll talk about that today, and JK will take it even further when he comes on. The other thing is that you need to make it stand out like a sore thumb. That's where we leave it to JK Molina. He's going to talk about that. Then you need a way to start selling it fast, right? This is where people are going to get tripped up. Tomorrow, when I bring Randy Hill on, who is a fitness creator who has like 4,000 followers, he hasn't grown much recently, but he recently made some changes and made his first $80,000 in a month. So, I mean, that's a massive amount of money for someone who just like finally decided to do the thing. So he's going to talk about just how to do it. We don't want to worry about a website. We don't want to worry about a landing page. Well, same thing, landing page, making the offer, building out some kind of curriculum for a course or even any kind of physical product, whatever it may be. We're just getting straight. You have the idea. How do you immediately make money from it this week? That's what we're talking about. The next thing is you need a plan for making it more profitable, because you can take the idea, you can go and make money this week, but you of course want to improve the product. You want to be able to charge more for it. You want to be able to turn it into something else. So all of this is what we're talking about tomorrow and the next throughout this. Then you need to understand the different paths available. Justin Welsh will come on for that. And then you can use AI to enhance all of this. On the third day, we're going to have an entire hour just dedicated to how I use AI, how I've seen other people use AI. If you aren't using AI extensively just yet, then you'll probably start using it after this, hopefully in a good way, right? Now, the way I like to frame this, because while we're here to make money, we're here to potentially start a personal brand, we're here to become a creator, we're here to do whatever. I just want to give the general philosophy, because it pains me that like the most sought after job or career right now is to become a YouTuber, right? For kids, the kids that want to grow up, it's like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber. I think the reason behind that is because they see something meaningful in it, right? They know what the other options are, which is not pursuing their interests, not being able to pursue anything that they want, really. But once we get started doing it, or once the thought of money comes into play, we start to just dwindle it down. We start to see a creator as just someone who pumps out content every day and promotes a product and makes money, and we leave it at that. So I want to frame this here so that we can try to maintain the meaningfulness of being a creator as we go on about it, because that will provide a sense of intrinsic motivation to make this work no matter how much money you make doing it, because you'll probably grow to find that this is probably something you'd want to do even if money weren't involved, right? Because it can be so meaningful. I like to frame this from like as the future of work, because the creator economy is growing. You can look up statistics about how it's going to double in the industry value is going to double in the next like 5 years, whatever it may be. But even if you just plainly observe what's going on, you can start to see what's happening, right? The creator economy, in my eyes, is starting to create this decentralized set of systems. The education system. So we have the formal education system, which is like grade school, college. It's necessary to go through certain things to learn how to speak, to learn how to write, other things like that. But now the creator economy, I think, is creating this kind of interest-based education system, right? There are people that you resonate with, that you can learn from, and they're kind of like teachers. They're creators are people that pursue something, pursue some goal, get results, share those results with other people, and the price of courses or coaching or any kind of education, even free content, is much less than government schooling or traditional schooling or Ivy League schools, obviously. The thing there is that most people stop learning after graduation, and creators are public schools for those who want more. So if you think of yourself as this public school, you're just this node that people can come to. Like-minded people can come to you to make a few steps toward their goals with your guidance. And then if they want to move on to someone else, they can. If they want to stick with you, they can, because people grow and evolve. They're going to learn from different people throughout their life. The next thing is just they're kind of the backbone of the digital economy, right? Creators and contractors are shaping the digital workforce. When businesses need to get more customers, they're going to creators now. They either create in-house creators, or they pay for sponsored content, or they give equity to creators so that those creators can promote them and grow their product or service. And with that as well, when you solve your own problems and sell the solution, which we'll talk about to an extent, you get this really unique kind of like tribal feel on social media, right? I follow people that I'm interested in relating to health, relating to business, related to productivity, related to like random interests. And I have health people that I follow that sell cotton clothing or blue light glasses or certain supplements, and I buy from them because they have unique philosophy and take around it, and it's not they're not in it solely for the profit, and the product quality isn't terrible like you're going to find on Amazon, right? So there's money there. You can go that route. Then the productivity aspect, if I want to learn how to be more productive or try something new, I can join some kind of training like this. I can purchase a course or a template or a system. Same goes for really any industry. You're kind of in this little digital community that you find yourself in, and it's not completely self-sustaining, but you can grow and support each other with the exchange of product, services, money. The next thing is community. And we can talk about the meaning crisis all day and how we're online more and more. But most people, since we're online and we attribute that to being like a part of why we feel lonely or lack purpose, we don't see social media as a way to combat that as well. We don't see it as a solution to the problem when it's social media, right? I know there's the physical barrier there, but there is something there. I have met JK Molina, Justin Welsh, people that are going to come onto this event, other people that have changed my life completely. I have this new group of friends that I go and visit, right? My entire, my engineering team lives in Toronto, and I'm up there all the time. Like, this life wouldn't really be possible without the community online. So your community opens up and it gives more room for meaning, right? So the three problems in today's world, which is lack of education beyond traditional schooling, lack of money doing something you enjoy, and lack of purpose, because if you're anything like me, you tend to not, it's difficult to find people with shared goals and values in your physical location, right? It's just difficult to find them. So there's that. The next thing is that the digital economy is just permissionless. You don't need capital to start a business anymore. That should blow people's minds, right? How many, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, however many years ago, you were bound to your physical location. You needed to go to a prestigious school to make the right connections, to get a certain amount of capital, to invest in some kind of traditional asset, or start a business from scratch, but you still kind of need capital because you need a brick and mortar business and so on and so forth. Now it's like you just write content and build digital products, right? At least as the foundation until you generate enough capital to go off and build something else like a startup or an e-commerce business or whatever business you're interested in building. The other thing, you don't need a publisher to launch a book. I think I'm living proof of that. While I don't have New York Times bestsellers yet, I was able to do something and earn from in an industry that was previously extremely competitive and I don't know the right word for it, but gatekeepy, right? If you've ever gone to write a book, you know how annoying and biased that industry is and how difficult it can be right now. So you can just take matters into your own hand. If you want to make money because you've always wanted to be an author and you want to write a book, you have a way to do that right now. We look at Devin Erickson on YouTube or on X, sorry, and he has written a fiction book and it's selling very well. He's making above 6 figures doing something that he's always wanted to do because he learned how to build an audience and write content that people enjoy based around his thoughts, opinions, ideas, the value that he's cultivated throughout his life. Another example is just you don't need a record label to create music, right? If you like music, you're probably on Instagram or on TikTok and you'll see these reels or shorts that come up of people doing mixes or creating music or launching their music video or a new song, right? The people that come to mind is the Paradox band who had Travis Barker on one of their new tracks and the video went viral and that led to downloads on Spotify. And then since the internet is so grand, that led to them getting on stage, I'm pretty sure it was at Warped Tour. And they're just these people who started creating music and started posting on social media. They didn't need to be signed by anyone in order to get on stage, right? That's incredible. The last thing is actualization, your actualization needs, right? There's basic needs, then there's actualization needs. The thing here with business is that it's very paralleled with self-development. Business to me is like a vessel for self-development actually, because when you are improving yourself in ways that aren't through business, there is rarely some kind of direct feedback, right? There's not really any pressure to do it. When your livelihood depends on your ability to grow and solve problems in what we call business, I see that as a great thing because it's just continuous growth. And I think we all value that here. Now, two types of creators. The first is influencers. That's just what we're going to call them. Technically, everyone's an influencer if you're influencing people. But for the sake of distinction, we're going to say influencers are the people who follow trends and patterns. They're the trend jackers. If you read my recent newsletter, you know what I'm talking about. They don't have any kind of through line in their content. They're not necessarily trying to help people achieve something in their life. Their content is scattered and it's created for the sole purpose of generating attention, going viral, and getting the maximum amount of likes. And they can make money through brand deals and potentially products, but I don't think, again, I keep saying this, I feel like you guys are like me, that's just not a path that interests you, right? Or else you'd be doing it. The thing is they monetize looks over depth, they post for entertainment, they create reactions, that's their main goal, and ultimately they're replaceable, right? We see HeyGen and all of these AI avatars coming into play, and if you're in the marketing space, you see that people are creating like just fake hooks of like people holding a product and then going into like a demo of the product. And it's like, so the influencers can be replaced because there's nothing there except for looks and entertainment. And that can be fabricated to quite a degree. The next, let's call them synthesizers, or I'd like to just call them creators because I like the word creator, but the synthesizers, they endlessly study the principles, right? The principles of value creation. They monetize their point of view. They post for education. They create value rather than reactions, and they're irreplaceable if they do what we're going to talk about soon. Now, many of you have seen this before. I bring it up because this was like when the one-person business concept that I was talking about first started getting traction. These were the main two graphics that I was going over. So this is a big picture overview of what we're trying to accomplish with everything else that we talk about here. So in terms of the pillars of a business in today's world, you have brand, content, product, and marketing. So you have brand, which is the central display of your business, right? In our case, for simplicity, it's just a social media profile, maybe a website, wherever like the storefront is. Then the content is how you attract people to the brand, because media is how you generate attention, right? You create content, it potentially gets spread, or you employ other tactics to get that content in front of other people that attracts them to your brand. Your brand builds trust, and then that leads into a product or a service. That's how you monetize. And then marketing is how it's kind of the same as content, but marketing is how you specifically create content around your product or service, and it's how you position it, right? These two are different. Kind of, sort of. They're related, but different. A lot of people get confused because they're like, well, if I don't only write content about my product, then my content is useless. And I can't talk about my other interests, and I can't talk about this and this and this. When that's not the case at all. There's a distinction, right? You need to promote or market your product, but you also need to create content to attract more people to your brand, so on and so forth. The way that I like to frame how to start thinking about these is the first is goals. What do you want out of life? What are you leading people towards? What are you attracting people to? What are you leading people to, right? The second, problems. What are standing in the way? What's preventing them from achieving their goals? Where are they now and where do they want to be? That's a story. These start to form the foundation of content. Systems. So the in-between, you have problem, you have goal. What's the system that you use to overcome the problem and achieve the goal? That's what can be turned into a product. That's what we're going to focus on after this slide. And we're going to talk about content and brand are going to be sprinkled throughout these entire trainings. Then benefits. So how has it impacted your life? What's the why behind the system? That's usually the core of marketing. Now, in terms of what you need to make this work in a unique way, you need genuine interests. So what are you obsessed with learning? We'll talk about this soon. But the skills needed for that are just research, learning, note-taking, right? I'm assuming many of you like to learn, you like to read, you like to listen to audiobooks, you like to watch YouTube, whatever it may be, just having some kind of learning block in your day, start to consider that. It's the same thing, learning and research. Just consider your learning block a research block. When I read this book in the morning, I'm learning, but I'm also researching because there's a lot of good ideas in here and I'm going to want to write about them. So how do you generate ideas that are aligned with who you are and help you align with all of these goals, problems, systems, benefits? You research. And research is as simple as reading content, looking up stuff, creating ideas, right? Then your unique perspective. How will they help you reach your goals? For this, critical thinking, open-mindedness, self-improvement, we'll talk about this very soon. Value creation, how will they help others achieve their goals? So some external skills that I think you would benefit from studying. We have 6 hours total in the training that we're going over the next 3 days. But in your free time, seriously, learn about marketing and sales, learn writing and thinking, buy more courses, watch YouTube videos, just like flood your mind with these things so that when it comes time to apply them, you can, right? And so you can fill these knowledge gaps that you may not know you have that are preventing you from seeing some results, right? If you continuously study these things until they click, it becomes a lot easier to make some kind of money. That's a side tip. Then value distribution. So where can they find the value you create? Social media, digital tools, leverage building. This all makes sense. Now, I want you to think of your brand as just everything. We're going to call this your brand, but it's also your story, right? That's what your story is. Let me go over this graphic. So you have a few points here. You have highs and lows. You hit a point, it goes upward. So at the start, this is where your customers potentially are. This is who you can help the most at the start of the journey. Along the way, or here, you have the desire to change. In the middle, you have skill acquisition and experience that you've personally gone through to reach the point where you are in pursuit of your ideal future, right? This is what you're trying to articulate in your brand. How do you do that? First, pain point content. So you're helping people, one, you're making people aware of problems. You're talking about when you had a problem, or you're just giving a solution to a problem in the form of educational content. So what have you learned? What have you experienced? What are tips, tricks, opinions, other things that could help people move toward the ideal future? And then the unique path, because your path is unique, right? You haven't taken the same path as someone else because that's kind of impossible. You had a goal, you went after it, you went through the process of trial and error, you hit certain problems, you overcame them, you learned your lesson, and you may have forgotten about all the lessons and value that you have just by the nature of life, right? So being able to write about these things and resurface them in your head shows you that you do actually have some form of value to offer, and that can be turned into a product or service that we'll call an irresistible offer because it is so unique to you. Now, the way that I like to frame content in general, to simplify it, because we just talked about a bunch of nonsense, and now I want to circle back and just like, okay, how do we write content that aligns with something that we want to sell? The way that I like to think about it is just note-taking. You take notes. So you pursue a big goal, you're doing something with your life, you're trying to get some kind of result that other people would find desirable. Along that, like along the way to the goal, just by nature of pursuing your goals, you learn and you make progress. You create a story. Along the way, what you learn and the experiences you gain and whatever you did, anything, any part of the journey can be turned into notes along the way. Those can be posted to social media. I would consider my bio right now on social media is notes to myself. And that's just such a great way to frame creating content in a way that doesn't feel weird or too templated or like it's a framework. You're just sharing your mind. You're sharing what is important and exciting to you specifically for pursuing your goal, right? The thing here, and why I want to emphasize what's important and what's exciting, is that most people don't have an energy signature, and that is the greatest reason as to why they aren't seeing any traction. They're boring, right? I'm the most boring guy imaginable. I'm very quiet. I would say I'm very stoic, very introverted. I'm a boring guy, and I like being a boring guy. But in my content, some may see my content as boring, and that's fine. That's what they see it as. But I feel like I have created this energy signature because I'm good at getting across what I think is important or exciting for achieving the big goal that my audience, or that I'm taking my audience toward, which for me, you can call becoming future-proof, just self-maximizing in general, becoming the best you can be. That's kind of my niche, my mission. The reason this works, why does this work, right? Because we talked about influencers versus synthesizers. The influencers are very good at creating novelty. That's what catches attention. It's just novelty, something new. So they follow trends and patterns because that's novel, right? They're consistently coming out. There's new trends all the time. There's new tactics that you can employ. How do you create something novel or attention grabbing when you are talking about something that is so educational or pain point driven or aspirational or just content in general as a creator? How do you create novelty and capture attention if you're not using these sleazy tactics to do so, or the tactics that just turns everyone off? First is that your story equals pattern recognition. So what you are pursuing, you're pursuing this ideal future. You have this story that you have gone through, and you're continuing to create a story of where you're going. With that as your frame, that's what leads to you noticing certain ideas. So the way this ties into content being note-taking is if I'm reading a book, I'm going to note, I've talked about this a lot, so you've probably heard me say this, but if I read a specific book, I'm going to notice ideas that relate to the goal that I'm pursuing. If someone else reads a book or watches a YouTube video or researches something or goes down a curiosity rabbit hole, they're going to notice different ideas that they can share if they're a creator, right? If you're a creator, just your mind and how you view, your point of view, how you view things and what you find important or exciting is the foundation of any content that you write. The way that I like to think about filling up my brand or my profile with content that is not only engaging, but impactful and grows with impact over time is I just share the things that are most important to me. And the more I do it, the more I realize that there are a lot of things that are very important to me. There are a lot of ideas that I see as exciting and important, and I want to share those with other people so that I can attract people who are also excited about those important things. Hopefully that makes sense. This is just foundational, right? We're not diving into how-tos yet. Now, a way to do this better, right? Because we need to make this known, or we need to have this mission in our head that allows us to notice the right ideas. Because if you have a mission, something you're pursuing, you're going to notice ideas that stick out to you, that help you reach that mission and help other people reach it just by learning every day. When we do that, you can write about anything you want. What do I mean by that? I can read this book by Krishnamurti on some kind of philosophy. I can read spirituality. I can read business. I can read whatever. I'm not niched down to a specific topic because there are many important things for achieving the mission that I'm pursuing, right? For future proof. Let's just say my mission is to help people become future proof. With that, I can talk about spirituality because how are you going to cope with the emotions and the lack of meaning that comes from technology accelerating right now? I can also talk about AI and technology because that's the leading edge, right? People can benefit from that. I can talk about health. I can talk about anything that I find important because it's important for becoming future-proof, right? The difference isn't in the topic that you're talking about. It's not in the specialization. It's not in the specific idea you share within this little box. It's about the bigger picture. It's what is it leading towards? It's not one post, one thing that you post in isolation. It's about everything that you post under your brand. Brand is what you associate with over time, the ideas you associate with over time. So it slowly builds until people get the picture. Now, to draw this distinction more, you can go with a topic-based niche that helps you, you have a lot of clarity because you know exactly what to write about, right? It's like, okay, today I'm writing about something else to do with business, so let's go and find an idea and write about it. But the thing here is that it just boxes you into one narrow expertise, which has obvious problems when it comes to psychological development and agency. It encourages constant profitable niche switching. So a lot of beginners struggle with this. They go with they look up what's the best niche to go into right now, and then they go with that. And then someone on social media says a different one is the most profitable, so they go with that. And then another person says that one sucks, so they go with this, and they can't make a decision for themselves because they aren't focused on the right things. The other is that it forces multi-passionate people to abandon interests, which I'm assuming you guys are. And I see, or let's continue with this. It creates content limitations. Then with a mission-based niche, business becomes your vessel for your life's work, right? If you talk about a certain topic and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean that's the end of your brand. It means that you can pivot and you can pursue something new and you can grow and adapt. And that's the great thing about this work. I talk about Jordan Peterson as an example all the time. He's not on social media to be a creator or an influencer. He's on social media because it's a tool to achieve his life's work, right? He's written many books. He has public speaking tours. He has Peterson Academy now. He has various ways that he can monetize and make money. But the core of it, how he generates traffic to those things, is with his YouTube videos, his lectures, his podcasts, his social posts, other things of that nature. He gets across what's important to him in his content. Go and watch any of Jordan Peterson's content, or really anyone, doesn't have to be Jordan Peterson, but you can see that they're just talking about things that they find important. They're illustrating that importance, and whatever they sell or earn money on is just somewhat related to the thing that they find important, and they can lead into that thing. Now, with a mission-based niche, of course, that creates unlimited content possibilities, as we discussed, and it builds a world for exploration, because when you think of your brand as a world, and your content is like a map to that world, you have your movies. So think of Star Wars or Marvel, right? You have your movies, that's your long form content. So your newsletters, podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever it may be. You have your spin-off TV shows. So think Disney Plus and all the shows on Disney Plus. So that's your social media content, your tweets, your reels, your shorts, whatever it is that you choose to go with. And then you have your products or services, which is like your action figures or the things that they monetize, right? That's your universe. And your job is to create such a great body of work filled with the things that you find so important that like other people, they get so much value from it. They're impacted by it when they watch multiple of your YouTube videos. They start to see the through line. They start to see the mission. It inspires them, it educates them, it changes their life. That's what we're trying to head for here. And if you do that, you build trust. Money is a measure of trust, and you're very likely to actually turn the trust that you built into some kind of income because you're focused on value first. And I think I see, yeah, JK's in here as a panelist, and I say value, but he's going to come in when it's his time to talk about turning value into insight. So good stuff to come. But now we need to talk about what to sell finally, right? We went over all of that crap. We just have to set the scene because I know some of you are seasoned with what I talk about. Many of you are brand new, right? So I kind of have to cover that. And I know people who are seasoned can benefit from rehearing that because we often forget about it. Well, but in terms of what to sell, right? We have an idea for a brand or mission. I'm also going to give you a prompt at the end of this to help it, rather than like, you know how people used to give out Notion templates. Now people are just going to give out prompts that help you synthesize everything. So you don't have to fill out a Notion template based on like the ideas in your head. You can have a conversation to eventually get the roadmap of everything that we're going to talk about here. So it'll help you ideate your brand, your mission, so on and so forth. But according to that and why we're here in this How to Productize Yourself event is, what are we going to sell? How are we going to start making money? There's three different ways you can go about this. The first is a pain point. So you have been through many transformations in your life. Even if you don't think you have, I guarantee you have achieved something that someone else hasn't, and you can help them, right? That's how you make money 101. The second thing is you can go after a passion of yours because you're passionate about something for a reason. A lot of people say, don't monetize your passion. And there's some truth in that. Usually if you watch those videos, they say, oh, don't monetize your passion, do this instead. But I'm just reframing monetizing your passion. So go and monetize your passion. So the thing about a passion is you're very passionate about that thing. And you need to understand why you see that thing as so important. Because once you understand that, once you understand the reasoning behind why you're passionate about it, it becomes easier to help create that passion in other people. And once you create that passion in other people, then it becomes easy, well, not easy, but it becomes clear how to create a product or service around that thing, right? Because then it's something desirable that people want. It's not just some random interest that you're trying to shove down someone else's throats. You're showing them why it's important, why it can make their life better. And that's persuasion 101, sales 101. The third thing you can start to create a product around is your profession. So Justin Welsh, as an example, who's coming on tomorrow, he was a executive at, I think, a health tech startup, and he had a lot of skills related to networking and other skills related to that, and that helped him transition into business, right? For myself, I was a web designer. I tried a lot of different things. I tried web design freelance, couldn't do it, but then I got a job as a web designer, and then I learned a lot on that job, talked with the marketing sales department, understood it more because it was an agency, and then I was able to break off and do my own freelancing and make it work that time. So you can solve a pain point in your life, sell the solution, you can create or you can pursue your passion and help people create desire around that, or you can start with your profession. Now, in terms of what we're talking about in this training and what's going to bleed into tomorrow, what type of product can you sell or service? The first, and we're talking about like, how do you go from idea to money quick? I'm not talking about building out a physical product or building a software or building any of that. I want to validate this, right? The purpose of us doing this and productizing yourself is because right now I'm building a startup, right? If I were trying to make money, I wouldn't have an idea and then spend 6 to 12 months building the product just to see if it was going to work, right? Instead, what I do is I post content, I validate some ideas, I create a product or service really quick from idea, and I start selling it immediately. I don't even write a landing page. I literally just reach out to people. We'll learn how to do that, right? That's what tomorrow's for. But the way you can go from idea to income very quick is you can sell a tutorial. So think tutoring, one-on-one tutoring. A lot of people don't do this, and I don't understand why they don't, because so many of you have skills that other people could benefit from, right? Web design. I could have done this with web design. Building cars, of all things. You can sell it as a hobby. Photoshop, guitar. Do you know any of these things? Are there people creating YouTube videos about them? Are they valuable skills that other people could benefit from learning? Can you persuade people as to why they can be beneficial to their life? If you can do that, then people can work with you one-on-one, and you can teach them that skill and help them build out a project. Think like if you're a programmer, they have coding boot camps, right? I don't know why more coders don't offer one-to-one tutoring sessions for code. A lot of people would buy that, right? The second and more common way to do something like this is with coaching, but a lot of people don't register these skills as something that can be turned into an offer right away, right? So web design, you don't hear about web design coaching or building car coaching or Photoshop coaching, or you hear guitar coaching, but it's just tutoring. With selling a program, this is usually around like something that can be turned into an action plan, a program, or routine. So fitness, productivity, self-improvement, potentially relationships, health, wealth, relationships in general, that usually falls under something that can be coached. So you have an action plan, a program, daily check-ins, whatever it may be. Then, or you can sell a system. So if you have something unique, like a lead generation system or content creation system, or a web design system for creating landing pages really fast, or something unique, right? A Photoshop method, a guitar playing method, something very unique to you, this is arguably the most profitable and unique. So you can go with pain point, passion, profession. You can turn that into a tutorial, a program, or a system. We're going to focus a bit more on system because that sets you up for a bit more success from the get-go, because it's going to be a bit more unique. So if you don't know, if one of these didn't stick out to you as like the obvious one to choose, then you're going to pick pain point, passion, profession, and we're just going to go sell a system. Now, the system will make more sense after this slide, but now we need to find the right angle, right? So how are we going to angle? What is the actual product idea? What is it that we're trying to sell? The best way, I think, to do this is to take a broad idea of whatever the pain point, passion, or profession is. If you don't know what these are, wait for the prompt, fill that out later. They'll make sense. But if you have a pain point, like lack of focus, then I can look that up on YouTube. I can study other videos in that zone of interest. So lack of focus, productivity, Those are kind of the two study programs, whatever it may be. And then I can go to someone like Ali Abdaal, filter by their top videos, and I can see how to organize your life, how to invest for beginners, how I manage my time, the trading calendar system. This is a unique system, right? And it's wide out in the open. You probably don't want to take this one specifically, but you could do something very similar, right? The thing here is you're literally drowning in profitable ideas as you scroll on social media. You see something go viral, that's an opportunity to capitalize. Like, you obviously probably shouldn't just capitalize on everything that you see, but if it's aligned with the mission that you want to go after, then why not do so, right? The reason you choose an angle for what you're trying to sell is so that it has the potential to be attention grabbing and impactful to a larger group of people, right? If I were to just say Web Design 101 course, or let's tie it in with this, if I were to just say sell a product that was called Productivity 101 versus How I Manage My Time, the trading calendar system, this one's obviously going to do better. So what you do here, you have a vague idea of what you want to sell. You go and you start looking at YouTube videos, social posts, other things like that until you find something that has already been validated, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. The money is lying all around you and all those other cliches. These have clearly worked. And if you just spend some time on YouTube, you don't even need to watch the videos. Look at the title, look at how many views it's had. That's it. If it's slightly related to what it is that you want to sell, then create a spin off of it. That's what the next part is for. You can also look at prior purchases, right? So what have you purchased before and how can you make it slightly better? For me, my first digital product was actually a freelancing product and a web design product. And I had taken prior courses on that thing. So I knew that it was validated because I bought it and I knew that they were doing well. But I also had my unique way of doing it because I failed so many times to the point where I didn't necessarily agree with everything that they said in the course. So I was able to create my own. Another way relating to YouTube is if we look at Charisma on Command, because we just talked about a productivity example, right? How to come up with an angle for a productivity product. For something like health or relationships or social dynamics or even business, in this case, social dynamics, if I go here, because people say, a lot of people just can't connect the dots. If you're so interested in, like, let's say masculinity or femininity or dating or how to speak confidently or public speaking, whatever your skill is, whatever you're good at, you can find a better angle for it, right? So if we scroll through here, how to win almost every argument, that's pretty compelling. I don't know if that would be a big enough idea for like a full-fledged product or service, but we're getting somewhere here. This can at least be used as like a content idea that can lead into the product or service, right? Because people will like this and then they'll want to go searching for more. Same with here, how to stop feeling awkward in social situations. This could definitely be the foundation of a product. Not sure how much you'd be able to charge for it, but there's something here, right? There's obviously something here. So this is just to show you that even if you think that your skill or interest can't be monetized or do very well or have content that goes viral around it, you're wrong. And you can search and validate by just looking on YouTube or scrolling social media or following other accounts and just seeing what they do and reverse engineering the process. Now, to get to the last points of this, your unique mechanism is everything, right? How you get results for the thing you're doing. So you've chosen your pain point, passion, or profession as the foundation. You've come up with some kind of unique angle for how you plan to sell this product. Now we need to understand, how is that different? How do you get results, right? You have the before, what's the after, how do you get there? For the unique mechanism, and what that is to start with, is your step-by-step process with a name put on it. So if my product idea is the Trident calendar system, well, one, that's okay, that's a unique mechanism in and of itself, right? But when I think how I manage my time, take away the Trident calendar system. Just how do I manage my time? I want to put that into a product. I want to help people with managing their time. I break down exactly what I do, step by step. What's my routine? I write down everything about it. I understand how do you get results. If the problem or the pain point is scattered focus, not being able to manage your time, what is the step? What is the system, the mechanism for getting them to being able to manage their time? So how do you find this, right? First, you can rename what works and add your own flair. And this also helps with creating more clarity around the product that you want to sell. If you still don't know what it is, you can run through this process as well. So from James Clear, habit stacking. If you want to help people with habits, you would probably think of James Clear book, Atomic Habits. You've heard of habit stacking. You can shift that to minimum viable habits, and then that gives you an idea, and then you can start to create something around that, right? The other thing is you already have a mechanism. You just haven't named it. So that's why I told you to you think of, okay, here's the problem, scattered focus, don't know how to manage my time. Here's the solution, how I manage my time. What's in between? Can you name that something? And I believe JK will help with the naming and big ideas here. This one, what do you hate about how most people do it? You can lean into the opposite. For me, with writing, everyone growing on social media was so just obsessed with reels and TikToks and short form content, like the video content. And I just doubled down on writing. That's when To Our Writer came out. That's when I started talking about writing more and people agreed with me, right? That was a compelling way for me to position myself when everyone was going towards whatever the TikTok and Instagram reel phase. The other way is to make something 10x simpler. So to condense the amount of steps in something that already exists, right? So that could be anything related to what you sell. It could be simplifying, it could be the 2-step time management process, or anything related to your skills or interests. The next is adding a constraint, which is similar to what do you hate, at least for me. My constraint for the longest time was for myself, not even something that I sold, but it's build a personal brand with only writing, right? Justin Welsh still does that, right? He could easily turn that into a product if he wanted to, but he only has so much bandwidth and so much that he actually wants to sell, but you can't. Just add a constraint to something that you're already doing. Or if you have a constraint on something that you're already doing, that is a unique way to position yourself or create a product around that. You can translate from another interest. So if you were in the military before and you're talking about business, then you can create a business bootcamp, and that brings like this unique way of thinking about how you're going to structure the program and what makes it unique to someone else. Find your without. So I teach writing without an English degree. I'm referencing writing here because that's what I did for the longest time, is teach writing, but I did it without an English degree. I mean, a lot of people do, but you can add a without to whatever it is that you do, and that starts to shine a light on how it can be unique. The next is just interview your past self. So what do you wish you knew when you first got started? And this ends up creating a beginner level product or service, and that can be very impactful in and of itself. It's just a beginner way of doing it. Now, we have 1 minute until JK comes on, but everything we just went over, there were definitely some gaps in it, and that's why the prompt is here. So I will share this. I'll send this in an email after, and I'll also add it to the dashboard. But what this does is it's going to take everything that we just talked about, from coming up with your point of view, to coming up with your mission, to ideating your first offer, to validating an angle, to developing your unique mechanism, to so on and so forth, spitting that out as a roadmap. That's what this prompt is for. So you're going to copy paste this whole thing into, I would recommend Claude, either Sonnet 4 or 4.1 or GPT-5. I like Claude more, but do what you want. Use the current best models with this if you can, just so you're getting the best answers. But I'll link this in the dashboard and I'll send it out as an email after. But we're here to talk with JK. So this is your homework right here. JK, are you here? Maybe. Let me make sure he's here. I'll play some Avengers music in the meantime.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Oh, you're here. Okay.
Yep.
Welcome, JK. Stop sharing.
What's up, everybody?
You have video?
As a matter of fact, I do. I also have a standing desk, and it's currently standing.
Nice.
What's up?
All right. What is up? So can you hear this music?
No.
Crap. I had it during like the introduction to it. I was playing like the Avengers theme song. I'm sorry, guys. I guess that didn't play through. But
it's okay. You can make a post now. I'll introduce somebody without Avengers music.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So introducing JK for those who don't know, we have been friends for a good amount of time. We met on Twitter a while ago now. We lived together in Austin, Texas for a good amount of time. JK went on to do a few interesting things when it came to business. He built a business with someone else and he ended up leaving, and his entire stuff, he's just like, he used to call me the silent assassin, and now I feel like he's the silent assassin. So JK, go over like brief explanation of what you did when it came to your business. Where did you start? What happened? Why are you here where you are now?
All right. Well, thank you for having me. What's up, folks? Good night, evening, morning, wherever you are. So I started on Twitter maybe like around 2020. Just, everybody was locked down. We could do nothing. But then I was kind of posting and growing up, just talking about my interests, right? Normal noise. And at some point, I started building this ghostwriting agency, and it got to a point where I had like 70,000 followers. So it was going well, and I was making around $30,000 per month with 70K followers. And then some dude messaged me. He's like, "Yo, would you coach me over a call?" I'm like, "Sure." So we got on a call, and the guy had 900 followers. So I had 70 times his audience. And I asked him, "Well, how much are you making?" And he's like, "Well, I'm making 30K." I'm like, "Excuse me, you're making the same amount of money as me, and I got 70 times your following." And so it was a big enlightening moment for me in the kind of the idea that I built my business upon since then. And it's iterated, but it was like saying cash, which is you can make, get a big following, but if you don't know how to monetize it, then what's the big point? And I started working with a bunch of people who had big followings, but they couldn't monetize it. They couldn't get anything out of it. And the audience kind of ghosted them, and they were kind of friend zoned by the audience, and they would secretly resent them because they would give away a lot of value, but nothing came back. Nobody bought. They got all the likes and all the goodwill, but nothing was transactive. So then what was kind of the point, right? They were famous, but not really rich. And so I started building my business intentionally around that mantra of, if I'm going to build this thing, I'm going to make money from it. And so Lightning Cash is born. And so a big component of it is today what I'm going to show you, which is the way you build an audience, the content you create while building the audience matters a lot. You could be very competent and extremely good at what you do. But if you post certain kinds of content, I find that it's very counterproductive. Whereas if you know what to not gatekeep, but what to simply not say, and what are the exact amounts of information you should give away, then it makes people lean in to see what you want to sell more than if you gave them all away. So that was kind of a big insight for me, and we can take it anywhere you like from here. Then I do have a presentation, so if you'd like me to start, I can start, or if you'd like to comment, anything else.
Nope, all you.
All right, let us begin. So I have a document here. Is the easiest way to send it on the? Where's the easiest way for me to post this so everybody can see it here?
Here, post it in the Q&A, and I'll share it live.
All right, cool. So I don't know how to do it. Can I just send it to you on Telegram?
Yeah,
let's do that.
Wait, what is it?
It's a doc.
Okay.
It's a doc with the prompt. Yeah. So today, this is what I'm going to go over. I'm going to share screen. Send request.
Yep.
All right. So let's roll. Okay, so it is what I call value versus insight. And my thesis is if you post value, you get friends by the audience. And this is the way I build a business. There's many other ways to do it, but this is just how it worked for me. If you post value, you get friends by the audience. And I am in a fervent, is that a word, disagreement with the term give away all your secrets for free and they'll pay you to implement them. I do not believe that to be true. I believe in posting insight and they will pay you to implement that. So today I'm going to create that distinction and I'm going to give you a prompt so that you can make your own decision depending on where you are and what business you want to build to use the one that suits you best. So my Instagram has 16,000 followers and it makes me the same amount of money as my Twitter, which has 220,000 followers. And that is 1/15 of the audience if you compare one to the other. Now, for context, a toy car is also 1/15 the size of a car. So imagine you put these two together, you put them in a race, and then you press go, and they both finish at the same time. The difference in efficiency per follower is 15 times as much. That's not 50%. That's 1,500%. So it's a big deal, depending on how I built the audience and what content was based on. And I credit insight-based content for a big part of this. Now, value-based content is giving people action steps. It's the follow the steps, steal my blueprint, right? And it will get you plenty of engagement and a lot of people thankful to you. It'll build a lot of goodwill. And mainstream advice says that this goodwill will then make people grateful enough to work with you, right? Which in my experience, this is where the logic breaks. And this does not happen because people don't make decisions out of gratitude. Some do, right? But most people make decisions out of self-interest. And when you give away valuable stuff, it makes people self-interest to use that stuff, not pay you for it. And this is why I found myself in the situation that I gave away so much value-based content and I got so many likes, but I didn't make any cash. So then what was the point? Because then why would people double pay? If I gave you the strategy, why would you pay me to implement it? So it didn't really make sense, but it only made sense in hindsight. Like, of course it makes sense in hindsight, but in foresight, it's hard to see. Now, unlike value-based content, insight-based content doesn't really give you action steps. It instead offers a different perspective. Now, it doesn't tell people what to do. It demonstrates the perspective that makes you do what you do. So, for example, there's certain behaviors that you do, but they all come from one perspective. If you give away the behavior, that's value. Whereas if you give away the perspective that led to that behavior, now I call that insight. So, for example, you know that, for example, let's say every single of these pink circles was certain exercise. And you know how hard you should go on bench, on squat, and on your deadlift. But why do you know that? Why do you do the things you do? It comes from one big perspective, which is if you go to failure, then you're probably going to grow muscle. Right? It comes from something above it. It's when you go to the things where that perspective is deployed that you give away value. Now, my observation is that people are more curious to ask you something, to lean into what you know, when exposed to a different perspective than when exposed to a different behavior. And this matters. So I'm going to demonstrate it here. So here's a value-based post that I made a few years ago. Feel free to steal my strategy to grow on all platforms. And I show you how often I post on LinkedIn, how often I post on Instagram, on YouTube, and on TikTok. So this was pretty much my strategy, right? And I didn't include it here, but it got a lot of engagement, right? It did pretty well. What does this not make you want to do? This makes you not want to pay me for a social media strategy because I already gave it to you. So then what's the point, right? Let's say I show or I host a workshop or I sell a course related to my social media strategy. You have less incentive to buy it because you already saw what's there. You know I'm going to post it at 9 Eastern. You know I'm going to teach you to do 7x LinkedIn posts. So then the incentives to pay me for it went down. Now notice this other post. This is what I call insight. Interesting statistic. And this is true, by the way. I get more clients from a pool of 500 customers, which is people who transact with me once, than from a 230,000 follower audience. So that is insight. What does this, and I'd like to believe, what does this make you want to do or feel like doing? It's inquire. So what else do you know? How does this work? What's the magic behind it? And that's the difference. It's where the content drives the energy. When you show people a changing behavior, you want to make them do the behavior, which drives it away from you. Whereas when you give the perspective, it attracts people to you because then people lean in. You want them to lean in, and they also want to lean in because they're like, okay, what else do you know? What's in there, right? So when Dan says stuff like you are the niche, like the one-person business model, like this is the future, it makes people be like, what else do you know? What else have you thought about? What do you see that I don't? And that is insight-based content. Now, value-based content has a use for some. Like I'm not saying it's worthless. Obviously, it works. But mostly for people who tailor to the 1% of the 1%. Like think people who want to like do a real estate syndicate and they just want to tailor to like the top guys, right? Or who people who aim to build a business of audience size, right? Just these massive audiences. Me personally, thanks to the I call it experience, but it was actually kind of PTSD that the guy of 900 followers got me or gave me. I'm much more interested in audience efficiency than audience size. And pound per pound, insight is for me, which I'd like to have a smaller business that is highly profitable. Insight is much more efficient than value for my own purpose. It's more persuasive, it sticks for longer, and it's easier to create, believe it or not. Once you get into that kind of like groove, you'll be like, oh, this is way easier than giving away tips. Now, today I've got a prompt that does it for you. Previously, I had to like teach you how to do it. Now there's a prompt that does it for you. But if I just give you the how to do it, then it's not going to change you. So I'm going to explain to you for like 10 minutes what's the core kind of philosophy and way to create value insight-based content, and then I'll give you the prompt. So insight-based content, roughly, and I'm very anti-template because I believe that if you just use template, that's another way of saying you're just not good at what you do. Like you gotta get good, like you gotta do it at the beginning, right? That's what you do. But at the end, you end up breaking the rules. Every time Dan changes his style on creating Instagram posts, everybody fucking follows, right? Because he knows when to change and when to adapt, right? And at the end, if you use templates all the time, then where's the magic? Then people don't like you are by definition not the main character because you're following somebody else. So I'm not a big fan of templates. However, if I were to put this into a rough template, it would be if you want to create insight-based content, first is you find a truth that reveals an insight, and I'm gonna explain every stuff. From the insight, an idea will be born. When you expose that to the audience, then there will be a bridge between them and their life with an idea, which I'm going to show you how to craft for your own. And then you position your solution as that bridge. So an easy way, like a rough way to remember this, is TIB, truth, insight, bridge. So you find a truth. From that truth, an insight is born, and then you position your product or whatever you want to do them to do as the bridge between them and then stay with the idea. So I'm going to go step by step, 1, 2, 3. So step 1, find a truth that reveals an insight. My favorite marketing quote of all time, it was said by a non-marketer, which is marketing beyond conveying information is insecurity. I love this because marketing is pretty hard. And I think you posted this down. You said, if you're struggling with marketing, just think, or with content, just think, how can I be more honest? I don't know if you said it, but if you did, fire me. Marketing is hard. Yeah, there you go. So
the best marketing strategy is honesty.
Right. Marketing is hard when one tries to manipulate the truth. It's hard on, like, it doesn't convert as well, unless you're like a psychopath and there's very few like that, or you're anything. But it's also hard on yourself because it feels icky and you don't end up creating something you like. So what I find is that often people need to market less and simply tell the truth more. My best email is actually a small truth rather than a big result. It was of one day that I finished my workday in 41 minutes, and I timed it on my watch. And then I took a picture of that watch at minute 41, and I said, guys, today I finished in 41 minutes. Here's my product. There's more to it than that, but it's a small result, right? It's the truth. Now, an idea, like one of my favorite ads is this one by David Ogilvy. You've probably seen this. At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. Now, this was, I believe, Rolls-Royce best-selling ad of all time. And this didn't come from the marketing department. It came from the engineering book. David Ogilvy, the guy that developed this ad, went to the engineering department and he asked for the Bible of the entire thing, how everything works. And he started reading up into the middle where he found this sentence. At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. And this is a truth, but the truth reveals so much more. You know how Budweiser, I think it was Budweiser, became one of the most popular beers? They were like not number one. But back then, the way to show that like claims that everybody made about their beers was that it was pure, right? This beer is pure. But they didn't really know what pure meant. So the guy went to the factory and he analyzed how the beer was made. And apparently they cooled it underground and then they bought it out through titanium tubes. And the tubes were like pretty sanitized or whatnot. And that's what pure meant. But nobody advertised that. They just said pure. The guy said, we do it with titanium tubes. And then everybody did that. Like this is a common practice in beer making. But he put the truth out there. And that small truth was that made people go, oh man, this rocks. It's the honesty. It's the small facts. But what happens is sometimes you're so, like you've been inside of your work for so long that you forget what it looks like from the outside. So finding that truth, that's where it starts. Is what is this truth that it may be obvious to you, but fascinating to others? So the first step is actually finding a truth. The smallest truth sells more than the biggest half truth. This is something I believe in. And if you have a small truth, you can come up with great things. The thing is, you gotta find out, somebody got distracted from you, either a third partner, or in this case, maybe the prompt. So I prepared something from a post I found like an hour ago. So from a mutual connection, Oliver. So this was posted 5 hours ago. So he posted this, right? If I were obese and dying, here's how I'd lose weight fast. No fat diets, no Ozempic, no cookie cutter. Just science-based strategies. Temperature manipulation, fix your gut, hormetic stress, protein prioritization, control portions, increase fiber, stay hydrated, get 79 hours of sleep, cut processed foods and sugar, and replace with this and increase your non-exercise movement. Right? This is what I would call a value-based post. And these are probably, if you're in the audience now, this is really easy to create because giving away advice is not a hard thing to do. Right? We can do it all the time. We can just tell people what to do. We can give away the steps. But what we are not aware of is that when we do this, there are fascinating facts that we simply jump over and we never pay enough attention. And if we did, this could very well turn into our next big thing. Right? So if we were to go with Dan's example, he said, well, I started creating websites and then I pivoted to this and I pivoted to that. I never really thought about my niche because it wasn't useful to me. Instead, I sold useful products and then I transitioned to selling courses and whatnot. And then he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean you don't have a niche? It's like, yeah, I don't believe in that. And so there was a truth that changed it all. So in the middle of our word processing, throwing at people, there was one truth that people would go, what the hell? You mean at 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this Rolls Royce comes from the electric clock? So sometimes we're just not aware of this stuff, right? Yet we say it all the time. So what the prompt does is, if you create value-based content and you just paste it, and the prompt then will give it to you in the show notes, but I'd like to show you how it works. You just paste it, and then this thing will take it and be like, wait, hold on. You mean this? Have you noticed this? And it'll do it for you. But sometimes it's hard to see if you're not there. So what the first thing it will do is it will find a truth that reveals an insight. So I just copy and pasted this into Claude. And then the prompt got me this. You discovered that most people are fighting their biology instead of working with it. While everyone else is focused on willpower and restriction, you've identified that sustainable weight loss isn't about overriding but optimizing your systems. Your approach reveals something fascinating. You're giving them a body optimization manual. You understand that the human body has built-in mechanisms for weight regulation that most people never leverage. This shows you that the real problem isn't lack of motivation. It's a lack of biological literacy. And then XYZ, ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But then people, as an outsider, they'd be like, what the hell is biological literacy? And so the idea is born. And so from one truth that you were not aware of, this takes it and be like, yo, I need you to slow down because that thing you just said, that is something. There is magic here. So after we extract the truth, you find one simple thing, just like a 60 miles an hour. You finish your work in 41 minutes. You never really chose a niche. Then you turn that truth and the insight from it into an idea. How do you do this? And what does it matter? So first, to get people to buy from you, you need first to get them to buy into. And the easiest thing you can get them to buy into is an idea. And this is, if you take nothing from today, but this is that social media is much easier when you treat it instead of an offer salesperson as an idea salesperson. Because people can choose to take offers or not, but they cannot choose to take ideas or not. It's automatic. It's like a song. You listen to a song, you either like it or you don't. It's like a smell. You smell something, you either like it or you don't. It's not that you have to make a conscious decision. However, let's say you like a song and you're into it. You didn't choose to like it, but let's say you did. That makes you so much more likely that you will buy tickets to that person's concert. If you like the smell, that makes you so much more likely that you'll buy a candle off that smell than if you didn't. The thing is, you never really had a choice. So don't give your audience a choice. Lead with the idea first. And if they buy into it, the likelihood that they buy your front and then back end offers is much higher because they already bought into that idea. If we were to go back to the idea before, it's biological literacy. It's something new, something that they haven't heard. So if they buy into that, the likelihood that they'll buy into biological literacy program, course, mentorship is much higher. So lead with the idea, not with the offer. So for me, personally, I had a few insights and a few truths that then turned into ideas that have made me 6 figures. Some have made me 7. So one insight that I got for myself is that selling X's is much easier for me than selling stuff. And so the offer shell was born, in which I don't do offer suites, I do an offer shell. I don't sell different stuff. I sell one thing with different levels of access. I realized that less but better leads is a more profitable focus for me than more but worse leads. And so the idea of whale bait instead of fish bait was born. I started many businesses, but they all kind of had the same idea. I did software and coaching and done for you. But at the end of the day, the idea was always there. It was liking cash. So the idea then was one big idea takes you to 1 million. From the things that were obvious, well, that I thought were like obvious, those became the most profitable moves I ever made. And you likely already have these. You're just not aware of it. So the dots are hard to connect on your own. And let's be real, you probably need a third party or a prompt to extract it from you. A great example of this is from M&Ms. So I don't know if you guys know this, but M&Ms was a war candy. People used to eat them mostly in World War I or II, one of those in the trenches. And one guy really liked them. He brought them back home to the US and he found a marketer and he asked them to market this for him. The marketer said, what's cool about this? And he couldn't find an answer. He couldn't find anything to sell M&Ms with. And at some point he kind of got frustrated and the guy said, dude, can you just tell me like why you like these so much? Like what's the thing here? He said, man, they're nothing special. But the thing is, M&Ms, they melt in your mouth, but they don't melt in your hand. And then the guys were like, oh yeah, we're gonna get rich, boys, right? It's from something that you're like, to you it's like obvious, right? But people are like, oh my God, this is great. So people and prompts can point out what you think is obvious, but others think it's fascinating. You don't really have to create big ideas, you'll find. It's more like you need to extract them from the pile of stuff you thought is like not that useful. So step 4 is use the prompt to help you collect your idea. So from just pasting it, you're going to find that this is going to link your insight to an idea. The idea born from this insight is body system optimization. The recognition that your body already knows how to lose weight, but modern life has disconnected us from these natural processes. You're teaching people how to work with their biology, not against it. Your method shows that effective weight loss isn't about doing harder things. It's about doing the right things with how human physiology actually works. Essentially teaching people to become their own metabolic engineers rather than diet followers. So look at everything this has been creating for us. And AI works better when you when you're not AI's bitch. So if it tells you something, you don't be like, yeah, this is it, I'm running with it. It's like AI should be your bitch. Like you should be like picking things that you like and don't like. So from this, and I intentionally chose an imperfect example, I wanted to find things so that you could use your own critical thinking and be like, yeah, the thing AI is focusing on is actually not cool. It's the things around it. So biological literacy, metabolic engineers. I really like these two terms. So then the cool thing about AI is it doesn't get tired of it. So you can keep asking it, can you give me more on these 2 things? More on metabolic engineers, more on biological literacy. And mind you, if I post something related to 5 steps, 10 steps so that you can lose more fat, that is cool, right? But what if Oliver said today, folks, I work with 250 7-figure entrepreneurs. And what I noticed is that they have incredible financial literacy. What they do not have is biological literacy. And the moment we activated biological literacy and they became their own metabolic engineers, they started losing weight and here are the results. Now, let me show you how these things work. Now, what does that make you want to do? Be like, what is biological literacy and what is metabolic engineering? It's a new thing. It's an idea that was born from things that were obvious to you. And that's what really attracts the high quality audience, because people can't copy how Dan talks. People can copy how Dan draws his stuff on Instagram, but nobody can copy what he thinks or how he thinks. And that's why the guy keeps going and making more and beating these copycats, because the source is intact. The big ideas are always there. And this ends up being your own like advantage. People will copy you if your ideas are good. People will end up doing things you do. But you can find ways to extract your own things the way you see them, your own 60 miles an hour, your own M&M melting in your mouth, not in your hands. Then nobody will ever be able to compete with you, because it's the idea that is more flammable than the entrepreneur. Like Danco is huge. We all know this, right? The guy gets stuff at Whole Foods like every 30 minutes. But his ideas are bigger than him. Even those are bigger than him. And that's kind of the goal. Because if the idea catches fire, then people go back to the source and be like, where did this come from? And that's going to be you. And that's why I put so much of a big effort and emphasis on you got to develop your own. And the way to develop them is not to create them, but to find them among all the stuff that you already think is obvious. And three, once you have exposed people to the idea that their life didn't have before, then you simply position your solution as the bridge. Once I've shown you about metabolic engineering and biological literacy, then there is a gap. There's a gap between you now and you with it. So then the only thing you have to do is not make it like really almost be ashamed of selling. You know how some YouTubers are like, by the way, please subscribe and like the comment and like the video and here's my product. Thank you. Let's go back to the video. Right? You know how people do that? There's a lot of shame. This allows you to sell without shame. This says, hey, this idea, guys, I'm hosting this workshop with Justin and JK. Should you like to install this in your life? This is where it happens. It gives you pride in your stuff. It gives you confidence that you have something worth saying, and you do. You just didn't know it. You have to extract it in order to sell it. Selling further is unnecessary once you present that gap. Like, for example, a doctor recommending a pill after telling someone what's wrong. You don't need to sell them on the effectiveness of it. If I've proven that your life with the idea could be different than without it, the doctor doesn't really have to sell you on, by the way, when you get out, here's my discount. You know, do it on the card, please do it now, 9 left. He just needs to say, by the way, you're vitamin B deficient, pick it up on the way out. And what do? We pick it up on the way out, because he has demonstrated that our life can be better with it. So the prompt helped you create a gap. Position your idea as your bridge to fill it. It will also give you options you can riff off of. So here's an example. You can position your system as a bridge between fighting your body and partnering with it. Instead of teaching people how to lose weight, you're showing why your body stores fats, how to activate your natural fat burning systems. Biological literacy is what you need. You don't need to follow the sugar and boiled egg diet. It's biological literacy. Your strategies become tools for optimization rather than weight loss tactics. This positions you as someone who understands physiology at a deeper level. So there you go. It gives you some names that you can call your big idea. And I tell everybody I work with on big ideas, and people pay $10,000 per quarter for me to tell them, listen, dude, this is going to be really cringe. Let's just be real. Because ideas always start cringe. Like, I don't know how it felt for you then, but when I started with my own, it felt a little bit like odd saying the cash creator or the likes in cash or the offer shell. I'd be like, what are you even talking about? But it's that courage to stick with things that are cringe that makes them not cringe.
Yeah. One thing there, so someone who's coming on tomorrow, his name's Randy Hill. He's actually my trainer now because he reached out and he was good at he was good at making friends and networking, like we're also going to talk about in this event. But he used a similar prompt and it gave him the idea of helping people become a human weapon. And so he was in the military beforehand, and he was a firefighter after that. And he had always, like, when he heard human weapon as a way to like frame his product or even his branding or just what he helps people with, right? Like, he's a coach. He doesn't have a specific name for his offers, just coaching, but through his content and his branding, he helps people become a human weapon. And to me, at least, like, he thinks it's cringe, but when I see it, it's like, I mean, that is kind of what I want to become, right? Like, that's my desire, is I want to be this, like, for me, like, maximized person. I want to be fast. I want to be strong. I want to be athletic. I want to be aesthetic. And so human weapon and him teaching through the way that he teaches, his personality, that attracts the specific type of person. Like, his story about being a first responder attracts first responders. And then, hey, I can help you become a human weapon. It's kind of like a match made in heaven at that point, right? They see the idea, they're much more likely to buy. He's charging upwards of, like, he actually signed on Devin, my editor too, for 15,000. So good prices. We'll talk to him tomorrow, but back to you.
The cool thing is you're one idea away. That's why I say you're one idea from a million. And I'm going to prove it to you. We're going to go to Amazon.com right now, and we're going to look up the habits of highly effective people. Now, the guy wrote one good book. And then he said, I'm going to launch the normal one. Then I'm going to launch the guided journal. Then I'm going to launch the one in Spanish. Then the one in personal lessons. Then the one in, I think there's like highly effective teenagers. There's another one in personal workbook. There's even the fucking card deck, man. So you just have one and you just rehash it over and over and over again. Once you have one big idea, the game is just reps. It's just like you're a singer and like everybody loves that one song. And then you know that you played at the concert. Everybody's going to go crazy. Like, that's how close you are if you can find one. So I like human weapon. The guy clearly has the 7 times highly effective people with, look, teenagers, man. What the hell? It's just one idea. Look how much you can take it. Yeah. So warnings when creating insight-based content is clear is better than clever, is better than corny. It's really easy to go overboard with the naming. So don't. If your insight doesn't have a name, then you don't need to put one in it, right? If your insight doesn't fit in like a really cool visual, then don't try it. I love creating visuals. And I really like it when I can condense a sentence or a concept into something that looks easier to understand. But my whole brand, Likes in Cash, I can't put it on a visual. It's too hard. It's too hard to encompass. So I'm okay with just leaving it in text, and that's fine, right? Another one by Nick Barry, the hybrid athlete. That's kind of like, he doesn't have a visual for it. It's just concept. So don't go too corny with it, right? You be corny, but not too corny. 2, when one teaches, 2 learn. You can ask the prompt to write for you. And I've asked it that if you ask, it will do it. And your writing will get better, but you will not be a better writer. And considering you are in a creative profession and that you get paid not by the hour, but by the idea, this is a huge fucking problem. So do it so that you can kind of learn the ropes, but then be wise enough to know when it doesn't serve you anymore. And what bridge you make, depending on, do you sell? Do you ask people to join the newsletter, to subscribe to your YouTube? It depends on what platform you're using. So my main sales channel is email. So the bridge is almost always a paid offer. On social media, the bridge is almost always an idea and sometimes a paid offer. So you can see how I treat things. I am an offer salesperson on email, but I'm an idea salesperson on social media. Now, the best way for me to demonstrate is to demonstrate. So if anybody would be so kind, I think this would be fun. Do you have a value-based piece of content? I'm going to take one and I'm going to turn it into Insight live under all the pressure to show you what can be done. But share one value-based piece of content.
Yeah. Wait, me or someone else?
Anybody.
Someone post a link to in the Q&A to one of your pieces of content that you think is value based. And while we're waiting for that, there've been a few questions. So we've got Hussein. Okay. For what is it? For this prompt, I'll send this and the other prompt in the email after, and it'll all be detailed, right, on how to go through this process yourself. Oh, you got the Trident one.
Yeah, I like a few of these. Community will heal what therapy can't fix. Okay,
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, sure. This is great. We're gonna start with this. We're drowning people in info when what they're starting for is transformation. Yesterday proved it. 3 hours analyzing viral content, frameworks, tips, no retention. But I still remember every word my mentor told me about his first speaking gig. How he froze on stage, forgot his presentation, and ended up just telling the audience about the time he lost his biggest client. Starting ovation. After 7 years building brands, I finally understood that tips are info, but stories are transfo. This is exactly what's happening on LinkedIn right now. Everyone's sharing tips, but what makes people remember you is transformations. Here's a framework I use with my clients. Start with a lesson, find the moment you learn it, make it visual, connect it back to the world. The best stories aren't stories, they're confessions with a business lesson attached. Your next post, no tips. Just write one story about a time you learned a painful lesson. Watch what happens to your DMs. So, first of all, let me clean up my tier. That was beautiful, man. Good stuff. Second of all, let's say I'm your ideal client, and I'm reading this, right? And I'm really into it. And I'm like, okay, great, like vulnerability and turning my pain and stories and tips. And then I'm like, man, this guy really knows his shit. And then maybe I'm considering some sort of becoming a client. But then you're like, here's a framework I use with my clients. Start with the lesson, find the moment, make it visual, connect it back. And then I'm like, man, Bernard, you're such a GD, bro. Thank you for not asking me to pay to get so much value from you. Let me take this, and then I'll for sure get back to you once I implement this. Oh, let me try your free stuff so that I can afford your paid stuff. Like the sentences we all like to hear, right? So what do you do then? How do you change this so that it's not value but insight? I really like this example. So we're gonna copy. So I just copy it. And then if you go to the doc I sent you, up to the top, there's a prompt. So you copy that.
This will be included in you'll get it after email or your dashboard.
So you copy that. You copy your value-based piece of content because I noticed that value often comes more natural to people. And then you copy the prompt. So I copy it here. So we press enter. You've discovered something fascinating about memory and learning. Transformation beats info because stories create neural pathways that tips can't. Okay. Well, everyone's obsessing over frameworks. You've observed that our brains are literally wired differently for narrative versus data processing. Okay. The frozen stage story from 2009 is still vivid, while yesterday's frameworks vanished. This isn't just about engagement, it's about neurological levels. The big idea is that your prospects aren't suffering from info deficit, but from transformation deficit. Okay. Every piece of tactical content they consume makes them more informed, but not more transformed. They're collecting tips like digital hoarders while remaining fundamentally unchanged. They don't teach lessons, they create memory anchors that stick because they engage the same brain networks we use to process our own lived experiences. You could position your work as the bridge between having great expertise and making it unforgettable. Instead of helping people create better content, you help them transfer the knowledge into transformation stories that prospects remember months later. Your process isn't about content, it's about memory architecture. You take their scattered expertise and turn it into story-driven content that creates lasting neural inputs. So some ways you can name it. I'm going to write for you, and I'm going to show you how we turn this into something. Memory anchors, stories that stick, neural marketing, story for strategy, transformation deficit, the experience gap, story wired brains, confession marketing. I like that one. Scene setting content, the memory test, anti-tips movement. Okay, so everybody here, including me, gets what we in the business call a CP. It's a cringe pass. So I'm going to start writing, and it might be very cringe, but I'm going to show you an idea of how this could turn into something. So some ideas that stuck to me from that were memory anchors. I like that one. I liked, what was it? Confession marketing. There was one that you mentioned here. No, wait. Painful or embarrassing. And I think there was one more. I'll start with this. So, those again. You will never fail to find information. You open the feed, and there's going to be tips on how to, how you can. It's almost always about information and what people can do. But these people are often not making as much as they could be making or as others are making. Meanwhile, other people that seem to just wing it are actually getting more clients and making more money than the rest. And their strategy seems pretty bland and raw. But is it? I still remember every word my mentor told me on his first speaking gig, how he froze on stage, forgot his entire presentation, and ended up telling the audience about the time he lost. Was it luck? My thesis was not. Is what I call confession marketing. Right now, everyone's on the information marketing train. With AI, it's 50x. But the problem with that is that even though their brains are being fed, their hearts are not. The content is read, but it's not felt. The words are processed, but they're not retained. And so people end up almost knowing less after going through the info content you post than after, which ends up in fewer clients. When I work with clients, I have one rule. I have one rule of thumb. that information marketing is good. Confession marketing is better. Remember that old adage that people buy emotionally and justify logically? When did we forget that? When did it change? Never did. And compassion is one, if not the most effective tactic. We've got to transmit emotions because it lowers people's defenses. And it allows you to create that connection that information marketing doesn't give people. They'll pay you, they'll buy from you, and they won't necessarily be able to articulate how. But you know, it's because in the middle of the information marketing age, you chose compassion for yourself and for others. You made them feel something. And in the end, that makes up for the difference. See below case study of a client using compassion marketing that went from 10K a month to 50K a month. This starts with you. Extracting your stories, turning them into compassion-based assets, using those as your funnel for your product or service. This is what we get crystal clear on our first call together. DM me for details. Boom. Right? So people take this and they're going to be like, they don't know where to go. They're like, okay, I see the value in it, but I didn't tell them what to do. I didn't elicit a behavior. I gave them my perspective, and that was insight. And because it is insight and not value, it doesn't make people want to try stuff. It makes people want to buy stuff because it shows that you know something that they don't. And that is the content that more high-value audiences and efficient audiences is built upon. Insight, not value. And that's my thesis.
You're an animal for writing all of that in one go. I was like, these are takes me a while to write that. But one thing I've noticed, you in the examples that you've given, there's always been some kind of like case study or something of that nature. So there's a question here. Does it not show up? Oh, I'll just read it to you. I know you've talked about.
Sharing?
You can keep sharing if you want. Okay. Well, if we're done, I guess you don't have to. But the question is, I know you've talked about truth and idea, but how do we solve the credibility aspect? I feel like people also buy ideas from people who have proved themselves in past. Like a famous celebrity can sell anything, while a new Instagram influencer will have trouble with people following them and considering what they're selling is valuable. So when you're a beginner, how do you prove your credibility, or is that even necessary, or something that you should focus on?
Yeah, let me pull this up.
While he's pulling that up, just to reiterate to everyone, all the documents, the prompts, etc., will be sent after this.
So who communicates more safety? A or B? It's B. Newsflash. Why? Because the guy's just telling you, hey, you should totally do this, take this advice. Whereas B is, hey, you should totally do this. I took it and I'm alive. So what do you do if you're a beginner? And Dan knows how much I love answering these questions. But what do you do in this situation? Is you take risk. And you show, I've shown you that this is how I do things. And I'm going to prove to you that it's safe. So you find a way to, the thesis and the insight that you gave, you find a way to create risk so that people will trust you. How can you do this? You say, I'm just going to build a brand off text. I'm going to show you don't need visuals, then you do it with just text. So the entire thing is, I'm showing you how I'm doing it now. Let's say you do fitness, right? I'm going to show you over the next 30 days how this approach is going to get me to this outcome. And I'll prove to you through me that it is a safe bridge. So that's the short answer. You take risk.
Yep. Yeah, Hussein said, become your own case study. It's a big idea.
Or guinea pig.
Yeah, guinea pig. That's what I consider myself, man. Like in health, I'm the biggest lab rat imaginable. Yes, Derek, replay will also be there. Good. IG page coming up, and best transformation of this human weapon is underway. Yeah.
And this requires some sort of confidence, right? Like you have to say that I believe in my own things.
Yeah.
You know, when I reached a very important business goal of mine, my mentor asked me, what's one big takeaway? And I said, out of the entire, maybe it was like a 19 months outcome that I really fought for. And the biggest outcome or takeaway I got was that people just want you to lead. That's the main one. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, if you're, on the dot or you fail at the end of the day, like people just want you to lead. You know how people at the street, like let's say you want to cross the street and there's a green light and everybody knows like they should cross, but not really. But then one guy crosses and then everybody crosses. Like people just want you to be that guy. Like your ideas are not, you don't believe in your ideas because they're valuable. It's your ideas are valuable because you believe in them. So if you stick to it for a long time, eventually people start catching up because leading is the act. Like that's what I define aura as, is the willingness to go first.
Yeah. I want to kind of bridge all of this together for a second. So when I was presenting, I think the most important and relevant parts to what we just talked about is product idea and let's call it mission, right? I think the big idea and the mission can go hand in hand. And so let's take Randy for an example, who we'll talk to tomorrow, but he has the idea of the human weapon, right? So you could say that his mission, the thing that he's leading people towards is he's trying to create more human weapons. He wants people to become a human weapon. The content that he writes is literally anything that falls under that. If he's listening to a podcast and something comes to mind that would help someone take one measly step to becoming a human weapon, he can write about that if he wants. This will lead into a question I have for you, JK. But with that as well, that brings a lot of clarity to what he offers. Whatever product, service, offer, shell, whatever it is that you sell, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But when you're helping more people become a human weapon, it's kind of obvious like what you're going to charge for and help people with. You help people become a human weapon and you create a roadmap or a program or something that just helps them reach that goal. And then you look at it, you refine it, you obsess over it, you make it better, you make sure it gets results, you run a few people through it as a test trial, you run through it to make sure that it's actually good. Like if you want to create something productivity, buy some other productivity stuff, try it, make theirs better, merge it all into one, whatever. everything falls under this big idea or this insight. So the question there from Cindy is, are insight-based posts only useful if you have something to offer? What if you're still in the process of creating something to sell?
I think that's I think that's not the way we go about it. So here's a let's equate this to a dating example. So for example, if I am going to the club, the offer I want people to buy is me. Well, not anymore. Sorry.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go, boys. Just I guess you took the offer. But at the club, it's me, right? So what is the most straightforward way to get to the outcome that you want, which is somebody to buy that offer? Is to go to the club, offer it, and see do people want it or not. So when people are trying to figure out what they sell, they're spending all their time in the bathroom taking selfies, putting on perfume, making sure they're cute, but they're never out there doing things and asking people for it. So then how is anybody going to buy? And that's why I created this nail down Nathan character. He's not a person. There's not a person named Nathan. Nail down, right? Is a behavior. So nail down Nathan, he's always nailing down his offer, nailing down his avatar, nailing down his persona, but he never goes out there and asks people for it. And I pity that guy because it's really hard to build a house when you're always nailing down one nail. You gotta get out there and you gotta ask people. Stop staying in the bathroom and looking cute. The way you figure out if you should have something to sell is you sell it. You ask people, do you want this or not? Because if not, you end up in always this loop of you end up looking great, but then the night passed, you had a great offer, but how do you know? You never asked anybody.
Yep.
Don't be nailed down, Nathan.
Yeah. So what would you say the thing there is? Is like you have a general idea of what you can help people with. Are you saying that in your content you just start playing around with insights, and if people reach out, you attempt to sell them on helping them with it, and that's how you start getting feedback?
It's you sell the easiest offer that you can. So it's you. So for example, let's say we bought one-on-one coaching with Dan, right? We all bought one-on-one coaching with Dan. Let's say, what do we not care about? We do not care about how many strategy sessions are going to get, how many videos are in the portal. We don't care about how cool the onboarding is, and if it doesn't work out, we get a round trip to Texas, right? We don't care, but we care that it's motherfucking Dan Coe, right? We care that it's the guy. So what do you sell? It's just access to you, and this could be like a chat and calls. That is it, to install something. It doesn't have to be some sort of a product, because people want you. People buy coaches, not coaching. Like, that's a normal thing. People buy access to you, not your thing. Like, I don't think there's anybody here who wouldn't be like, if you offer it, would you like to have the course and all the materials Dan Coe has ever created for the same price, or unlimited one-on-one calls with him, that they wouldn't take the unlimited one-on-one calls with him. Let's just be real, right? So you sell the easiest thing you can, which is you. And then you see the people want me. And that's the top realization, because you're going to find out a lot of people don't, right? But you're going to end up finding ways to sell yourself, and then you end up finding the thing you should sell.
That's good. That's going to reframe what I say tomorrow. I call it a minimum viable offer, and that just overcomplicates it when it's literally just sell access to yourself.
That's right. Like when you get fitness coaching from Arnold Schwarzenegger, do you care about how many sessions? Do you care about what to split? Do you care about what supplements are come? Or do you care about, guys, I'm being coached by Arnold?
Yeah. And the results, of course, because that's why you like Arnold, right?
Yeah.
Question here, I think we'll end on this one, and this will require both of us. Okay, so how can you post about a general mission but have a specific offer? So JK, I feel like JK and I have two different ways of going about content, and I tend to go a bit more broad, and sometimes I play the viral game, but it just goes to show that you can go either way and have incredible success. So how can, let's say I post about a general mission but have a specific offer, is that I know that a lot of people within that mission have that problem, and I know that I'm also good at making people aware of the problem that they may not know that they have. In a sense, like, okay, imagine I'm trying to help people become future-proof. That's the mission, right? That's what I'm helping people with. I can talk about emotional management. I can talk about spirituality, business, different skills you can learn, kind of whatever. It's just up to my taste. It's my curation. My brand is my curated set of ideas that I want to live in my brand. That's like the art pieces that I curated for people to go into. Now, how does that relate to a specific offer? Well, it depends on what the offer is. So if I'm teaching people writing, like how to write the 2-hour writer, my writing system, yes, I could go the route of like targeting people who are interested in writing, and that would, I guess, niche me down. But I can also show people why writing is a valuable skill to learn, no matter what stage of life they're in or what they're going through. I can make writing desirable, right? Someone who doesn't have any interest in writing, I can present them with some idea that they will start to see writing is valuable, and they will want to learn from me, right? And so what that does is I can either niche down or I can go broad, and it honestly doesn't really change my messaging, right? And then in terms of like specific content, I can go deeper into writing, and that definitely leads to more sales on my end. But sometimes I just want to write about other stuff, so I try to strike a balance between it all. What would you say, JK?
I'd say give them a recent show, don't tell. So when you go in a certain mission, you're going to get outcomes, and the people that join you on that mission and buy into that philosophy are going to get outcomes. So it's showing them kind of like, hey, here's how green the grass is on this side. And that often does all the tricks, right? So let's say your mission is getting jacked. So look, I lost this many pounds today. Look, this person that got into metabolic thing got this result today. So that's as much as I would leave it at. Is we market too much. You know, it's, if you just show, hey, this side is pretty cool, then things end up working yourself that way. So to me, it's just demonstrate the things that the outcomes that this thing is doing for you and to the people who buy into that mission.
Beautiful. All right, we will end here. Yeah, looks okay. Yeah, we will end here. I have to clip when I've gotten the practice room of this webinar. It recorded me just like sitting there for 10 minutes, so I'm gonna edit that out, and then I'll upload it, and that'll be posted to the dashboard. I'll send an email out. Expect the email within 30 minutes. Expect the video by end of day, because processing and I have other stuff to do and don't want to cram it in. So email within 30 minutes, recording by end of day, probably much sooner than that. But Jake and Melina, thank you for coming on. Everyone loved it. Everyone's saying it's excellent, as is when JK comes on. So thank you again, sir, for dedicating your time to this. Anything else on your end?
Thank you for having me, man. This was fun, as always. I wish you the best, and hopefully, guys, you'll find your one big idea. Should you like help with it, then hit me up. If not, this was a great event. I know that the guests Dan Scott lined up are fantastic, and well, you're in for a good one.
Nice. I'll actually end on this for the people that are here, just because I know you guys like paid to get into here, but in all honesty, if you want one-on-one help and you have disposable income and you want someone to guide you through it, I don't offer that. JK does because he's extremely good at it. So my full endorsement, if you actually like want someone to help you one-on-one, DM JK. What's your at?
One JK Molina. O-N-E, JK Molina.
Nice. Yep. Follow him. You'll find him. He knows the stuff. Where do we find the dashboard and do we need a password? So when you purchase this event, it got sent as an email to you. It says I think it says thanks for your order from @thedenko. So if you just search for @thedenko in your email, you can find a sign in link to the dashboard. If you're missing that, email dan@thedenko.com and then we'll be able to send an email login to you if you lost it. But either way, you'll get it all via email. So you don't necessarily need to log in, but that's it. Cool. Thank you, JK. Enjoy the rest of your day.
This was fantastic. Have a great day.
Nice. See you, man. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. See ya. Today is Tank Top Day, and we have Randy Hill here. Randy, you're just going to sit in the background. I have to give this presentation super quick just so I can set the scene, and then we'll introduce you in like 15, 20 minutes. If you want to chat with people, you can, but I need to just like get through this, and I tend to be long-winded, so we're just going to start. Welcome to day 2. Today we have the laziest way to make money, nuance there, and not to pin it on Randy as being lazy, but then we'll have Justin come on in hour 2, which will be very fun. So a lot to talk about today, going straight in. The laziest way to make money and grow an audience and get help from mentors and find employees and investors, etc. What's the foundation of everything? Talk to more people. Oh my gosh, it's insane. That's how you make more money at the start. You talk to more people. We'll explain this as we go, so it makes more sense. And remember, if you were here yesterday for JK Molina's thing, you'll see where this all starts to come into play. So how do you talk to more people? I want to show you various screenshots that I've had. I give this example a few times of when Dickie Bush and I became friends. So if you don't know who Dickie Bush is, he runs the Ship 30 for 30 cohort. He talks about writing online. He has a very large audience. We were both growing at the same time, and now we're friends just from social media. So what he did is he sent a DM to me that just said, hey, Dan, thoroughly enjoyed your chat with my man Danny Miranda. I was on a podcast of his, and then he just told me what he got out of the conversation, something that was similar. As you can see here, when it comes to like, we're here to make money, right? That's what we're here to learn how to do. Nothing within this first message has anything to do with making money, right? It's literally just you're starting a conversation. You're here to make a friend, right? That's the way that we're gonna think of it. I responded because I've seen him on social media. Pretty simple. Glad you enjoyed the podcast. And then right after that, so we're gonna learn a different way to do this. But since Dickie and I already had some kind of connection, what he did was he just sent me a post that he had written. I'm pretty sure this was a thread on Twitter. If you don't know what a thread is, it's just a long form series of tweets. It's more than one tweet, a string of tweets. And he just said, thought you'd enjoy this, something that should be required reading before people get email privileges. So a little joke and just saying, hey, here's a book that I read. You may find it helpful, right? He's not asking me to retweet this. He's not asking me for anything in return. He just thought it would be valuable for me. The secret there is that he knows that I have some kind of an audience. Doesn't matter how large my audience was at that point. He just knew that I may relate with the content and I probably wasn't going to see it on the timeline. And since he had already seeded the connection previously and just gave me a compliment, I am probably going to go and like this tweet. I'm going to go and probably comment on it. I may repost it. It really depends. But boom, he potentially just got shared to more people. And that's how he that's how he grew his entire audience. I think Dickie Bush is like some posts did well just by him posting them, but him sending them to people who have some form of an audience. We'll talk about who to seed connections with soon, but like this is how he grew, right? It wasn't the algorithm. It wasn't praying that one of his topics did well. It was writing something that was helpful and sharing it with people that may have found it helpful. And if they had a larger following, the engagement on that post would boost it to their followers, leading to potentially audience growth, right? Then later on, I don't even think I responded to that message. I just liked it. And I think I commented, I didn't repost. And he sent me a post from myself when I was talking about my fitness progress. And this is actually a picture at a gym that Randy and I are going to train at today. Someone that I used to train at. And it was just like a personal post of mine, right? A little progress check-in. And then he just asked questions like, have you tried any fasting? He talked about what he's doing. He's thinking of not sprinting on a big project, so on and so forth. He's just like, it's like what you would tell, it's how you would talk to a friend, right? If you have shared interests, but people are already posting their interests online. And so you can kind of just start a conversation based on any of their content by just sending it to them in the DMs on any platform, not just Twitter, and starting from there. The principle here is that when you're trying to just get started, get some kind of traction on social media, just get in the habit of reaching out to people without needing anything. Give them compliments. Tell them what you're doing. Share a common story you've had together or like something that you relate with. Be genuinely interested in what people are doing and what they're building. Ask them about their projects, their goals, etc. Because the friends you make doing this are the ones that you're going to join group chats with. They're the ones that are going to engage with your stuff, whether you ask them to or not. They're the ones who are going to share. You're going to be able to send, if you put a lot of effort into a thread or carousel or reel or whatever it may be, these are going to be the people that you send it to and just be like, hey, I put a lot of effort into this. You don't need to share it, but I'm trying to get traction on this. And then they probably share it. This is like the 80-20 of growth without banking on the algorithm. And the other thing is that this also ties into how you start making money because you can start helping people with the offer that you have. The simple rule here, 70-20-10, talk 70% about them and their interests, 20% about shared experiences and common ground, 10% about you, because most people just talk 70% about themselves, right? They're not showing interest in another person. That's the key here. For this, things that you can start with is just commenting about what you're doing or have done based on what they said or what you're responding to or what you noticed if you watched a podcast from them. That's actually right here. So don't say like, hi, I love your content, or something that doesn't elicit a response or isn't really helpful, right? Don't reach out just to reach out and just because you're supposed to. What you can do here is watch something high effort from them, compliment, or ask a question about it. So if they've been on a podcast or they put out a newsletter or they just released a product or they wrote a big thread or they did something that you know it took a lot of effort, reach out and start talking about that because that's fresh in their mind and that's going to set you on good terms with them in their mind. The next thing you can do is just position yourself as a resource, right? So you're not selling anything yet, you're just making friends. So when you have this list of people that you're messaging, it can be anyone, just keep mental tabs when you watch YouTube videos or read articles or see anything that could be of benefit to them and just send it to them and be like, hey, this made me think of you, thought you'd benefit from it. Leave it at that. Just build this trust equity because it will pay back tenfold when you need it. The other thing, if you go through a personal experience that reminds you of them, share it. If they post a topic that you have a different angle on, share it with them. Whenever you come across something that can benefit them, again, send it to them. In each message, you want to start a conversation, right? So you can end it with curiosity. You can say, I'm curious if you tried XYZ, wonder what you think about XYZ. Have you noticed ABC? It opens a loop without demanding a response, and it's okay if they don't respond, right? You can also share your own works in progress. So I'm working on this thread. I wonder what you think about this idea that I'm writing about. So then they have investment in the content that you're writing and they're more likely to share it, or the product that you're selling or whatever it may be makes them feel valued and trusted. And it creates a collaborative relationship. So you guys can both go back and forth and they may send you something to help with, signaling that they trust you and they become invested in your success of that thing. So if you're creating a big YouTube video or hosting a event or something of that nature and they help in some way, they're going to help you promote it and make sure it becomes successful. Now, who do you reach out to? You can reach out to parallel creators, so around the same follower count. These are the most likely people to respond. They become accountability partners. They help you with strategies. You can share tips with them. They can share tips with you. You guys can share each other's content. That's a prime growth mechanism right there. And you can share what's working in real time if you find things. The next group you can reach out to is people that are one step ahead. So 6 to 12 months ahead of you. They have a bit higher follower count. These people are still likely to respond to you because they're not too big to ignore you, but they still have a valuable audience. I remember when I was growing, I had maybe like 1,000 followers and I made a good friend who had 17,000 followers. Now, a lot of people, when they're trying to grow, they're trying to like land these big fish, 100,000, 200,000 follower accounts that probably aren't going to respond to you when 17,000 followers is a lot of freaking people. If a 17,000 follower account starts engaging with me or reposting my stuff, then one, it may get spread to potentially 17,000 people, but then more people are following him, and then it creates this ripple effect. So he shares it or engages, then more people share it or engage, and then more people share it or engage. Doesn't matter if a huge 1 million follower account shares you or not, because we're doing this consistently over time, and you're building this network of people who equal a lot of followers, right? You have 10, 20,000 follower account friends. It's a lot of people over time, and then you guys grow together, and it only compounds in the amount. Why does this matter for sales? Because you need traffic. You need people to see you on social media. You need people to potentially reach out to you because they know who you are, and the more friends you have that know what you do, the more likely they are to refer you to those people. And if you don't have results yet, you can help them for free, and you can just offer help to everyone that you reach out to. And a lot of the time, if they're financially stable, they'll probably offer to pay you. So like making your first dollar is just a matter of making friends and jamming people and showing you know what you're doing and helping them potentially for free until you have this trust equity in this large network that allows you to charge higher for something. And of course, the other people you can reach out to are just the people that like, comment, engage with your stuff, right? Those are likely going to be the ones who buy from you the most. These are where your first customers are, the ones that are already engaging with your account. We'll talk to Randy about this in terms of his sales process to an extent. So the more people you're friends with, the more people know what you do, the more people will refer you or even ask to pay for help. Now, 5-step sales process, super quick because we may hit on this with Randy, but if you're trying to sell something, one, just focus on the goal. What are they trying to achieve? Then your entire mission is to help them achieve that goal. Start with the goal. This gets them invested and interested because it's their goal and they want to achieve it. Second, give an insight, mechanism, or results, right? Proof. So you spark desire. If they tell you what they want, what their struggles are in achieving that goal, that positions you as a potential resource. Oh, this is what changed everything for me. Oh, this is how I go about it. This is my step-by-step process. Here's actually someone I helped who's similar to you, so on and so forth. Step 3, I offer something like this. Dude, is that something you need help with? A lot of people will say no. That's okay. Just keep going. Follow up with a resource. So if they don't respond, you do the same thing that we talked about in making friends. You look for an article, YouTube video, whatever it is, send it to them 2 to 3 days later. Just be like, hey, I remember you were trying to achieve XYZ. Here's a YouTube video that I found that actually was super helpful. Then you become the resource and the authority. Then whenever they respond and they show interest, you just answer questions they have. You can share a link to pay. No pressure here. If your service is expensive, let's say over 1,000, 2,000, then you should probably do a sales call. But for the advanced people who have done this enough, this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but you can close mostly from the DMs. If they ask for a call, then just do the call. But what we left off on with JK Molina yesterday is that the easiest, or I guess the laziest, offer to sell is just access to you. So you already have the big idea and a way to help. We talked about that yesterday. You can offer, let's say, 4 calls, right? Don't overcomplicate this. Create an arbitrary amount of calls that you can help people on to achieve whatever goal they're trying to achieve according to the topic or big idea that you help with. You can charge 500 to 1,000 for this. You check in with them a few times a week. You answer questions via text or voice message. You give them projects, worksheets, trackers, resources, education, whatever it may be, right? Once you land someone that you can help that is paying for access to you, your entire job is to just help them hit their goal however possible, right? You give them trackers, calorie stuff, whatever the thing that you're selling is. It can be anything. You help them with that thing in a way that continues to get better and better over time. The easiest sales funnel here will actually start going on to Randy now. And what I want to show is on Randy's page, he has his content, he has his bio, just like you don't even pay attention to any of this. What's his entire landing page? What's his entire website? What's his entire sales funnel? How does he make the amount of money that he does? It's just a questionnaire. It's literally just a questionnaire. It's extremely low friction. It's focused on them. They can reach out. They can give all of this information. I'm assuming when this submits, something else happens. They get added to a Google Sheet, whatever it may be. Randy DMs them personally, and then he starts the process that we just talked about in terms of this. You start with a goal, give them insight mechanism. You figure out where their staking point is, soft promote your service. You already know they're interested. Follow up with a resource, etc. So you have the questionnaire, DM them, create the pain point or insight-based content that would lead to more people filling out the questionnaire or just reaching out to you. Tell people to fill out the questionnaire to work with you in the caption of your posts and comments. And if your big idea is good, like we talked about with JK Molina, it just works, right? We don't need to overcomplicate it any more than this. It could help to study sales process. It always helps to study sales, marketing, persuasion, etc., to refine your process. But what we're trying to get across in this limited amount of time that we have here today is that most people could make money this week, but they don't because they think they don't know enough. So with that, Randy, hello, welcome. How are you today?
Doing good, man. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yep. Hear you a bit.
Yeah, doing good, man. Just getting ready for our session later. I see that you're trying to mob me. You're trying to pump on me with the tank top there. So I made sure I did some push-ups and took some pre before this, so I would look nice and big on camera.
There you go. Cool. But yeah, excited to have you here, man. The main reason I wanted to get you on is because I feel like this is kind of fresh in your mind. For those that don't know, Randy kind of went through this entire process that we just went over when it came to me. So I'm Randy's client right now. And what's funny is that I never thought I would hire a fitness coach before, right? I've been in the gym most of my life. I've studied, in my free time, it's my hobby to study fitness, nutrition, listen to videos. It's like when I'm bored, what I go and watch is some kind of video in the fitness industry. And so Randy was a Cortex user, and he reached out to support one day and had been reaching out for a bit just to get help relating to Cortex. And then he sent a Loom video and just said, hey, can you send this to Dan? And I forget what else was along with that. But then the support sent me the link to the call. I watched it, and it was kind of just like offering help. He's like, hey, man, I know that you're interested in fitness, but Cortex has really helped me. Do you want to talk about this? I think we could help you do this, this, and this. Like, I could obviously tell that he had expertise. He was speaking my language. He was interested in the product that I was building, and he just reached out. And I could have said no, and a lot of the time I would have said no before, honestly, but it just worked, right? And now we're working together, and he already had a decent amount of success before that. But it just goes to show that, like, you can really reach out to anyone, and if you hit the right person at the right time with the right pain points, and you relate, and you're a genuine human being, then magic can happen, right? So, Randy, I want to talk just in general about your story. And the first thing is, where were you before this like big spike in revenue for you? What were you doing on social media? Because you were a firefighter. Just give the backstory.
Yeah, so I've been in the fitness industry for a long time. I previously owned a gym, and I kind of transferred everything online when I decided to get out of the physical gym space because I realized that I was going to be limited by the amount of time that I had, right? So when you're a personal trainer, you can only conduct so many sessions per day. And so I realized, like, hey, like I'm going to always be capped on, I can only train 6 clients a day. If I really want this thing to grow, then I need to, I need to move online. I need to find a more sustainable or scalable business model. It's actually funny that you mentioned, you're kind of just reaching out to people and offering value, because one of the initial ways I got started was I reached out to some people who had like a slightly bigger following than me. At the time, I probably only had like 1,500 Instagram followers, but I reached out to some people who were kind of like in the same niche as me, who were also interested in fitness. Their niche was more like competitive shooters, kind of like that tactical sort of preparedness sort of realm. And I knew that they had a big engaged following, but they had also posted stuff about fitness before. And so I just reached out and I offered, hey, I would coach you for free, after a brief conversation in exchange for, sharing my stuff, right? And it was very low pressure. I even said like, hey, if you don't, like, no pressure to share my stuff. But like I knew that they would if they got the results. So that was the first way that I started getting online clients and started getting a following. And I was actually really bad at it first. Like I had no outreach strategy. I had no Instagram strategy. I didn't know anything about the sales process, but just by virtue of doing that, I was able to, start to grow my following. And I just had people reaching out to me for training because I was like a trusted person in that realm, because I realized like, hey, I'm a pretty decently in shape guy. Like I have a lot of knowledge, but I'm not the biggest guy. I'm not the strongest guy. And so I needed to give people a reason to specifically work with me. And I realized that a lot of it was going to come down to like, being relatable and sort of like speaking the same language. And so I was like, well, maybe I can be the trainer for people who are, competitive shooters. And so that was kind of like the little niche that I found initially. And yeah, and it was all organic. It was just people reaching out to me. I did no outreach. I didn't even like consider that I could do that. And so it just kind of like was people showing up in my DMs. Over the years, that got me to the point where I had a decently sustainable income, but I just like didn't take the business that seriously. I didn't really know what to do. And I was kind of stuck in this like, I had this lack of confidence that I always tell myself I'm a poor salesman. I'm not good at social media. And so I never really even like tried. And so because of that, I realized I was like, hey, I need like a more, real job kind of income. And so that's when I started working as a firefighter. And then briefly after like my first year of firefighting, that's kind of when I just kind of got bit by this bug, I guess. And I sat down and decided to take this stuff more seriously. And a lot of it was influenced by me starting to like binge watch your YouTube videos. And it got me really motivated to like, take the personal branding thing seriously. And just, I guess gave me a little bit more confidence I could actually do it. And so, yeah, I guess the main thing that sort of changed things was I decided to start taking things a little bit more seriously. And I sat down and I really started thinking about like what my business model was, how to make it more sustainable. And I ended up reaching out to a mentor who I hired named Matt Shiver. And he really helped me dial the business stuff in. But yeah, I would say it kind of just was like a decision that I decided to make to take things more seriously. And then yeah, I had that initial success, and it eventually got to the point where I was making my monthly firefighting salary on a daily basis. And I was like, I have to go all in with the coaching thing. And that's what I did. And yeah, you're like, hey, you got to reach out to people who have like a slightly bigger following you. You can't reach out to people who are like, these big shots or whatever. But our thing was kind of like, it was like Pretty Woman, dude. I was like this lowly street beggar. And yeah, sent that Loom video and connected with you and got lucky there. And now we're friends and stuff like that. But I think one of the biggest things, man, is just realizing that like the competence in business a lot of the time comes from faking it until you make it, or comes from just having this confidence. Because I think a lot of people assume that people who are successful in these realms have some innate talent, or like they're always good at this stuff, and then they gain the confidence from that. Whereas I think if you look back on like a lot of people's old YouTube videos, like if you go and you look at somebody that has a lot of YouTube subscribers, or like a big podcast or something, you look at their first few pieces of content and they're terrible. And so you have to realize like, hey, you don't have to put out something perfect at first. You need that minimum viable offer, and you just have to get going. And I think that fear and that sort of imposter syndrome stops a lot of people from launching something.
Yeah. So in terms of like what you did, you were just like, it seems like the shift here was more so just about you need to get serious about this. That's what got you consistent. And despite content quality, some being good because just naturally you know what you're talking about, that's what led to how did this lead into landing your first few clients? I know you said you offered free help occasionally, but when it came to the first paid ones, did you have any knowledge of sales? Were you already working with a business mentor, or was it mainly you were just talking to people and then you're like, hey, I do coaching. Do you want it?
Well, it sort of happened simultaneously, because some of the videos that I watched from you, where you talked about personal branding, one of the main things that you said that really resonated with me was, hey, figure out what the biggest problem that you've solved in your life is, and then basically learn or figure out how to package that up and deliver it to other people. And so I started kind of just like making my content sort of with that in mind. And I have kind of a cool like origin story of fitness, because I used to be super skinny and unconfident. I was a nerd or whatever. Like I'm still a nerd, I'm just a big nerd now. But I started focusing my content more on that stuff. And then kind of simultaneously, I got this mentor who kind of sat me down and took me through this sort of curriculum and taught me this like process, right? And so the first kind of like thing that I did, I guess specifically speaking, was I started creating what are called follower funnels on Instagram. Okay, so I knew I needed like people to reach out to, and I needed an audience to do that. I needed people to engage with my content. So I started creating some carousel posts on Instagram that were like pain point focused. Okay, so my sort of niche that I was going for initially was first responders. And so because I was a firefighter, it was very natural. And so I sat down and I thought about, and with the help of Cortex also, I sat down and thought about like, okay, who are these people? What are some of the problems they experience like fitness wise? And then how can I solve that problem? And I would just make these carousel posts that were like pain point solutions, like 5 or 6 slides. I would run those as like boosted posts on Instagram, like zero knowledge of like how to use meta ads or anything, just to click the boosted post button, and people would follow me, and then I would send them a DM and I would sort of engage them. So there's 2 thoughts to this, right? Like you could do like what you were talking about, kind of that long-term nurture, where you kind of reach out to somebody, offer some value, start a conversation, and then maybe down the road they'll share stuff and maybe they'll turn into a customer. But initially, to get some wins, I was kind of aggressive with the sales, and so I would DM people. And I had this sort of like script that I would use that I would modify for the individual. I would introduce myself. I would I would ask them, or I would kind of like, make a connection with them and ask them like, how they started following me or how they found me. And then I would ask them, oh, you must be a fitness tier or whatever. And a lot of these people are first responders. And so we started talking about that. Then I would transition the conversation into what I'm selling, which is fitness. And I would ask them, what their fitness goals were, more or less. And then ask them how it was going, and hopefully it wasn't going well. And then I could, maybe offer some free advice. And I would say, hey, like, if you want to take things to the next level, I'd love to hop on a call with you and talk more about it or something like that. And a portion of those people ended up getting on calls with me. And that's kind of how the sales process started. Now, obviously, only a small proportion of those people are actually going to end up booking a call with you, but you just have to keep knocking on doors. Like, there's a guy named James Smith on YouTube that we talked about a little bit, who ran an online PT business. And one of the things he talks about is when he was a door-to-door salesman, he would go knock on 100 doors and get 100 no's. And then his sales manager told him, well, you need to go knock on the 101st door, because eventually one of those will end up buying your product. And when they do, now you have a process that you can replicate, because you can look back and say, okay, what did I say to this person? How did this conversation go that led to them booking a call with me? And so I just started experimenting that way. And I would say, hey, okay, what did I say to this person that motivated them to get on the phone with me? And just kind of try to do that over and over and continue to refine that process.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me when I first started, because I started in freelancing, freelance web design, and I wasn't the most skilled at it, but I honestly wasn't that skilled at all. Like, I could create something pretty and I got the job done. And that's a difficult thing to sell, right? That's not anything unique. You can go on Fiverr and see everyone and their mother is selling a 5-page website, right? So me selling that at the start was still my entry point, right? Me trying to optimize that and create some super unique offer when I didn't have the experience to do so, I don't think I could have even done that, right? I had to get all of the rejections, and it sucked, especially when I was doing it without any guidance. Like, I was just like, I know I need to send cold emails. I know I need to look at the vehicle graphics that I'm passing by when I'm going to the gym and seeing, oh, that guy owns a construction company. I take a picture of their phone number on the door and cold call them. It's like, hey, I saw your car on the side of the road and just was wondering if you need a website. Like, I tried to frame it better than that, but you get rejected a ton, and that kind of, you get used to that over time, and it's okay. So just expect the rejection. And then when you get the one sale, then you have so much data to go off of. You have all of these failures of how something didn't work. You're learning on the way so you can make your offer better, and you're slowly refining it to make it better. Then finally someone says yes, and you're like, okay, this is it. Then you give them your all, and then you have one. Then you get a case study, and then you start talking about that case study, so on and so forth, and it just starts to flow naturally from there. So in terms of, let's break down just what your content in general looks like. Like, when you go into your day, what's on your mind in terms of okay, how am I going to get a client today? Is it as simple as pain point content, whether it's a reel or carousel is the base, pain point solution, and then reach out to people who follow from that, potentially people who comment from that, and then aside from that, do you direct any people to the questionnaire? Or what's the general process that goes from content to sale? Is it content, conversation, questionnaire, call, sale, or is it just some people fill out the questionnaire, DM, so on and so forth?
Yeah. So first of all, what you said about rejection, just want to touch on that real quick. Like, you have to gamify things, right? Like, you had a video about gamifying your life. And I think that getting over some of that fear of rejection is that you have to detach yourself personally from the outcome and gamify things, right? Like, I see getting a client or getting a lead or whatever as just another point on the scoreboard. And that helps me not take rejection so personally, because when you are selling a personal brand, especially if it's something you're really passionate about, and somebody doesn't buy or doesn't engage, it's really tough to not take it personally, because it's you that they're talking to. And so you feel personally rejected. And so many people are afraid of rejection. Right? I mean, there's a whole industry on, learning how to cold approach people, right? And there's even systems of intentional, there's this one, it's 100 days of rejection or something. And you intentionally get yourself rejected once a day. They have all these like drills that you do for things that will sort of inoculate you from that fear. And so it's really important. I just want to touch on it's really important to detach yourself from that stuff. And it's tough because it's tough not to take it personally when it's a personal brand.
I'll say something there. People can also be ruthless. Like, you're online, if you DM the wrong person who is just not, or sees no matter what you say, some people are just dead set on seeing anything. If they can smell any kind of sales, they don't like that, and they will let you know. And
I've run into that quite a bit. And again, it comes down to gamifying things, right? Like, if I just see myself as a character in a video game, and I don't know, that door doesn't open, I don't get all mad and throw something. I just move on to the next part of the video game. And so you have to, you have to just move on and realize okay, if I keep trying to knock on this door, this is now an hour wasted. I could have knocked all these other doors that could have been yeses. And frankly, when you're starting this kind of stuff out, you have to have more resilience. Somebody talked about having a resiliency score, where most people have a resiliency score of 0 or 1. And if you have a resiliency score of 0, you will never even attempt the thing. If you have a resiliency score of 1, you can handle 1 or 2 failures or rejections. So a lot of this comes down to literally just how willing are you to continue to fail until you get a success. Because once you get that one success, your confidence will skyrocket again, because now you have a process that you can repeat and refine. Now, when it comes to the actual process, so initially I didn't have a form or anything like that. It was all very basic. I didn't want to get it over my head and set up all these crazy systems, because that's another thing is that a lot of people think, well, if I'm going to start this business, I have to have a website and a form and a DSLR camera and lightsabers behind me and a cool background and lighting. None of that is required. And in fact, if you don't have that stuff, a lot of the time you come off as more authentic, which makes people more likely to get on that call with you. So there's definitely some virtue in maybe intentionally having lower production value sometimes. But initially, what would happen? So this DM conversation would be kind of struck up, either from me reaching out or them reaching out. Typically it was me, because people are notoriously bad at doing that. And in the conversation, I would always end every message with a question, because if you don't prompt somebody with a question, a lot of times they're going to leave you on red, especially if they can start to smell that there's a sale coming on. Now, obviously our goal is to make sales, but if you are doing something where you feel like this is something important you can really help people with, you have to stop thinking of sales tactics as sleazy. And that's something that I struggled with at first too, is I was I don't want to be a sleazy salesman, but I was hey, I'm not selling used cars here. I'm selling something that I know will transform somebody's life. And so I didn't feel bad about kind of having this DM process. I didn't really feel disingenuous about it, because I knew that, hey, some people just need a push to start caring about themselves as much as you're going to care about them when they become a client. So I would have this kind of DM process, and I would try to make it not so salesy. I would try to use language that would connect with the audience, and obviously help because they were people like me. And then I would sort of, financially qualify them a little bit, not so much at the start, because I was just trying to get my feet wet and get people on calls. But I would kind of go through this process where I'd find out what their issue was, how long they've been dealing with it, kind of like that extended gap sort of thing. And then the solution that I would offer them was a call. So I would say, hey, I've got some ideas for you. If you want to, take things to the next level, would you be open to hopping on a call in the next couple of days? And a portion of those people would say yes. And I would book a call with them manually at first, and I would get on the call with them and do my process. As time went on, I kind of refined it a little bit, and because the volume of people talking to me went up so much, I had to have a form and that kind of stuff. But yeah, initially it was very simple. Again, don't overthink it. Literally just talk to somebody. If you know that you have something you can help them with, the goal in the end is just to get them on the phone, and then you can take the rest from there. So that was kind of the process at the start.
Nice. Yeah, we have a question here that I want to butt in with really quick from Alexa. If I'm an artist and I don't have a specific product that can help others in the realms of evergreen skills or like marketing specific skills or health wealth relationships or target a specific pain point, how do I apply the sales process to that? So for this, the way that I look at it is you have two ways here, right? You can either sell something for commission. So you do an art commission for someone and you offer that as a service. I forget his name. Not famous, really high follower painter on Instagram. I reached out to him because I wanted my dog drawn on like as a big painting. And he like the fact that someone was creating it for me demanded a much higher ticket. So it's a big painting, but I paid like 8,000 for that, which is a lot of money for something of that nature. So you can do commissions, and if it's something like digital art or something like that, you are kind of going to have to frame it to be more personal to that specific person, right? Because you have what you want to create, and you can do that just fine. But some people may not see the value in that. So offering some kind of personal thing for them that holds a lot of meaning, that's when you can start to run the sales process. But the other way, the second way, which we're kind of more aligned with, is you would shift towards more of a teaching style offer, right? So it could be coaching, it could be consulting, it could be tutoring. Similar when yesterday's presentation, I talked about you can tutor, you can consult, or you can sell a system, you can coach, right? So if you have a specific, like an art basics course, that could be a course, but you could also walk people through one-on-one, right? The pain point there is that people don't have a hobby, people don't have a creative skill that they can leverage. They're missing something in their life that brings a lot of zest and joy and creativity into it. And that's what you help them cultivate by teaching them, right? It could be 4 calls once a week for a month, charge $1,000. You teach them your writing and drawing practice process, right? And that's the thing, Alexa, you said, I feel like nobody's interested in learning that. But the key thing here, this is a part of sales, but also just a part of psychology in general, is how did you become interested in art? How did Randy become interested in fitness? How did I become interested in writing, right? It's not that it was innate to our personality when we were born. Maybe some of it was, but people can adopt new interests, right? You're not necessarily targeting someone who, like, you're not trying to find that needle in a haystack where they're interested in learning art and you just show up at the right place, right time, and are the one that can provide that. Your content and other things of that nature, if you do go the teaching route, is you're talking about the benefits of adopting art as a hobby or practice. You're talking about the pain points, the transformation in your life that it helped you solve. If you're going through a rough patch in your life and art helped pull you out of that, that can get someone interested. Because if they're going through a similar rough patch, art is just one modality for that, right? I can offer writing for that. Randy can offer fitness for that. That's the cool thing about it, is that everyone has the same pain points. Every single one of you just have a different way of solving them. And most of them are very beneficial to someone's life. And that person, people out there, are going to pick and choose the interests that help them solve their own problems, right? So that's like the mindset shift, is people can become interested in new things. And it's your job to share why art has benefited your life so much. So if your content right now is very focused on showing your art, keep that, but start to work in a bit more about your story, how art helped you, why you love art so much, why art is important to you specifically. We'll talk about different types of content you can write tomorrow, but that, I feel like, will start to shift how you think about being able to sell it. So yeah, as a lot of people are read the chat, a lot of people are giving great tips here, but back to Randy, let's actually talk about that. What does your like content evolution look like? You said you started off writing like pain point solution carousels. What has that evolved into, and what has led to, let's say, the most impactful type of content? When I say impactful, the ones where either people reach out or they're like, I really resonated with that, and the trust is just built so that they're much more likely to become a client. So you can take it even further and transform their life.
That was something that was such an important realization for me, was that I'm not selling fitness, right? I am selling a secondary outcome. Because I think some people get so wrapped up in the product or the service or what their expertise is that they're not thinking like, what are the actual like secondary benefits, right? Like, it's not that somebody really cares about getting a 6-pack. It's not that really somebody cares about, improving the bench press. It's that they want something that comes from that, whether it's like confidence or more structure in their life or, social status or whatever it is. And once you realize that, then you can sort of, gear your content or the way you talk to people through that. And so now when I talk to people about their goals, we talk about fitness goals and stuff like that, but I dig deeper, because that's not, oftentimes, like, that's not enough of a reason for somebody to buy something. Like if I get somebody on a call who, they think that everything about their life is perfect and everything's good, and they just want to like maybe add 20 pounds to their squat because it's a hobby for them, they don't really care that much, that person is not going to pay a couple $1,000s for my services. So I have to think, I have to focus on like, what does this person really want out of this? Like, what are their deeper motivations? Where do they want to be in life? And especially if that's a place where you're at that then you then solved, that's going to be a much better sell. And I think that was a huge transition for me, was when I stopped just saying, okay, well, like, how much weight do you want to lose? How much do you want to add to your squat? It's not emotionally exciting enough. And in the end, that isn't even why I'm in it either. The whole reason I'm doing fitness is because I had this fitness transformation, but that then allowed me to have, the confidence and, build my business. And it bled over into all these other aspects of my life. It changed how people interact with me on the street. It changed my confidence and my ability to just go talk to people, which then changed the trajectory of my life. And so now when I make content, I talk a lot about one of the like kind of corny phrases that I use is called the law of the jungle. And I say, hey, the way that you look is like your business card, right? The way that you appear, like the way you carry yourself, that's going to determine to some extent how people interact with you. And those interactions will then change what happens in your life. And so those are kind of the things that I focus on now with my content. Now I say, hey, like I've got this successful business. I've been married, had kids, like gotten these amazing job opportunities and stuff like that. And a lot of the time, fitness was the catalyst for that. Whether it was through a direct conversation with somebody about fitness, or literally just by virtue of the fact that like when you look like somebody who takes themselves more seriously, people treat you like a more serious person, and then that opens the door to other things. And so that is something that I think a lot of people are missing, because they're only talking about the fitness stuff and they're not connecting with their audience on that sort of deeper, more primal emotional level. But the person's motivation for getting into fitness is always deeper, right? Like there's obviously the obvious health benefits and stuff of being fit, but people want to be better dads. They want to be around for the kids longer. They want better social status, a better dating life. Those are the things you really need to hone in on. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable to talk to people about those things because these are personal questions. But if you can get personal with people, they're much more likely to trust you if they can be vulnerable with you like that. And so I really direct my content towards that now. And another thing is that a lot of people, again, they have this kind of like imposter syndrome where they don't feel confident enough. So maybe, maybe Alexa is a good artist, but maybe she doesn't feel like she's that great of an artist, or maybe she feels like she's not really qualified to teach other people. But you have to realize that you are. Like, everybody has something to offer. Like, I still have imposter syndrome. I still feel like I don't know anything about fitness, and I'm not even a great coach, and I'm not big, I'm not strong, and all that kind of stuff, because I'm inundated with all these social media videos that I see of people lifting more than me or being more jacked or faster lean than me. But you have to realize that, like, you have something to offer other people, and you can help other people no matter who you are. There's something in your life that you've overcome, and all you have to do is present that to others and kind of get your head out of this, like, this idea that I'm a nobody. I'm not the best on social media, because all you see is all these top 1% people. You got to realize that you can still help somebody at least get to where you are. Because if you're one step ahead of somebody, that's enough. You don't have to be a professional IFBB bodybuilder. You could literally be somebody that lost 20 pounds, right? Like, I have a client named Craig who's starting his own personal training business, and he kind of went through the same thing. He lost 100 pounds, very significant, and now he's a decent athlete. He's training for half marathon, but he's still dealing with the sort of imposter syndrome. And I'm like, you lost 100 pounds. Like, you know how many people would kill to lose even 20 pounds? And so you just have to realize, like, hey, you don't think that you're qualified to teach people this stuff. You are, because you've taught yourself this thing, and now you can just package that up and deliver it to other people.
Beautiful. First off, Alexa's male, so we correct that publicly. And second thing, so we have 10 minutes left. I have 3 things I want to talk about here. There's a lot of good conversation going on. The first is an anonymous question. Dan, I'm an executive coach successfully running a one-on-one coaching service for 15 years now. How do I turn the expertise of all 3 years into a product for those who cannot afford my one-on-one time? We're going to talk about this a bit more tomorrow when we go over the AI stuff. Not to have AI create the product for you, but use AI to kind of learn this and execute at the same time. I think it'd be really cool. But with that, the way you can do this one of 2 ways. You can create a masterclass, which is going to be rather high ticket. What's the main transformation that you help with? How can you distill that into a product? And what kind of product do you want to create, right? For most, it's probably going to be a course or an ebook or whatever variation. You can do all of the above if you want and just relaunch them over time. Start with an ebook, eventually expand it into a course, so on and so forth. The other way is you can create spin-off offers. So if there's like one really impactful part or one part of your coaching that either does well as content right now, like you go and look on YouTube and you see videos that are doing well related to that, you can turn it into something like that. But in terms of actually fleshing out the delivery of a product, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, and we'll have more time for back and forth because it's just me and you guys for 2 hours. The next one from Tanya is I have trouble understanding the difference between tutoring and coaching. I know it's teaching versus guiding, but I still don't get how it differs in practice here. It's more of they're the same thing. They're really the same thing, but it's more of a reframe, right? Because when you're, let's say, an artist like Alexa, you're not really thinking about coaching people for art, right? Or even with web design, you're not teaching people, you're not coaching people on how to learn a skill. You're more so tutoring them. A thing that I like to relate it to is when people learn to code, they can go to coding boot camps, right? But I rarely see people offering a one-on-one coding boot camp. The only person I've seen do this, his name is Bowtide Cyber. He offers like his own cybersecurity credentials. So you go to him one-on-one, and now he has a team, but he teaches you cybersecurity like you would go into an online course. But then he's gone the extra step to turn it into some kind of a credential, which I don't know how he did that, but he did. But the same thing can apply to art or web design or a skill or interest that you don't necessarily have like a tangible ROI focused transformation. Like, oh, you can make $10,000 extra this month if you get coached by me. It's more so, I have a skill that's very useful. Like, I have writing. I could tutor you on how to write for 2 months, and you'll come out with a skill that then you can use to get a better job or have this opportunity or this opportunity. So tutoring is more focused on, like, I'm teaching you this skill as if I'm your teacher. I'm giving you the homework every week. I'm giving you the practice material. We're building out a project together to structure the tutoring. Like, for art, the end result of the art could be creating this concept, right? You give them a concept. We're going to create this over the course of 2 months. What do you want to draw or create in Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever tool? Let's do that over the course of 2 months. And the benefits of that are X, Y, Z. So tutoring, coaching, consulting, they're kind of all the same thing. One-on-one help to achieve a goal. And that goal is dependent on what your skills, interest, system, big idea from the last call are. And now we're getting lots of questions. Okay, we have 5 minutes.
Sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent on the last one.
Oh, no, you're good. We're trying to squeeze a lot in, which is good. The recording will be available for those who ask. This one is good. I think we need to focus on this one right now. Randy, I'd love if you can touch on how you ensure client results when there are so many variables, i.e. someone may follow the workouts, but not nutrition, and then not see results.
Yeah, so this is sort of one of the problems that I'm always trying to solve from the start. So I have it's like a very intimate one-on-one service that I do. Okay, so I have all my clients log their workouts in a training app that I use, and then every single week I go in there and I review their training, and I give them like feedback and a check-in. With some of my clients, I'll do check-in calls, and it's just one of these things like, hey, sometimes you can only lead a horse to water and can't make them drink, but you can do your best to ensure the results. Okay, so with my clients, I designed this program that works for their schedule, their individual, their needs, injuries, equipment, and stuff like that. And I'm kind of just following along every step of the way with them and making sure that they're compliant and that the system works for them. I'm also very data-driven with my stuff, so my clients log exactly what they do as far as like the weights, reps, and sets, and then I make sure the following week that it builds upon the last week. And so the success is sort of baked into the program. So if you follow it, you get the results. And I think that's a very important aspect is like sort of that one-on-one sort of service. Now, obviously, as you scale, that becomes more difficult. And so this is the problem that I initially ran into, is that I had so many clients, but I was kind of like underselling or undercharging, and not like I wasn't able to give as much attention to each individual. And so that's the point where I realized I had to raise my prices and take less people on so I could give people that more one-on-one sort of attention.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So in like the fitness industry is so developed at this point with different technologies that you can use. Like, there's TrueCoach that you use. So there's like coaching platforms, right, that you can sign up for depending on what industry you're in that help you interact better with your client. I'm assuming TrueCoach costs some amount of money.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's scaled based on how many clients you have. And it's a totally worthy investment. Like, if you make your first sale and you reinvest that into something like TrueCoach, that's going to pay dividends down the road with retention and client success.
Yeah. So for like the absolute beginners, in terms of delivering whatever it is that you offer, what I personally recommend is it's hard to give like a framework for this. This is maybe something we can ask AI about tomorrow, but inside of something like Notion, right? You can just start creating a simple client dashboard, right? What are you going to give them each week? How are you going to check in with them? What are the metrics that you're going to follow up on? In fitness, it's pretty clear, right? You need them to weigh themselves, so you know where that's going. You need them to track their nutrition, at least for a bit, unless you go about nutrition a different way. You need to track their lifts. How are you going to give them the option to do that so that the communication is clear to you, right? Texting back and forth, sure, you can do that at the start, but something free like Notion, you sign up for that, you start creating tables and other things with the workouts inside of there. You give them access to that. They can fill it out as they go. You can go in, check it, text them, see if there are any problems, so on and so forth. So that's what I would recommend for anything that you're starting with, whatever you're helping people with. You kind of just do it on the fly. Like you can try to find the perfect framework or template, and that was probably a very good starting point. You can probably find a ton online, but most of it is just like, okay, what am I helping them with this week? Let me try to build that out in a way that makes sense. Even if it's a Google document or an Excel sheet, you give that to them. And if it isn't working that well, then you need to solve the problem, refine the system, make it a bit better. And then by the end of that client, maybe the second client, you have this process that is much more streamlined. If you're starting charging low prices or even doing for free, then that's kind of baked into the cost, right? Because they know that you're just starting out. So they're giving you some leeway there. But then as you get better, of course, that demands a more premium, tailored, refined service.
Yeah, and I know we're about done on time here, but there's two aspects to that, right? So one, having the client log things is an accountability feature, but then also it gives you the data that then you can use to then refine your program and make it better. So if I have somebody logging their nutrition, that keeps them more on track and accountable with nutrition, but it also allows me to see if that program is working. So you have to figure out, hey, what metrics am I going to track and also hold this person accountable with? And then that gives me the way to then modify what we're doing and sort of pivot around those roadblocks. And I can tell them, hey, next week, this is what went poorly, this is what went well, and these are the modifications that we're going to make, so that you're giving that kind of like high touch one-on-one thing, and then you can just refine things as things go on, and that's how you ensure success.
Yep, absolutely. That was good. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, man. I was a little nervous getting on a big screen here.
It always happens. I still get nervous. I got on
first time in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah, I got on Justin's like 2 months ago, and it's still the same thing. Even podcasts, I just get nervous like getting in front of people. So
I'll shake you.
yeah. But there were a few questions. I have these saved. If we have time after the Justin call or Justin portion, then I'll answer these. If not, I believe they're saved. As I said, tomorrow we have a lot more time to just fiddle around and do a bunch of stuff at one-on-one call. So thank you, Randy. I'll see you later. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at High Risk Fitness HQ. It's HIGH Risk Fitness HQ. Nice. I'll be in the chat here talking to you and watching this part as well. So
cool, sweet. I'm gonna demote you to attendee, a measly attendee, and then we'll say hi to Justin.
All right, see you later.
Yep, thank you, man. Okay, he's frozen. Justin, what's up, man? How are you?
All right, man. Good to see you.
Doing very good. Excited to have you. So for those that don't know, quick intro. I know everything about you. You're a mentor to me in many ways. So brief introduction.
Sure. And I'll also touch on this in my presentation. First of all, thanks for having me. Good to catch the end of Randy's there. I didn't know everyone was going to be so strong. I would have thought before.
I know it's tank top day. Yep.
I was like, I should have just worn like a tank top, but nice, very cool to catch Randy's. So my name is Justin Welsh, and I guess for those of you who don't know me, the way I would describe myself now is mostly a writer. I spend most of my time writing on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, Threads. I've got a newsletter of a little less than 200,000 folks, and I write about how to become a solopreneur. So that my sort of focal area has been creating one-person businesses. I've run this one-person business for 6 years now. Prior to that, I was a healthcare technology chief revenue officer, and just me and my wife. And we do courses, we a membership, newsletter, sponsors, partnerships, lots of good stuff. And excited today to talk a little bit about creator monetization paths. And so I actually put together a presentation. So hopefully you can share my screen down. That'd be all right.
Yep, let's
Awesome.
do it. I'll make sure sharing's on.
Cool. Let me figure out how to do this. All right, share. Can y'all see that? Can you see that, Dan?
Yes, looking good.
Cool. If I pop up my speaker notes, so I can reference those. Do those cover the thing?
Nope, looks good.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thanks, man. Just like Randy, I also get nerves speaking. Actually, it's really funny. I get more nerves speaking online because I can't see attendees. I'd rather get up on stage in front of 30,000 people than I would be in front of 500 people online. But really excited because I know this topic pretty well. And today, what I really want to talk about is mapping out ways that creators can make money. And so, Dan, I can't see the chat, but if there's any interesting questions, because I've left some time baked in for questions, if there's anything interesting that comes across, just like interrupt me. Happy to dive in. Really, by the end of this presentation, what I want you to know is just how you can think about revenue paths. I'll talk through my own story, so how I kind of went on a path, because nothing in sort of entrepreneurship is linear. It's all like ups and downs and loops and twists and turns. I'll walk you through some ways to think about how to decide what fits you, and then how to sort of test your first path or offer, or maybe your next offer if you've already built one, in the next 90 days. So kind of dive in. I already gave my background, but just quickly, former healthcare CEO, built a couple of $1 billion businesses, checked out of that in 2019, burned out really badly, started my creator journey, grew to 1.5 million followers, 175,000 newsletter. Business recently crossed 10 million, headed towards 11 million over 6 years. It's 90% profit margin, so really healthy profit margins. And that's why I think sort of my journey can be interesting to learn from. You probably can't replicate it, but I think you could learn from it. And there's a lot of really good nuggets out of just like thinking through the journey. The agenda is I'm going to talk through different models of monetization. I will assume that there is a mixed bags of folks in here, people making 7 figures, 6 figures, those of you just getting started. I'll kind of motor through those because I'll assume that a lot of you understand the difference between different models of monetization, but I do think it's helpful to touch on those to kind of form a foundation. I'll talk about offer stack logistics. So how logistically you should think through stacking offers to maximize revenue, tell you my story, walk through how to get started, and then if there's time, we'll do Q&A, or maybe we can kind of just intersperse that throughout the presentation. So before I dive in, one thing I always like to say, like, caveat is there's 1,000 ways to be successful as an entrepreneur. And if there was just one playbook, like if there was one path of monetization, we would just all follow it, right? Like I would do it, Dan would do it, every single person I know would do it, and that would be ShipShape. We would all be great entrepreneurs, but there's not, right? So I'm gonna give you a bunch of advice and tips that work for me, but please feel free to like say that doesn't work for me, or I tried that once and it wasn't good for me, and I did something totally different. This is more of a thought process. It's a strategic workshop where it's like you take what you learn and you apply it to your very specific situation versus you follow this like a treasure map. That's not the way that it's meant to be followed. Here's kind of why I see most creators failing before we get into like how do you actually succeed. There's typically 4 reasons. And the number one reason I see is that they can just never grow a meaningful audience. So they're never able to sort of figure out distribution. And distribution is obviously a huge part of being successful. A few others is that they build a big audience, but they can't figure out how to translate it into revenue. I'll touch on that a little bit later. A big one, and I see this a lot, especially in beginners, is they're just very scatter focused. So they're trying to do 100 different things at once. They're like, hey, it's my first day trying to be an entrepreneur, and like I'm going to release a product, start on LinkedIn, start on X, build a membership, do a newsletter, and it's just like way too much at the beginning. And then last, and I think especially you can see this on social media, are folks who copy what they see other people doing. So it's kind of the famous iceberg. They see everything above the iceberg, and so like if I write on like this person on LinkedIn or X or Instagram, I'll have the success they have, and they don't see all the stuff underneath the iceberg, which are the systems and the back end and the expertise and all that. So the goal of this presentation is really to simplify this and to try and give you a clear set of advice or principles that you can apply. So this is sort of like the money map. Every monetization path, for the most part, right, there's some that maybe fall slightly outside of this, kind of falls into one of 2 buckets. One is audience funded. So you can see that's things like membership, products, services, which means your audience pays you directly. That is mostly how my business makes money. On the other side, there's also brand funded, which means that companies pay you access to your audience. And that's things like sponsorships, partnerships, affiliates. Both of these things can work. It's just really important to understand sort of where you are on your journey and which of these 2 buckets, and more specifically, which of the actual models inside of these buckets is most sustainable for you right now. You'll see that there's like an overflow in the middle, which is licensing. I think that's probably less relevant to a lot of the folks on this call, so I'm not really going to touch on that. But I do want to touch on these different models of monetization and give you a high level of how I think about who they're good for, what the margins are like, some pros and cons, so on and so forth. So we'll start with brand funded, and then we'll kind of move into audience funded. So sponsorships and ads, I think, are often kind of an obvious monetization path. I hate that word. I'm going to be saying it all presentation. Obvious monetization path. And I think one of the first ones that creators think of, because there's a lot of upside with sponsorships and ads, and really mostly on the sponsorship side. And I think the biggest upside that I think about with this path is that there's minimal product creation. So you don't have to build a course. You don't have to launch a service. You might have to have a newsletter or a social media following, but there's no product creation. And there's really high potential payout if you can reach scale. But it's also very, very fragile. If algorithms change, if CPMs drop, your income can literally vanish overnight. So for me, this is a strong fit for creators who love building big audiences and don't mind brand integration, right? So like if you think about the margin profile of a sponsorship, it's pretty high, right? You can make good money. You're taking home a sponsorship, but you're also turning your attention away from your own brand and your own business, and you're giving that spotlight to a completely different business. There is a cost to that over time as people see you taking that spotlight and shining it away from your business. There really is like a cost to, should you ever want to do products or services, I want you to just consider that cost long term. Partnerships are a little deeper than sponsorships. They're usually multi-month, multi-platform. They're basically collaborations where brands invest in you in a long-term integration, right? So this is stuff like co-created content, bundled offerings, revenue share agreements. These can be really good for creators with niche influence or authority. And for those of you out there who have fewer followers, you can still land viable partnerships. I think about one guy that I know in particular that is a very good example. He has about 2,500 Instagram followers, and he talks about financial advice for veterans. And so it's very, very niche. And he was able to land a 10K a month sponsorship deal because he has such a niche focus on veterans and financial advice. So they trust him. It's high trust, high niche audience, but still relatively small. So if you're thinking, do I have the followership to kind of get a long-term partnership? The more niche you are, the better. But a lot of these are like exclusivity limits. So, you want to work with one brand, you can't work with another. These can be really difficult to pull off and generally require a bigger audience. Affiliates can be good also for folks that have a smaller audience. It's just really, really high trust. And the whole point of an affiliate is that an audience trusts your taste, right? You recommend something, they buy, you earn a cut. I think about a guy like Lenny Rachitsky, who runs a big newsletter over on Substack. He's got high trust in the product management space. So he could obviously earn a huge living on affiliates. I don't know if he does. He's just somebody that sort of pops to mind. It's pretty low lift, right? You don't have to build anything, but it's pretty low reward, right? Most affiliate agreements are going to pay you 15, 20, 25%. And so you're taking your audience again, and you're selling them something, and if it's $150 and you're making 20%, then you're making $30. Where if you had your own, thing at $150, you could make 100% of that money, which is $150, right? So the margins are pretty low, dependent on the commission structure. And I think one caveat here is you should only promote products you genuinely stand behind, or you will burn credibility. I see a lot of folks right now, especially on LinkedIn, it's kind of ripe for that environment where every single day it's like, I'm repping a CRM, and then I'm repping email software, and then I'm repping Walmart. And it's just like, I've seen this audience trust burn, just get crushed. And so be very, very careful if you're thinking about eroding that trust with your audience. I think the ones that are probably more interesting to folks here are audience funded. And I'll talk about why I think they're interesting, but also why I think they're hard to pull off in some way, shape, or form. Services, in my opinion, which is like coaching and consulting, I think, in my opinion, this is the best way to get started. I think this is a perfect step one in path for creators, especially those with small followings. And if you're high trust, high niche, you don't need huge scale to book a handful of advisory calls, to sell coaching packages, to do consulting projects. Just a handful of clients can create really, really meaningful income, and it's high immediate payout, right? And I think the unsort of thought about thing with services, and this is how my career started as a creator, is you get access to customers. Everyone wants to go out and build product. They want to go out and build a piece of software, and they want to do it without having any meaningful conversation with their customers or their end users. And services forces you into having that conversation. So you learn how to solve the most expensive problems, the most challenging problems, and all the little nuance that you gather inside of those conversations becomes kind of a roadmap for you to almost figure out additional ways to monetize this very same group of folks that you're servicing. And I'm going to show you how that worked out in my path later on. One thing to be careful of is this is time bound. So I've never met someone who could scale past, let's call it $2 million as a coach or a consultant. Not suggesting you need that, right? But like you can't scale past $1.5, $2 million unless you start hiring additional coaches, unless you start figuring out a way to systematize this because you're time boxed by your time. And so there's a lot of potential burnout. I see people getting really tired of coaching and consulting. It happened to me. So just some risks to think about through that. Here's what everyone wants. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Question here from me. So on Randy's portion, Alexa asked a good question about how would you position or how would you do this kind of model with something that's related to like a non-marketing skill? So his example was art. So doing art, I suggested you could frame it as teaching, but do you have another way that you would frame that? How do you build a service business with a skill or interest that people think they may not be able to build one with?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me with art is thinking through my dad. My dad is a painter, and so when he wanted to paint, he joined a painting class, right? And so he learned how to paint through a painting class. I think about people like Bob Ross who are on TV teaching. I think every skill has a relatable thing to learn. I don't know this person's business, so I don't know if it is a skill that they can teach or if that is in some way, shape, or form related to the outcome of their business. But I think about every single thing that I do or have done that is related to my career. Somebody has wanted to learn to replicate the outcome. And in order to replicate the outcome, the thing that you have to understand are the inputs that go into getting to that outcome. And so I would frame it through that lens. What's the outcome that people who follow you want to reach? And what are the inputs? And oftentimes the inputs that they don't understand, that they need to understand. That to me is where I see coaching, consulting, teaching, workshops, one-to-one, one-to-many. There are so many different ways you can sort of frame that up. I'm not sure if that made sense, but that's how I would think about it.
It does.
Cool. Digital products is one everyone wants to do. I think they get the idea that you launch a product and then you go to sleep and then you wake up and Stripe notifications are on your phone, which can happen if you do a lot of really hard work and you upfront the effort and you do this for a very long time. You can make it work. They can be very scale friendly. They can be beginner friendly. But if you don't have a huge following, you better have a highly targeted following. You better have a following of folks who want to solve a really expensive problem and are willing to pay top dollar for solving that problem. The worst thing that I see is when someone has a small, broad audience, they want to teach one of many things they talk about. They don't have the volume and they don't have the price point. So they end up selling 3 $25 courses a month and they have a $75 a month business, right? So that is really, really challenging, especially because there's a huge upfront build effort. It's a really competitive market. But if you can grow your audience and you can be really niche, as I'll kind of walk through later, the margin profile is obviously extremely high. We've got memberships and paid subscriptions. I think these work brilliantly, even with a small following, as long as trust is really strong. I think people think they have to have 1 million followers in order to have a membership, and it's just not true. Jay Klaus, for example, I think has maybe 50,000 followers and runs almost $1 million membership, maybe more than $1 million. The metrics and unit economics here are pretty strong. So if you imagine that you have a small loyal following, if you can find 300 people who are going to pay $40 a month, it's $144,000 a year. It's a pretty meaningful business to get started, right? The key here is intimacy and consistency and value delivery, not scale. So you're focusing on being intimate and consistent and delivering tons of value, not like growing the community or the membership as high as you can go. This becomes almost again like an incubator for other revenue streams, just like services do.
One other question here that may be answered later relating to services is if I select service as my way to go, how do I ensure that I have a funnel of customers ready to buy my service?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways I think about. So I think about scalable and unscalable channels, the combination of those two things. I'll give you an example from my own life. One of the ways that I built a channel of folks who were going to hire me to be a consultant was, now of course I had experience in building healthcare companies, right? So it's helpful to have expertise and to do a good job at your job, right? Those are just like prerequisites for sort of building this, is to have some level of experience and some name brand recognition. I started by writing online every single day. So every single day I wrote online, here was a lesson I learned building my last healthcare business past $1 billion. Lessons, mistakes, breakdowns, step-by-steps, observations, cheat sheets, everything, right? I was growing discovery. That's what I wanted. And at the end of my discovery, what I wanted people to do was to go deeper into my expertise. So I put together some really simple lead magnets back in 2019, which was like, if you're a CEO who has never hired a VP of sales before, here's your 22-step checklist for having a perfect VP of sales interview. Not sure how to go to market? Here are the 5 things you need to understand about how to go to market for your SaaS company. All these different cheat sheets and ebooks and things that people would download. On the back end of those were email automations that led people to seeing more of my expertise, more of the value that I could add. And then it culminated in asking them to book a call on my calendar. During that call on my calendar, I would ask discovery questions, and that was an opportunity to sell myself. That was one sort of scalable thing where I could create content and let it live. Some of the unscalable stuff that I did was actual like old school networking. So I found all of the different venture capital firms in my area who invested in healthcare companies. And I went to them and said, when you make an investment, it's in your best interest for that investment to 10x, 100x, 1000x, or 1,000,000x. That's going to happen with someone who's a proven operator. I'm a proven operator. When you guys make an investment in a healthcare company that looks exactly like this, they have A, they have B, C, D, E, F, and G, I'm your guy. And so they started sending me leads because I built a reputation. That is what I would call a non-scalable channel where you're like actually doing outreach. And I did both of those things every day. Those might not be the right things for you, but think through that lens again. What's scalable through content and through media, and what's unscalable through sort of like one-to-one, hand-to-hand combat.
Really good.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Software tools are for people that know how to build those. That's not me, right? So I don't know how to do that, and so therefore I haven't built a software. But like even a small niche tool, like a Notion template with some automation, a small AI script, like you can sell those steadily. And if you solve a really expensive, deep problem for a small audience, you don't need a tremendous amount of reach because you do get high recurring revenue at scale. The thing that you have to understand is churn, ongoing maintenance, the cost of building something. And of course, all of that is going down with AI and coding tools and things like that. But if you've never built a software, Dan could probably tell you this, it's hard, churn sucks, it requires a ton of maintenance, and so it's very difficult. So just be aware of that. And then last but not least, like events and workshops. I think this is a really great thing for small audiences as well. You don't need 10,000 followers to fill a room full of 20 people, right? And there's a lot of challenges that people will pay to overcome, and they'll pay $1,000 for those. So if you can put 20 bucks in seats at $1,000, even once every 2 months, you've got a $120,000 business. You can charge more per head with smaller groups, you can deliver more value, and you're doing that stuff with services where you're hearing challenges, you're solving them repeatedly, you're learning a ton about your customers. Events and workshops can be really interesting. So that's just kind of like a primer on the different ways I think about opportunities for you all. But I think the next section, which is offer stack logistics, will be really interesting thinking through what's like the logistical pathways that you actually go through to make these things happen. And I'll start by saying something I said a little bit earlier, which is a huge misconception is that anyone can monetize a big audience. I can tell you from coaching a bunch of people with multi-100,000 followings that it's not true. It's totally not true. And I have 2 specific clients that I worked with, this was many years ago, who had 300,000 social media followers and they couldn't make $5 grand a month. And the reason they couldn't, and by the way, I've worked with tons of small creators making 50 grand a month, and it's all about choosing the wrong business models. And so I like to walk through this thing I call a size and niche axis, which gives you sort of it's the closest thing I can think of to a treasure map when it comes to thinking about monetizing your brand. So I made this is part of my Creator MBA course. I made this about a year ago. So some of these folks have become more broad or more niche or bigger over time, but generally the takeaways will be the same. So this is an axis, and on one side we have small audience, on the other side we have large, on the top we have broad, on the bottom we have niche, right? And so I like to just plot people that I know on this axis and then figure out based on where they are, what kind of model they can use to monetize. So this is Erwin Lear. He's got a really small, broad audience on Twitter, maybe 5,000 folks. He talks about snowboarding, camera work, audience growth. It's like very broad, very small. And he might be able to get away with something like an inexpensive course. He might be able to choose one of those things that he talks about, especially if he really doubles down on the message, and charge $25 or $50. But small and broad, in my opinion, is the killer. It is the most difficult way to make money is to both be small and to be broad. But this is one option that Erwin has. Whereas my buddy Jake Ward, who has a small but much more niche audience, he talks about programmatic SEO. He can do things like services. He can run workshops. It doesn't matter that at the time his audience wasn't much bigger than Erwin's because he's so niche and such an expert in his specific area of competence. He can charge a lot. So I'll give you an example here. Erwin can probably make $25 selling a course. I paid Jake $45,000 for an SEO project. So there's a huge gap between being broad and being niche. And he did a tremendous job. And so I referred him to a bunch of other people, right? He's since gone on to become CEO of a software business. But like even with a small audience, he was able to make big bucks by being really good at one thing. My friend Eric Partaker, I have him small here. He's much bigger now, but at this time he was pretty small, but really niche CEO coach. And he can do one-on-one, which he did, or cohort-based coaching. He's since grown his audience and blown out his cohorts, and he's making millions and millions of dollars, coaching CEOs because he was CEO coach of the year, worked at McKinsey, so on and so forth. You can see that the more niche or the more large you are, obviously, the more options that you have. Take my buddy Ben Muir. He's really big, but he's also very broad. He talks mostly about systems, and systems are like habits, right? Everybody has all kinds of systems. You can talk about, anybody can talk about systems. So Ben is in a slightly different position. He tried to sell a course. I don't know how well it went because again, he's not very niche. He can't really coach because he doesn't have a specific customer avatar. He doesn't have a services business because systems for what? For a flower shop, a taco shop, a marketing person? Like it's just broad systems. So Ben can do things like grow a really broad audience and then do sponsorships, right? And he can also write a book. And that's exactly what he's doing. Because of his large audience, because it's broad, he was able to land a multi-million-dollar advance on a book that he's working on right now. So you can see how different that is than someone like Jake Ward, who is small and niche. Got a friend Sahil. Again, he's large and broad, millions of followers, very broad, wealth, health, productivity, kind of, a lot of those self-improvement tools. And as you probably know, he's a New York Times bestselling author now. He has, Athletic Greens as a sponsor. Like those are the ways that Sahil makes money. Up until his book and his sponsorships, Sahil ran a holding company. And so you might say, how does someone make money as they're growing this large audience over many years if they're broad? And Sahil's a good business person. So he never asked his audience for money. Instead, he built a holding company. He had to figure out how to make money on his way to being large and broad, which is why large and broad becomes challenging over time, which I'll show you here in a moment. There's me. I have a large and relatively niche audience. Part of them want to grow on LinkedIn. Other parts want to be solopreneurs. I have a lot of options as a large niche audience. Courses, coaching, subscriptions, sponsors. This quadrant, unless you're a New York Times bestselling author, right, which is hard to do, this quadrant I think is where you can become really, really wealthy, right? This is the quadrant that you want to be in, is large and niche. There's my friend Dan Doe, right? Courses, coaching, and sponsors. And then of course the man of the hour, Dan, who at the time was doing courses and sponsors. He now has software. He's got a membership, so on and so forth. But this quadrant is an excellent place to play, right? But getting here, there's two different ways to get to these places, right? So I think about these journeys. If you start small on the left and you want to go large and broad, there's a huge gap where it's really hard to make money, because small and broad and medium and broad, you can make some money. It's just harder. You sort of have to hold out all the way to large and broad to do books, to get sponsors, to build a holding company. I chose the southernmost route, which is you start with an expensive course, you move into coaching, to workshops, high ticket services. The more niche you become, as you grow, you launch a flagship course, you tack on a subscription revenue, and eventually you've got monster sponsors. And so the reason that I often educate folks to take the southern route is because there's a revenue stop along the way. All the time, you can be tacking and building and adding on revenue. So in order to show you this, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to show you a fictional creator that I named Jack Rainey. That's based on a very specific person that I know. So it's real, and I've actually seen this person do this thing, right? And then I'll walk you through my journey of how I went along that sort of southern route that I just covered. So Jack, this fictional creator, helps families find an easy way to book luxury travel deals for vacation so they can spend quality time with their kids, right? He's one of those travel guys. He's one of those folks that finds all those great deals so families can lock in the deals, they can go on vacation, luxury vacations, and really enjoy time with their kids, right? So let's imagine that Jack has 10,000 niche followers. What he can do, because he is, remember, if you go back here, right? He's kind of like a Jake Ward, right? He can launch a $400 travel workshop. He's got enough niche followers. He is, again, niche enough. And his goal might be to get 10 customers into his workshop each month. If Jack can do that, he has a $48,000 business, right? Not too shabby, probably not the goal of what most of you who are on this call are aiming for, but this is just step one, right? 10,000 niche followers. As he moves along that southern route, so he's staying niche, he's getting a little bit bigger, he can start to subsidize his income with a course. He could do a 60-minute course that maybe solves one really specific thing at the beginning of the journey for his audience that opens up a bigger problem that his workshop solves, right? So he can almost use this course as a pay-to-play lead magnet. Maybe it's $150 and he tacks on a $19 ebook upsell. If he can sell 5 courses a week, one a day, and have a 20% ebook attach rate, he adds an extra 40 grand to his business. So Jack goes from 48 grand to 40 grand. He's at an 88 grand business around 30,000 followers. These numbers in this person are real, right? So this isn't just like I pulled something on my ass, just to be clear. This is a real journey that someone went on. With 80,000 niche followers, he can launch a newsletter, right? And he might have a goal of growing that newsletter to 20,000 subscribers. If he can sell one sponsorship for $1,000, which is probably what he could sell a sponsorship for at around 20,000, especially if it's really niche and other travel companies want to sponsor it, he could make $1,000 a week. So he'd be able to add 52 grand to his business. So he's just stacking these offers one on top of another. And this becomes a lot easier because his audience is very niche. And at 100,000 followers, he can create a $29 a month subscription, behind the scenes email or video that shows people how he finds a new vacation every month, right? So maybe folks want to do this more often without having to pay Jack. So they want to see how he does it behind the scenes. If he can take 1% of his 20,000 email subscribers, which is 200 subscribers, at 29 bucks a month, he can add 70 grand to his yearly business. So by stacking these offers across 10,000 to 100,000 followers, he's able to put together 48 grand from his travel workshop, 40 grand from his digital course, 52,000 from sponsors, and 70 grand for subscriptions. Is it a lot of work? Sure, right? But it's a $210,000 revenue business. Now, if you're like me and you want to be a solopreneur or you want to work with your spouse or partner, this might be a viable, legitimate, hardworking business. But Jack also has other options for growing his business at this point in time, right? And I like math, so if I math a lot here and it doesn't follow, just feel free to raise your hand and say I don't understand. But if you recall, he has a newsletter here, which he's making $52,000 in sponsors, right? So he has a subscription email, that makes 70 grand a year. If Jack doesn't want to do that, he could hire a freelance writer. and he could build an SOP, standard operating procedure and a process, and teach this person how to write the subscription emails for him. And you can probably find someone who writes one email or one newsletter or one subscription email for $1,000. Maybe it's 1,500, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But in this example, he's paying someone $1,000 for 12 issues. But that product, that behind the scenes newsletter, makes 70 grand. So he can either keep 100% of his margins, $70,000, or he can keep, in this example, 58,000, and he can take writing it completely off his plate, right? And obviously, if he's able to outsource that writing through a standard operating procedure, that frees up a tremendous amount of time. So let's say it takes, Jack, 2 hours a month to write the issue. He now has 2 hours a month that he can reinvest into marketing and creating content for his very first business we talked about, which were the travel workshops. And if you recall, in the first example, he was able to get 10 people a month for a 48 grand business. But if he's got an extra 2 hours, maybe he can attract an extra 6 workshop attendees each month. So instead of being a 48 grand business, that workshop business, he's adding another 28.8 to his top line. That 28.8 pays for the subscription writer, right? He's paying the subscription writer 12 grand. So now he takes that money, he pays him 12 grand, and he keeps 16.8. So now he's doing less work and making more money, right? This is an easy way to sort of think about that. His revenue remains constant, it really goes up, and his work effort goes down, which to me is like the best learning. How do you make more money and work less, right? That is kind of the idea of, for me at least, solopreneurship. And this kind of dovetails into how I grew my business, and it's a pretty long journey, but I think you'll see inside of these next few slides, the thought process. It's not about step by step. It's about pausing and thinking through the journey that you're going on. So my journey started back in late 2018. I was burning out at my job, and I decided to go online and start writing about healthcare companies. Right? Nothing that I read about today. Maybe a lot of you on this call who know me or my brand didn't even know that I used to write about healthcare. So this was late 2018. So I was just putting out signal into the world, and I was saying, here's everything that I did in healthcare technology. Here's how I built a company, so on and so forth. Right? Once I had put out a bunch of content, I started mining for data, right? So what was resonating with potential customers that I'd signed, so on and so forth. Like what was getting a lot of engagement, a lot of comments, DMs, questions. I just did data mining. So my whole hypothesis around building businesses is put out signal, right? Or put out basically noise and look for signal, right? And if you can mine that data, you can find really interesting stuff. So by finding what resonated online, I just started to double down on the stuff that was working. Once I did that, I started to create a pretty massive pipeline. So as I alluded to before, I had my VC sort of pipeline, which was one-on-ones with VC firms, trying to get them to refer me business. But most of my business was coming through my content, especially once I realized what was working and doubled down on it. So I built a service business, started closing deals, and I had what you might call a traditional consulting business. If you reverse back to 2019, I had no idea how to charge for my business. So I was charging $250 an hour, which was basically what I was making it work. So I was just building myself a prison, right? I just didn't know it yet. And this is how a lot of people start when they start consulting or services businesses. They're unsure how to charge, and so they build themselves another 40-hour-a-week job. And so that's exactly what I did very early on. There's good lessons there, right? But over time, what I started to do, and I mentioned this, I alluded to this when talking about services, is I found my ideal customer. Because I had one-on-one interaction with all these CEOs, I started to realize that there was customers I liked working with that were very specific. They had a specific contract value for their customers, they had a specific sales cycle, they were a specific size, they had a specific amount of funding, and I really enjoyed working with this very particular type of customer. It turns out those customers also liked working with me, right? So there's a very good intersection of what I liked and what my customers liked. And when I found those customers, I started asking them questions. Where are you getting the most value from our relationship? What am I doing that's like you could give a shit about? That's like, yeah, great, but throw it away. Like, I'll stop doing that stuff and I'll start doubling down on the stuff that you like more. And by doing that analysis again, I was able to roll out new pricing. So I doubled my rates basically overnight and maintained a 90% of my book of business on customers that I liked. And I stopped working with all of the other customers that fell outside of that. So I had doubled my rates, gotten rid of the customers I didn't like working with, and maintained the customers I did. This was a very pivotal moment in my service business journey. And a pivotal moment if you do services. You have two choices. You can take your double rates and you can work the exact same amount and make twice as much money, right? It's not a bad idea, but again, you're going to spread yourself thin. I chose to do the second option, which is I worked 50% of the time and I made the same. So making the same amount of money that I had previously, but just working less, right? So I doubled my rates. I even brought down some of the services that I offered. So it was less work, exact same amount of money. I took that extra time and I started using it to read through all my emails from social media, all my DMs, all the people who had reached out to me, and started mining for that next set of analysis, right? What I found was the turning point in my entire life. So if I were talking to you now, if I hadn't done this, I'd be talking about healthcare technology, right? I can't imagine that. But what I found on LinkedIn and in my email where people were like, yeah, great, healthcare tech, cool. I noticed you went from 2,000 to 20,000 followers. How did you do that? How do you write on LinkedIn? How do you figure out what topics to talk about? When do you publish? What time? What day? How long? What software? Just all these questions about LinkedIn growth. And very candidly, between you and I never intended to be a LinkedIn growth person. That wasn't the goal I had for my life, right? But I couldn't ignore this signal inside of all my DMs. So I tested a small $50 product that took me 1 week to make. I made it, I threw it out there, this was experimentation. And it made 75 grand in 15 months. I was a former chief revenue officer. I made a lot more money than 75 grand in 15 months, so this wasn't a new sustainable lifestyle business for me, but this was really good signal that I was onto something, right? So I asked my customers what they thought about it. I reached out to probably 100 of the 1,500 customers who bought it and asked them what they liked and didn't like. I used that feedback, remade the course, tripled the price, and launched again, right? This was my move from low margin, low money to high margin, high revenue. I think I made 186,000 in the first 3 months, which is 3 times more, or nearly 3 times more, twice as fast, right? Inside of that, I started to build an army of affiliate salespeople. So this is improving, it's decreasing margins a little bit for the sake of improving scale, right? So I had to give away a little bit for people to sell it, but I was able to scale way beyond my own reach. I tacked on a membership, so now I'm starting to offer stack. I added Twitter as a platform and created a second course, so I'm looking for more signal. I'm stacking more offers. I added a subscription upsell, started a newsletter, added sponsorships, which is another stack, and eventually launched the Creator MBA, my last course, which was my biggest launch. If you look at these steps, you'll notice something really interesting. It takes me 10 steps to make my first money as a creator, but across the next 9 steps, I 10x my income. And so the lesson here is that the more you do data analysis, the more you look for signal, the more you get niche, the more you talk to your customers, the larger you grow using that data and feedback, the faster that you can release new stuff, right? And you can release stuff at different price points, monthly, annual, one-time, big upfront. There's so many different options. You can go from audience monetization to brand monetization, because pretty soon people want to chunk at your audience, you got sponsorships. The snowball starts rolling down the hill very, very quickly. And that's why I like that Southern route, right? So the big question is, how can you start, right? So what's the takeaway on how you guys can get started? So first, audience size and trust are really different. You can have 500 people who literally hang on to your every word, and that's high trust, right? And you can monetize a lot of those folks immediately. There's all kinds of choices when everyone hangs on to your word. Or you can have like 50,000 passive TikTok followers, right? And there's a large number in low trust where maybe sponsorships will work, but it's actually harder to make money. So I created this really simple grid to kind of help you see what's realistic now. And remember, just because it's in this grid doesn't make it right. This is just a way to think about it, which is like, if you have a small, high trust audience, you can do a lot of things. You can try a lot of things. You might try a service or a membership or a digital product or a workshop. But if you're small and low trust, you don't have a lot of options. You could potentially try affiliates or micro sponsorships, but really this is like the dead zone, right? The small, low trust audience. If you're large and high trust, you've got high ticket partnerships, premium products, expensive cohorts, or you could be large and low trust, where I think you can do more ads, some scaled sponsorships, or maybe lean into licensing. But the first kind of question you want to ask yourself is, where do you fall, right? Are you small, high trust, low trust, or are you large, high trust, low trust, right? Once you've done step one, you want to do step two, which is kind of shortlisting your viable models. And you're going to start to get a sense of what models are realistic for you right now. This is really kind of about cutting down all the noise. So figuring out which models definitely aren't right for you, right? So if you're small and high trust, maybe you circle services or memberships or workshops or whatever it might be. If you're large and low trust, you put a check next to ads or sponsorships or licensing, and then eliminate all of the things that don't fit your audience stage. So if you have 1,000 followers, for example, it's a waste of time to go chase big sponsorships, in my opinion, unless you're super, super niche, right? There's always outliers. If you have 100,000 passive followers, launching a really high touch coaching program probably isn't realistic. Again, it might be, but probably not. Your goal is to whittle down to 2 to 3 options. It's not to find the perfect model. It's just to narrow the universe of possibilities down to a handful so that you're not so sporadic and scatterbrained. You're just like, I think these 2 to 3 might work, because shortlisting really forces discipline, right? You go from like, I could do anything in the world out there to I should probably focus on these 1, 2, or 3 things. And that clarity is what makes this next step, which is kind of filtering and scoring, much more powerful, right? And that's step 3. Which is running through what I call the fit, margin, energy, leverage filter, okay? It's where you take these 2 or 3 possibilities that you've thought through and you cross-check them against your internal reality, right? So start with fit. Like, does this fit and play to your strengths? If you're a teacher, services and workshops might fit, right? If you love curating information, affiliates or memberships will probably be better. If you're a builder or a technical person, tools or software is probably gonna be more in your lane, right? The next thing you want to move to, just score these from like 1 to 5, right? A very easy scoring sheet. The next thing is margin, which is like, if this works, will it meaningfully change my income, right? You don't want a model that you're working 40 hours a week on that brings in $200 a month and drains you, right? That's the worst situation to be in. So think through margins. Next is energy. Do you actually like doing the work? Does this fuel you? Does this drain you? Like, if the model looks good on paper, but it kills your energy, it's not going to be sustainable. So think through what you actually like doing. And then last is leverage. So think kind of long-term scalability. It doesn't immediately have to be scalable long-term, but over time, can you envision a world in which this model grows without requiring more and more and more and more work over time, right? So think through the sort of 2 to 3 things you set aside and score them. Fit, margin, energy, leverage. 1 to 5 is fine. The best model for you is not necessarily the one with the highest theoretical revenue, right? It's the one that scores consistently high across all 4 of these. In my opinion, that is generally the model worth testing first. So step 4 is like a reality check. So even if a model scores well, let's say something scores 20 out of 20, it has to pass a reality check. And this is about kind of grounding your choice in logistics and execution, right? So this is where 3 questions really come into play. Number 1, do I have the systems to deliver this consistently? So for example, like if you want to do a weekly paid newsletter, you better have a system for that. Worst thing to do is launch a weekly paid newsletter, get 100 subs and find out you can't deliver, right? So do you have the systems for that? If you're going to do a live workshop every month, do you know how to put on a live workshop? You should build an SOP and build systems for that. Do I have a distribution channel? Like if you don't have a way, if you chose the wrong audience, right? If you don't have an email list or a podcast or at least one strong social channel with high trust, even the best product is really tough to sell. And then can I launch a test version of this in 90 days? Please don't spend 6 months building a damn online course without testing it. Please. I have so many people I know that come to me and say, I've been working on this for a year and they launch and make $0. I cannot imagine that feeling. So test things, right? Sell something before it's built. Move fast. Give yourself 90 days. Most creators here stumble because they pick a model that's too big, too complex, too slow to validate. I love the reality check because it keeps you honest and it kind of keeps you from overcommitting, right? And then this might be last. Step 5 is commit to one model, right? So this is all about just focus and discipline. So you've gone through the previous 4 steps and now you really want to commit to one, right? Give it 90 days of serious effort. Test the offer, run experiments, collect data, and learn. This is your opportunity to learn. Please don't hedge. Like if you chose a membership, don't launch a membership, sell a course, try and land sponsorships. It's going to split your energy and it's going to guarantee that you're mediocre at all those things. And don't abandon it. Like iterate over time. If it doesn't work, you're not a failure. Tweak, you reposition, you move to the next best model on your short list, you figure out how to iterate. The people who win are not those who chase every opportunity, right? They commit, they test, they build momentum. The momentum compounds over time, and eventually you will get traction, right? So that is how I think about creator monetization paths. If there's any questions, happy to chill out, hang around, and answer as many as relevant, Dan.
Cool. Yeah, we do have a few. First, thank you for that. That was really good. One thing about the reality check is, and testing specifically. So when Randy was on, the main thing we were focused on is how, like, it was called the laziest way to make money. And in short, it's like the easiest offer to sell is access to you. That's the first thing, right?
Totally.
In my opinion, that's at least for me, I'm speaking from my own experience. I don't know if I'm speaking for anyone else, but I always felt there was just so much more that had to go into it. Like in order to make a certain amount of money, there had to be a certain level of complexity that came along with that. And since I didn't know what that complexity was, it just stopped me from starting for so long. And so if you're just selling access to yourself and you have some transformation that you can help someone achieve, that's the easiest way to test. Well, the easiest way to test is, I would say, social media. You can test the idea and then start offering help. If the idea does well, that can transition into, hey, I help with this. People reach out, you talk to them, you potentially help them for free or paid, so on and so forth. But then from there, it can just evolve into whatever other monetization path there is, just from one singular idea.
Yeah, there are phases. Like phase 1 is like, I help with this very specific thing. I have 3 free slots. Book them if you have this very specific problem. They book the slots, you help them solve the problem, you now have a process. You go back out, you charge money. Every time you go through 3 people, you improve the process, you collect testimonials, you add them to your website, it becomes easier and easier to book more, right? It's an iterative process, not everything has to be right the very first time I launch process.
Yes. There's 2 questions here. So
Sure.
they align. What if I'm invisible? I just made my Substack and Twitter yesterday, haha. But yeah, building an audience is a priority for me now. Any tips? And this seems daunting and overwhelming. how would you suggest starting small to grow an audience, right? So for those who, tomorrow we're dedicated to a lot of that. We're going to talk about, I have like 10 frameworks for content pieces that I think are the first things that you should focus on posting that will help with that initial growth and potentially lead to clients of some sort. But in like a brief answer, Justin, what do you think is the easiest way to start?
I think the first thing that I did was I created my founder story. And my founder story was like, here was a challenge that I had. Here's how the challenge became existential, like really painful, right? Here's the journey I went on to solve the challenge. Here's the story of what happened. Here's the transformation, right? And here's the ending, right? It's just kind of my story. And my story was all about, at the time, working for Patient Pop and transforming it from its very first dollar in revenue to a $75 million revenue business, right? So I had this story that I told. And by having the story, and I told that on social media, I started to attract people who wanted to go on a similar journey. Once I laid that foundation, and by the way, you don't have to copy this. This is just how I thought about it, right? Once I laid that foundation, I just made a commitment to start. I started 5 days a week, and I just thought, I like working with early stage healthcare companies that are B2B and target doctors. So every single day, I just shared a simple tip. Hey, if you have a sales team that's making outbound phone calls to doctor offices, here's probably 3 challenges you're running into, right? Here's how we solve those at Patient Pop during our $1 to $75 million growth story, right? A, B, and C, right? If that's interesting to you or have any questions, drop me a comment, drop me a DM, ask away, here to help, right? I did that probably for 6 to 8 months, and all I was doing was building a network of followers that cared about the thing that I knew how to solve. I designed a little customer avatar and said, like, Michael, he's 31, he's the CEO of an early stage healthcare company. These are his top 5 concerns, and I just mapped my content to those concerns, and every single day I just wrote something. There's no magic bullet. There's no like, do these 3 things and tomorrow you have 100,000 followers. It's like, I'm still building my audience 6 years later, but that's a really great way to get started. Once you do this for 30, 60, 90, the number's arbitrary, right? Download your content, throw it in ChatGPT. I didn't have this back in the day, and just say, like, what are the themes that resonate, right? What's driving engagement? What's driving reshares? You could even drag your website analytics if you have one in there and say, like, where do posts and website visitors overlap? Like, what's your hypothesis on which post drove the most website visitors, right? There's a million different things you can do. Get that analysis and then say, cool, I'm now going to double down on the 3 themes that work the most. Think about it like a bell curve. 10% of your posts are going to suck. 10 are going to be pretty decent. And there's just going to be this bell in the middle. That's 80% average, right? Your goal is to shift that bell slightly left so that you go from 10% are good to 11% are good to 12 to 15 to 18. You're just shifting that bell. And you can do that through data analysis. Do that for a long time and you'll eventually grow an audience. And the last thing I would recommend is learn how to be good at your medium of choice. If you choose to be a writer, go study writing. If you choose to do video content, go study the best video creators. If you're doing a podcast, go study the best podcast. Don't just write forever and say, this doesn't work. You have to get better at it over time.
Yeah. So there's a few more. If you ever, I'm probably here till 12:30 and then I have a call. If you ever have to drop, just let me know. But there's question here. So about, this is referring back to a question earlier in the actual presentation. Let's say I go with what you're suggesting. I put my transformation on Instagram and post, but considering it's a new profile, I'm guessing it won't reach a lot of people. Will tomorrow's session be specific on how to use IG algorithms to grow my reach, or is it something I can read about somewhere else? Should I do ads when I start growing organically? Sorry, so many basic questions. Well, they're not basic. I feel I'll put my 2 cents in here is like, that's the biggest worry, is just growth for anyone. When you first start, you're just posting into a void. But either once we're done with this, go back through the initial slides where I talked about just talking to more people, right? If you can employ all the algorithm hacks you want, and some of them may work, but it is kind of like a casino. It's like a slot machine. Like, the thing that you think is going to go viral, it could, but it's probably not going to if you're a beginner, unless you are a super mastermind and can just make it go viral. I don't like banking on the algorithm, or at least I didn't when I started. Now I kind of have a base, but meeting people, like I gave an example of when Dickie Bush reached out to me. He just sent me, he listened to a podcast I was on. He said he found it interesting. He related with a certain point. I said, that's awesome. Nice to meet you finally, man. I've been seeing you around. And then he sent me a thread that he wrote and was like, I wrote this up the other day. I feel like you'd relate with it. That's all he said. He didn't even ask for a share. So if you have this network of people and then you write something that you put a lot of effort into, or you create that transformation post on Instagram and you send it to those people, then they're likely to at least engage, at least support in some way. Some may share it. And if they do, then it has a lot more potential to, I mean, virality isn't necessarily the goal, but it has a lot more potential to get more reach for that specific thing. So at the beginning, either with sales or content, it's a lot of manual work in just getting that network of people or friends that can support you. Justin and I have been in chats before and just talk to each other, share strategies, and now we're here helping each other again.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is, like, in the beginning, think about creating content as like forming a band, right? It's forming a music band. In the beginning, you're like playing a bunch of shows, you're trying a bunch of songs, you're trying to find a hit, right? You're like trying to find one hit. And once you find one hit, you're like, okay, cool, let's try and reverse engineer why that was a hit, right? And you might do it 10 more times and only get 1 more hit, but now you have 2 hits, right? And you start thinking, okay, well, if every time we try and reverse engineer a hit, we get 1 out of 10. Well, now we keep writing 10 songs, right? And it's like, okay, over time, you might have 10 hits to a point where you're a pretty good band with a lot of hits, right? And then when you do concerts and you go concert to concert, you say, hey, we're gonna play a new song, and everyone says boo. You're gonna say, hey, we're gonna play the hits, and everyone says, great, that's what we're here for. So I'm using this analogy because over time, you're going to create a catalog or a portfolio of hits, right, in your content. I repurpose the shit out of my content. Like I write the same stuff on LinkedIn and Twitter once every 90 days, sometimes less, right? Twitter, it's short and impactful, so you have to wait longer. LinkedIn, it's long, and so like people forget, they're consuming so much stuff. And so I have just built a portfolio of hits. So over time, like when you have a winner, save that. Like this is gonna go into your repurposing cycle. And the longer and longer you go, pretty soon you're like, great, I have 100 hits. I'm just gonna play these every month. And that's when you're like starting to really crack the code. But in the beginning, you have to write a bunch of shit first, right?
Yep, that's. I don't repurpose as much, honestly, because I forget to. But whenever like I don't have an idea and I need to post something, I'm usually already thinking about my hits, because like those are the important things to me, right? It's a great thing when like your hits overlap with what you actually like writing about, because then you're just gonna write about more, and it's awesome. So another question here. I'm an expert in branding after a successful 25-year design and advertising career. From the program so far, this event, I'm thinking about something like a program on branding for small business owners navigating midlife transformations. I mostly write about midlife. His name's Midlife Mystic. Any thoughts on this?
I will tell you what I tell everyone when they approach me with a niche that I don't know anything about, which is like, I could be like, that sounds great, but I have no idea, to be quite frank. Like, I'm probably the last person. I am midlife, but I don't think, from my perspective, I wouldn't be like, I'm looking for someone who does brands for people with my age demographic, right? I would be like more interested in someone who does it for people who sell certain things or people who are on a certain audience journey. Like, I work with creators who have more than 1 million followers, something like that. So for me, it might not resonate, but the ultimate people to ask is your audience, right? Ask the people who you talk to every day and say, like, throw 3 things in front of them and say, which of these resonate mostly with you? Which of these would you be most likely to click on, right? Your audience will give you better answers than I could give you, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I'll throw something in there too. I think the concept is good, right? It's solid. It can definitely work. But as Justin said, like he's midlife, but he may not resonate with that specifically. I think something you could go after is rather than categorizing them as midlife, just talk about the pain point that they're experiencing, right? You don't need to label as a certain age group or identity, but rather just pain point. With Randy as an example, he was targeting first responders, but he could have just as well talked about the problems that first responders were having, and just by how Randy speaks, first responders and other people with that problem would have came to play, right? So pain point first in this context, I think could help, because then you're validating the pain point rather than you're validating the solution for the pain point rather than the solution for the market, if that makes sense.
That's good advice.
Nice. Okay, so next one. Yesterday we talked about topic-based niche versus mission-based niche. How do you create and deliver a compelling offer for a mission-based niche when you're talking about a variety of pain points? Is it important to stay focused on one pain point without a mission-based niche for a longer period of time on social media before moving on to the next major pain point? I'll frame this. Let's just say, is it good to focus all content on one pain point or multiple pain points? Personally, I think it can be an umbrella, right? The transformation, the mission that you're taking people on or helping people through, there's a big problem at the start, and that's just the starting point. But then you look under that umbrella, and there's various different pain points, right? And all of those can be turned into content that lead toward the same desired outcome. So as an example, if I teach writing and I can barely think of a big problem. I like to think in a lot of pain points at once, where all of the pain points related to that are I don't have a skill that I enjoy using. I don't have a way to clear my mind. I don't have a way to generate clients without showing my face on the internet. I don't have this. I don't have this. All of the pain points are kind of just the foundation, and you test them to see what resonates most with people to get them to desire the outcome.
I think about pain paths. So lots of pain is relevant to one another. So like, let's take a bunch of different solopreneurs, right? Depending on where they're starting, they probably each have a primary pain point. So for example, beginners, the common pain point is I don't know how to grow an audience. Okay, well, if you can solve that pain point, there become other pain points on that journey. Someone who's in the middle, who has an 80,000 person audience but can't monetize, has a totally different starting pain point, right? So once you solve that pain point, then you're further down the journey, solving more. Here's a person who's like, I'm in $1 million, but I'm exhausted, right? Their pain point is different in the beginning, then more and more open up. I think about it like going to get your oil changed. I don't know if anybody does it anymore, but I do. So I go to get my oil changed, and the guy's always like, that's my pain point. I need my oil changed. And the guy comes down and is like, yeah, we just changed the oil. And by the way, have you looked at your air filters? No, oh man, look at your air filter, really dirty. Oh fuck, change that, right? And I don't know if you noticed, but like the tread on your tires is looking really, really thin. You probably ought to come in and get 4 new tires sometime in the next 6 months, especially with the winter coming up. And it's like, damn it, solve the first pain point and then went in and started unlocking other pain points. And so as you think about creating content for your audience, think about solving the primary pain point for a specific group of people. And then as you give them something to solve that, think about once you unlock that thing, what are the next pain points on the journey? And whatever you use, email automation, further content, your next newsletter, that should be like either furthering the primary solution or introducing the next pain point, which then you have a solution for, right? Does that make sense? Way I use that?
It did to me.
Cool, awesome.
I hope it did for everyone else. Someone asked about discount for the Creator MBA. I saw you sent it to you sent it to him and only the panelists. So I'm dropping it for.
There you go.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
There you go.
Cool.
That's $300 off my Creator MBA course if people want.
Nice. Hell yeah, thank you for that. Next one. I'm a holistic health coach specialized in medical astrology. My mission is for all health professionals to use medical astrology. Many lives could be saved. How do I reach them? They mistake medical astrology with woo-woo stuff. Personally, I think that's the first stepping stone is reframing it. Because if they mistake it as that, that's like their main objection, and you being able to work around that to show them what it really is. Like that was my biggest problem when even I dove into like spirituality of any sort. I perceived it as too woo-woo, but then when I looked at it through a different lens, through different language, and that's kind of what I use now, is I take those principles and I talk about them in my own content, but I do it from a different lens so more people like me can relate with it.
Yep. I had Johnny Miller in my membership yesterday doing nervous system mastery, and he did a really good job. He sent me, do I still have it there? Yeah, great. He sent me a note afterwards, and he said to me, if there's any way I can make my presentation better and feel less woo-woo, what would it be? And I said, I have one thought, take it or toss it if you don't like it. He just goes in, he's like, nervous system mastery, like, you got to use this and the vagus nerve and all. And I'm just like, this is cool, but like, it's very out there, right? And so I was like, it's hard to connect the dots from bad thing happens to me to nervous system cause, and from good thing happens to me to nervous system solution. It would be really interesting for you to open with a slide that says this. Here are some things people feel. Here's how they describe them. And here's what's actually happening at your nervous system level. Next, here's how people try and solve the problem and why it doesn't work. Next, here's how you can work to improve your nervous system. And here are all the positive outcomes you'll see, right? So it's like, if it's too woo-woo, you can start by saying like, here's why people don't get started. It feels too woo-woo, right? Here's why it's actually not woo-woo. Here's what they try and solve. Here's why it doesn't work. Here's why this isn't woo-woo. Here's how it's grounded in reality. Here's how it works. Here's the outcomes you get. Like, it's just very linear. You're handling the objections in a linear fashion. And this is like, to me, this is like more selling and sales from my previous life that I kind of rely back on, but that's how I would think about it, if that's helpful.
Yeah. It's hard for me to articulate this. I've tried before in a video that's called like the value creation, something starts like that. But I tried to pull the principles. I tried to pull the principles for like sales, persuasion, content, all these other things, and storytelling. And it's like they all follow the same pattern, right? So if you can just employ those patterns in everything that you do, it becomes a lot more persuasive, right? It's pain point most of the time. That's how I start my newsletters, either as a personal experience or just something I've observed. What most people do wrong, how people think about it differently than I do. What's the common narrative? And then, okay, start to transition. What is it actually? How do I think about it? What's my opinion? What's my take? Next, lead into the solution. So it's just a story. And so if you can take that and apply it to your problem here, which is the pain point, then
yeah, last thing I'll say is I think it was Mark, but Mark, you can't sell anything if people believe it's too woo-woo. So your first job is to sell them that it's not woo-woo. Once you sell them that it's not woo-woo, then you can sell them the solution, right?
Yeah, that's good. One from Hussein. What are your thoughts on hybrid models? For example, having a consulting coaching service, but payments are structured as membership, let's say weekly payments.
I don't know. I've never tried it. Like,
Yeah.
to me, do people weekly payments for like a monthly membership?
Mm.
I don't know. I like to align payments with like I like to make things aligned. And so for me, like if I'm going to tell them a transformation they're going to get, so let's say I sell a 3-month coaching package, I would generally say after month 1 you should feel like this or have this outcome. After month 2 you should have this outcome. And after month 3 you should have this outcome. You know, and then I would align the charges to the expected outcome. That would be how I might think about that. Doesn't mean it's right. But that would be how I might think about it.
Yeah, I think pricing reflecting or pricing aligning with the offer is just the most important thing. So like whether it's a hybrid model or consulting or coaching, that's kind of the technical details when the offer itself is the transformation. It's the desired outcome in the problem you're solving. That's what you're focusing on. When you're selling it, at least you're not selling the weekly payments. That's just like a way to, that's the paywall for the thing, right? So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. It's like how your offer is structured could be a weekly, monthly thing, hybrid. You don't have to conform to the way that everyone does coaching. You could do no phone calls. You could do text only. You could do community based. It's just how you structure the offer and then what you think the best payment method is for that, I think.
Okay.
Let's see. Good one. Would you say there are ideal platforms for small/niche versus large/broad? My content is career-centric, but very specific to a niche neurodivergent tech careers. I'm trying to grow on LinkedIn, but at times I wonder if I'm playing the right field for the audience I want to build versus what I have right now. This makes offer design confusing.
I mean, I don't think so. Like that would be my guess. Wouldn't be. I think there are right platforms for specific audiences. I don't know that a platform skews to broad versus niche. I don't have a good answer there, Dan. Like I don't feel like they're platform specific.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be the right thing. I don't know if that's the problem or the thing to focus on here. I think the problem could be growth. So I'm trying to grow on LinkedIn, but there's some dissonance there as to whether or not you should. I'm assuming because growth isn't what you expected it to be. So it could be content or how you're framing things, or it could be the problem that we talked about where targeting midlife people versus the pain point. So rather than targeting neurodivergent tech careers specifically, unless you're very tied to that, I could see an offer being very tied to that. You could just start talking about the pain points and broaden it up a bit so that it has the potential for a bit more reach. I feel like sometimes in content specifically, people niche down too much to the point where there isn't the potential for it to even go anywhere. So if you broaden that up a bit and then lead them into something that's a bit more niche, right? Make your content a bit broader while it's still niche, it's still effective and impactful, and then link to something like a guide for neurodivergent tech careers or something of that nature and start testing from there. I'm a CBT therapist and have a private practice. So you need at least 1,000 to 5,000 plus to start monetizing your audience. Before that, you have only an option to sell your time as a one-to-one session. What is your point of view of selling cheap courses via advertising them on Facebook or Instagram?
I don't know. Like it depends on your situation, right? Like if there's no urgency to like create runway or make money for yourself, don't hack the path. Like my personal take, this is just my personal opinion, would be to work the process to where you can spend a lot of time having conversations with people one-on-one. Because the more you can have conversations with people one-on-one, the better that digital product is eventually going to be, right? Not only is it going to be better, but if you have let's say a practice of 1,000 patients, it's 1,000 people you can deliver that into right away. It's a new distribution channel. So that would be the way that I would approach it. But I don't know if you have a different opinion, Dan.
No, I agree with that. I think the other thing too is it may depend on how good you are at content. I was telling someone this today where they kind of assumed that since their audience size was like 4,000 followers, that they were bound to the engagement that comes from having 4,000 followers. When we live in like the interest-based algorithms today, and people with 500 followers can, if they create the good content, I say good, it could be really bad, but they create the content that has the potential to reach 100,000, 200,000 views, that's more than possible. You just have to be very well read on content and execute it very well. You can be at 500 followers, 1,000 followers, but if you're very good at understanding content and hitting that algorithm, then you can sell low ticket courses if you can convert straight from that. Because if you have a 100,000 view video, that's 100,000 people that, it's less than that, but 100,000 people that could potentially go view the course, less will buy it, but still you have a lot more traffic than the audience that you have, right? People with 5,000 followers could have 50,000 impressions a month. That's a lot of people that could lead into something. But for people that are just starting out, have 0 followers or up to 5,000 followers, one-to-one sessions or a pack of one-to-one sessions for $1,000 to $2,000 is a very good option. I won't say the best, but for most people, that's like the best. Okay. That might, we have a few more. What are some ways I can test if LinkedIn is the best fit, or should I experiment with other platforms like X or specialized forums to see where engagement is strongest?
I mean, I think LinkedIn is the best platform to build businesses on right now. I think Twitter just feels more like constant culture wars. And I think LinkedIn feels more like a place to build business. That's my personal opinion. I also think it's easier to build your audience there because people aren't as shitty. So you can like test and experiment without feeling like, you're gonna get a bunch of shit in the beginning. That's why I chose it back in 2018. That's my personal opinion again. Dan, you might feel differently.
No, I agree. I just saw you got to bounce. So everyone, thank Justin. I'll send Justin, if you can send me presentation slides and the discount link for the product, I'll send that as an email after. But yes, everyone, thank Justin. Thank you again, man. This was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate having me. Good chatting with y'all.
Awesome. See ya. All right. I have to go very soon as well. We have demos for the software, but I'll answer a few more. If you started over and had to restart on one platform, which would it be for each of you? Oh, sorry, I'm the only one here now. Some seem easier to build trust on, long form writing spots, slow growth, and some more gimmicky, but can grow. TikTok. Yeah, I'm not a fan of, I don't think I would change anything. Maybe I don't like creating videos. I like YouTube. I don't like TikTok or Instagram, although I do experiment occasionally with those and I post reels kind of consistently. But personally, for my personality, I just like writing, and I would start on some kind of writing-based platform. So probably Threads, Twitter, or Substack. So I narrow that down to Substack or Twitter. Twitter is kind of my vibe because I like how unhinged it is, but I feel like Substack, they both work. I'd go with Substack or Twitter. But that's because I promote writing so much, because if you can write a good tweet, you practice articulation, and articulation impacts so much more through writing rather than speaking, because most people go about speaking in a way where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go and record a reel, 1 minute reel, here's my topic, okay, ready, set, speak. And then you just let a lot of stuff come out, and then you don't know whether or not it's gonna do well. When you write something down in such a short form piece, day after day after day, you can spot the pattern so much easier, and your writing just gets better just by writing, right? You don't need to analyze the little nuances of how you speak, so on and so forth. And all of that writing transfers over into your speaking in your videos because you've clarified all of these ideas in your head. So I go with Twitter, Substack, but obviously all of them work. Okay, we'll do this one as a last one from Hussein. What are some delusions that, and by the way, Hussein, hi, good to see you in here. What are some delusions that some beginners make? Sometimes I see people who are expert in their careers, and when they start writing on social media, they quit their jobs even before monetizing or even having an audience. Some delusions that some beginners make. That one's a difficult one. I haven't seen too many that quit before monetizing. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to do that. I'm the type of person that would do that because I like being delusional. But delusions. I think the main delusion is kind of what we've been talking about, where if you are, the delusion is that it's complex, right? That it's so complex that you can't start without learning and absorbing every single piece of knowledge that's out there on social media, marketing, sales, product, etc. The thing that I love the most about social media is that you can just post, right? It's permissionless. You can start, you can write about anything. Like social media is the teacher, right? You don't know what to write. You don't know what to post. Okay, go look at an account that's similar to you. Find what their best post is. Study it. Pop it into ChatGPT. Ask it, hey, why did this work? Why did this post do so well for this person? Teach me how to write this post with my own idea. Boom, pop your idea into it. You have a validated framework for the tweet itself. You can ask it, is this idea good enough? And then you pop it in, you rewrite it, you post it. You have a framework that does really well. You just shortcut everyone on social media, and most people haven't started yet. Same thing with the product. We're going to learn a lot of the AI stuff tomorrow, not teaching you how to write for you, but teaching how to break down certain things. So if you see an offer or a landing page or a tweet or whatever it is that's doing really well, we're going to learn how to plug that into AI and pretty much have it teach you how to do it yourself, and then also turn that into a prompt so you can do it a lot faster. That's more than we're going to talk about a lot more, but we will leave it there as the same as yesterday. I have a call after this, so it may be a bit later this time. I got it out pretty quick yesterday, but the recording will be sent. The resources, slides, etc., will be sent in an email and to the dashboard. Everything related will be sent in the dashboard and an email. So thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. Just you and I tomorrow. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, content specifically, AI. It'll be fun. Okay. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. In day one, we talked about the general, how to productize yourself, how to start thinking about generating a product idea, your unique mechanism, all of those things. Then we had JK Molina on, who taught us about insight versus value and creating your big idea. So as an example, Randy Hill, he has the human weapon big idea. That's the overarching like idea behind his brand. That's his mission, is to create more human weapons as a fitness coach, right? And that gives people this idea of what they can become. And all of his content, his entire training, all of his future products will revolve around that. And that just gives you, once you have that solidified, or at least an idea of what your main idea is or your mission, then it becomes a lot easier to create content around that, create products. Another example, Dan Goldfield, who was a student of mine for a good amount of time, he recently came up with one after talking about what I'm going to show you today. After using the AI strategy that I'm going to show you today, he came up with one that was called like Your Human OS, and he started writing newsletters about how spirituality and non-duality. He's talking about it from the lens of an operating system, because non-duality, spirituality, all of that stuff can seem very woo-woo, which I know some of you resonate with. But if it seems too woo-woo, then he takes the abstracts out a layer, finds a way to explain it in more simpler terms, like the metaphor of your mind, spirituality being an operating system, and most people are living on the default mode, and they can uninstall apps, reinstall apps, so on and so forth. It makes your content a lot more interesting, novel, unique, etc. We'll learn how to do some of that cool stuff today. But today, we're going to talk about content strategies and main priorities. Then we're going to talk about how to leverage AI, and they should lead into each other quite well. Now, the problem with beginner level or beginner content in general, when you start on social media, I know many of you, whenever I talk to most of you, this isn't going to apply to all of you, but when I talk to many of you one-to-one, you guys are very insightful people, right? I like to think I am too. We're very philosophical. We like the quotes and the pithy advice and the just philosophical musings and being very clever. We like the clever wordiness. It makes us feel smart. There's something there, right? But you aren't Marcus Aurelius. I'm not Marcus Aurelius. When you get started posting online, a lot of people go like the fortune cookie route. They just start posting quotes. They start posting these deep insights. But the problem here is that even if you are Marcus Aurelius, people don't know that. When I say even if you are Marcus Aurelius, I'm saying even if you are this very smart, this very developed, this very fit, this very skilled person, if you're very valuable, you know you have some kind of value to offer, other people don't know that. So when you start spewing out these fortune cookie level advice or these thought McNuggets, you're not really, people don't know who you are. It doesn't hold gravity when you post it because there's no idea of the person behind the idea. We look at Naval Ravikant, who I like, and we know that he's very wise, that he's built great companies, that he has done these high level things. So when we read his posts, we read it through that lens. We think, like, I read a post and I'm like, damn, that hit really hard because it's coming from someone that I trust and respect. You haven't built that trust and respect yet. So that's what we need to do. You need to become, people need to know you're Marcus Aurelius before they see your ideas as Marcus Aurelius level. Otherwise, they're just generic quotes that people can find on Pinterest and there's nothing special about you, right? So I post right now, at least, I like posting that stuff. That was always my end goal, is I like the philosophical stuff. I like the quotes. And now when I post those, since I've built a lot of authority and trust over time, I can afford to do that for the majority of the time, right? You can go to my profile and you can try to copy what I do. Some of it might work, some of it might get engagement. Some ideas are worth copying because if you resonate with them and you wish you wrote that idea and it's true to you, why wouldn't you copy it? What I'm saying is we just need to build a foundation. So your job as a beginner, when you're first starting, is this is difficult for, again, people like me, being introverted, kind of quiet. I know I'm on social media all the time. I talk in YouTube videos pretty confidently. I'm here talking to an audience of people right now. That's not who I was at the start. I was very quiet. I still am very quiet. I'm just introverted in general, but I've learned to acquire skills that allow me to be more extroverted, right? So Your job as a beginner is to just be loud. And that's going to be difficult for you if you aren't used to being loud or you aren't used to putting some oomph behind your ideas or your speaking. So you need to practice it. And the way you practice it is by doing it when it's uncomfortable. So you need to be loud about one, who you are, two, about what you're good at. So people start to get the gist of what you do, what you can help with, even if they can't immediately benefit from it. They know people that can benefit from it and can refer them to you. You have to be loud about your mission and your core ideas. So what we've talked about, what we'll continue to talk about, and you need to be loud about why you're different. This will make sense when we go over actual examples for how to do this. So that's the foundation. And let's call this authority content, for lack of a better term. Authority, authenticity, just building the image of you in people's heads so that your other ideas have more impact. That's the foundation. And then you can intersperse growth content around that. So what I consider growth content is ideas and structures that have the potential to get a lot of engagement. What I mean by that is there are ideas that are evergreen. You talk about emotional management or feeling lost or what people in their 20s should do. Or I'm sure you've seen, you go onto YouTube, if you've been on YouTube, you've been on Substack, you've been on Medium, you've been on the internet for a good amount of time, you see a lot of patterns. You see, again, what people should do in their 20s, how to build a business. All of these like surface level base problems that people have, those are evergreen. You can talk about them forever and you can get a good amount of engagement from them just because a lot of people resonate and relate with them where they desire the outcome of those things. So you can talk about any of those if you want, and they may lead to a lot of engagement, but they're not necessarily leading to any kind of authority. Like people aren't going to trust you enough to buy what you sell, reach out to you, do whatever. You're kind of just like, again, their fortune cookie. You're their inspiration account that they follow, but don't really know who you are. They know they could tell the idea if they heard it again, but they wouldn't be able to tell who said the idea. That's the important part. What I mean by structures here is that there are ideas and there are ways of phrasing ideas that tend to work well. So listicles always work. Sorry, I was hoping, okay, you guys can all hear me good. There are things like listicles, which is a structure. So 10 life lessons I learned this year, and it's just a list of 10 life lessons. That can be a long YouTube video, or it can be a short tweet with just 10 short bullet points. There's other structures that go viral all the time, right? You see one person create a certain type of YouTube video, and then other people start to copy it, so on and so forth. So we'll learn how to break down structures and plug in your own ideas, so on and so forth. But that's the gist of growth content. If you want to grow and get engagement, then you kind of just, again, copy what's working. You log onto social media, you see an idea, you're like, okay, that idea is good. I kind of want to write about that too. You write your take on that idea. You see a pattern or structure that's doing well. You go on social media, see that, you take it, you rewrite it with your own stuff, rather than 10 life lessons that I learned this year. You can say 10 life failures that I learned last year, right? It's just little minor changes that give you this content that leads to a good amount of engagement. This is like how you pump your numbers up to an extent, and it's pretty easy because you just copy people. But that's obviously, since it's easy, it's not going to set you apart. It's not going to do too much good for you aside from generate the audience, right? It's going to build the audience, but along the way, you intersperse authority content so that audience grows to know who you are and form a deeper connection with you. A lot of people just skip the authority content part and end up with 1 million followers, but no money. It happens all the time. What authority content does is it leads to more clients, customers, and signups. So talking about who you are and what you do, these are important, right? You need to have some kind of like power to be able to influence, to be able to persuade, to be able to help people, right? You need to capture attention of people that you can help. That's a very good thing if you don't abuse it. Now, here you increase one or the other based on your goals. We could give certain percentages. I could give you like, right, 80% authority content at the beginning, then increase growth content, whatever. Just try them both. Increase one or the other based on your goals and what your pain points are, right? Trial and error. If you aren't making any sales, then you probably need to bump up the authority content. If you're not growing, then you probably need to bump up the growth content. Also with growth as a beginner, take into account what we talked about yesterday with making more friends, building that network, being able to reach out to people to help them, to help you share your content, get more eyes on it. Content only goes so far if you can like hit the jackpot with the algorithm, unless you get really good at that and can replicate it over and over. But then that gives you all the dopamine you could ever want. And then you don't want to write authority content because it doesn't get as much engagement. And then you feel like you're failing. So you go back to growth content and then you end up with no money again. So balance them out. Just be smart. Understand that you have more goals than audience growth. And that, as we learned yesterday as well with Randy Hill, you don't need that much followers to earn a pretty freaking decent income. I went to train with Randy yesterday and he was like, I didn't say this on the live, but I hit 92K last month in sales for his coaching. And I'm like, what the heck? That's insane. He had 4,900 followers. Absolutely insane by just promoting it, doing this, right? Not overcomplicating it. It's insane. Of course, he's trying to do his best work, but you get the point. Ultimately, you need both of these things, right? Because if you only post authority content, you start to stall out, at least from what I've noticed. Depends on your goals, but if you want to keep going and eventually be able to get out of client work, get out of service work, free up some more of your time, an audience is what allows you to do so. Like we talked about with Justin Welsh and being able to go down a different monetization path. So only sticking to like niche authority content, very powerful, but think long term, do you want to evolve beyond that? If you want to evolve, an audience is leverage. It's a good way to do that. Now, to solve the initial problem of you're not Marcus Aurelius, and you shouldn't just go and start posting quotes that make people feel good. The first content pieces that I think you should write, this is a good place to take notes or come back to after this call and just work on throughout the week. But the first content pieces you should create, these are the ones that like establish who you are, what you do, what you talk about. These are important. Focus on these. Create 3 different iterations of each piece of these content. Write all of these pieces of content, and then go back, start over, write them again from a slightly different angle. Just rewrite them until you are sure that people know who you are and maybe you've made your first dollar. If you want, when you're a beginner and you're posting into the void and nobody knows who you are and you don't have a huge audience that's going to catch on to you just reposting the same things, just repost these until you make your first dollar. Okay, this is all you need. There's maybe like 10 here. The first is your core story. This is like the first thing you need to nail down, like Justin said, your founder story. And there's so many different ways to write this. So we'll go over an example. I'll tell you what I mean. In general, your core story is just the big moment in your life where you had the choice to change. Then what that reality looked and felt like, so you can relate, or other people can relate with you, how it introduced you to your current skill or interest because you want to tie in what you do in some way and why you're here on social media. And then you can sprinkle in lessons or insights you learned. So if you don't know how to write something longer form, you kind of just have a hook and then you have key points. So you can think of the hook as being a combination of the big moment, what reality looked and felt like, the problem, any core and interesting part of the story. And then from there, you lead into the key points. So where did I start? What was the lesson I learned? What did that lead to? You can map it out, so on and so forth. Now with this, it's best to exaggerate it and be dramatic because you want to make a good story. You don't necessarily need to exaggerate it, but I want you to like dig deep into the emotion. You're trying to transfer energy here through content. You're trying to make people feel something. And if you're just like running through all of the key points of what happened, you may not accomplish that. So you're trying to make people relate to your story so that they feel a deeper connection with you. And I'll show you this thread that Kieran Drew wrote, but inside of it, you can tag someone who made an impact and promote something. I'll show you what that means. So this is Kieran Drew. He's a writer. Follow him if you want to learn about writing. Very cool dude. I've talked to him a good amount of times, but this is just one of his story threads. And it obviously did very well. One thing here, I hope I'm not overwhelming you when I say this because we're pulling a lot of things together. But once you write your story thread, you have to think of it like a product launch, right? You're launching the thread and you're trying to make it do really well. How you do that is a few different ways, because if you just write an incredible thread about your story and you post it to nobody, then it may not go anywhere. The algorithm may not pick it up. Maybe it will on like Instagram Reels, maybe YouTube. You never really know, but that's the thing. You never really know. Do you want to bank on luck, or do you want to at least guarantee some kind of engagement? So in order to do that, you need to talk to more people. You need to talk to people at your level. You need to talk to people that you just find online in general. You need to talk to people a little bit ahead of you. Once you do what we talked about yesterday, then you have this like little network of people. You can start to tell them, hey, I'm working on my first story thread. This is important to me. I'm trying to break into writing content. I know you've done the same thing. When I write it, can you review? Can I send it to you to just look at for me? And then you can send them the draft. You update them on your progress with it, see if they have anything to say. And then when you post it, you literally send via direct message to them on whatever platform, right? You can do this on any platform. Just, you're probably not going to write a thread. Well, you can do a carousel on Instagram with this, but you can write this type of content on any platform. Then you share it with the people that you've reached out to. And then you maybe have 5 to 10 people, maybe less, maybe more, that are going to engage, and they're probably going to share it, and that'll start to kickstart it. And then it may hit the algorithm. It's much more likely to. And then boom, these bring in, if they actually take off, they bring in a lot of followers. If you nail this first time around, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but like the top end, you can gain like thousands of followers. I know this guy, Simo, Simmo, he wrote a thread. It wasn't a story thread, but it was a thread. And it went super viral. He gained 11,000 followers. 11,000. And if he has something to promote, that's, and you're good at sales, and you're good at, you have all the skills to take advantage of that opportunity, you promote your product or service, that's $100,000 easily, if the offer's good, right? So if you have all of these skills, all these things in place, like you do that once, and then you can replicate it. Like that's where the magic really happens. That's insane. I'm talking big numbers here. 1% or less of people are actually going to achieve that, but still anything less than those numbers is still a lot of freaking followers and money. So don't sleep on that. With this, he has the hook. We'll actually learn about, we'll use AI to help you understand this more, but he has the hook. Pictures that are pretty shocking, right? I broke my neck. That's a big moment in his life. Like, holy crap, that captures my attention. I want to know what happened. And he has x-rays. He has a before and after picture. It's like, wow, this is good. Attention grabbing. Okay, I click, I read. He paints a picture of where he was. Continues. He digs into what the problem was, where he hits rock bottom, how recovery was. Not going to lie, he's baking in lessons throughout this. I'll also include a link to this thread in the email I send after, just if you want to reread it again. Has pictures, little physique check, spine surgery. That's crazy. And the thing here is you don't need an insane story to make this work, right? You just need a decent story, a before and after, some kind of transformation that people want. Hell, if you became 2x more productive, that's not as compelling of a story, but it's still a story and people can benefit from it. So crazy story or not, you can do this. The crazy story you have, so the more, I guess, risk you take in life, the more that's rewarded on social media. We're going to talk about how you can do that a different way in the form of a plan and not a story soon, but you can see he goes here, and right here, he tags Naval. Now, this is a big shot. The reason he's doing this and why he's saying Naval had a big impact on my story is because Naval has a lot of followers, obviously, and by tagging him, Naval is more likely to see this. If Naval reads this and either likes or comments or retweets, which since he is busy and values his attention, he may not. Again, this is a long shot. You can tag other people, but if he does that, holy crap, you went viral, right? Literally just by tagging someone. Don't tag everyone and their mother. Be tactical about it. Be genuine about it. If someone changed your life, an author, someone who's on Twitter or whatever platform you're using, just let them know. They'll appreciate it, even if they don't like it. And then you're building long-term attention equity. So at least Kieran is on Naval's radar. He may not share this one, but he'll remember him the next time something comes up. So one little tactic you can do there is when you're writing some kind of long and valuable content, tag someone. Anyone. It can be 50,000 followers. It can be 5,000 followers. Just start. This is just another way of like showing appreciation to people without having to DM them because you're doing it in public. And this benefits Naval because people are going to click here, follow. There's a lot of benefits in just doing this. It's a mutual benefit for both parties. Now he goes through it. He says, come along with me on this journey. People can click this, follow him. And then he promotes a lead magnet. So he has a little purpose workbook. That way he can generate emails from this. So if he has an email list, he can follow up with them. That's where he can promote his products or services. If people download this, maybe he has a welcome sequence in place on the email list that then introduces them to, let's say, his coaching or his course or his physical product or whatever it is that you sell, his software. This is just how you move traffic from social media to somewhere else to make some form of an income. You can also, here, if you have nothing, just tell people to DM you. Tell people to DM you if you want to work with me on XYZ. This is what I do. This is why I think it's important. If you want to work with me, DM me. We'll talk about it. Or if you created a questionnaire like Randy has, and if you don't know what to put on your questionnaire, then you can go to his account, Iris Fitness, click here. You can literally just use Google Forms. Don't overcomplicate it. Use Google Forms. You don't need any images here. First name, last name, email, handle, social media handle. So you can DM them after. What are your goals? What are you stuck with? Where are you at? Like in your fitness journey or whatever journey? Are you in a financial position? Because obviously this costs money. This filters out people who don't want to pay. If accepted, is there anything that would stop you? So you can just swipe this. It's a basic intake form, right? Then you DM them after, follow up with them, etc. So, and then you can plug the link to that. Easy. Now, we're here. Your plan or mission. Oh, I forgot to mention. So in the email yesterday, I told people to reply with yes, JK, to have JK come on again. He was excited about it, but then he messaged me and said that he forgot that he had to be there for his wife to take her somewhere, so he couldn't come, but he sent me the material, and so I'm weaving some of it in here. So anytime you see a picture of JK Molina, this is one of his concepts or ideas. This is how he gets people, this is how he writes content to land bigger clients. So the first one is your plan or mission. So you're just telling people, there's two ways to do this. You're telling people what your plan is. So if you don't have experience yet, you're building in public, whatever it may be, you tell people what you're going to do, the entire plan, step by step. For me, I will probably do this at some point, but I'm writing a book right now. I could say, here's how I'm taking this book to New York Times bestseller. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's how I'm building this software to $100 million. Boom, 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 boom. Or your mission. So let's say Randy, as an example, here's how I'm going to turn, or how would you phrase this in like a compelling way? Something along the lines of like, I've done X, Y, Z. I'm making it my full-time job to help other people become human weapons. What is a human weapon? Someone who is muscular, fast, strong, and whatever other values you have relating to what your mission is, right? And then you start to go in, you talk a little bit about your story, and then you talk about the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How are you going to help them? What are the steps to do so? So what are you here to help your audience do? What are the steps and why are they important? Weave in your own story, emphasize why it's different from what everyone else does. That's the key part, right? So we look at JK's version of this, and he has the plan to make 100K a month, profit with 3 hours a day. Now, keep in mind that JK is doing business stuff now, right? He started as a ghostwriter. That was his main thing. He was the initial, you guys, if you're on Twitter, you see ghostwriters left and right. JK Molina was literally the first one to ever do it. He was the person that made ghostwriting both profitable and just a viable business model on Twitter. He was the co-founder of Tweet Hunter, if you didn't know that. And yeah, so he had a lot of success with that. He had a ghostwriting agency, did that for a few years, and then he started another business with another guy, and they started building the agency together. And then that's when he realized, like, oh crap, I don't want to be in this. Like, this is taking up all my time. The profit margins are low. Why am I doing this? So he had the insight, like, I can probably make 100K a month with 3 hours a day. And that gives him this creative challenge. A lot of people will be like, oh, that's absurd. You can't do that. But if you actually set the goal and try to do it, you're going to do the right things that would lead to this coming about, right? So that's his plan. How is he going to do it? It's like, that's absurd. How are you going to do it? So yeah, exactly what I just said. 125K a month SaaS, 150K a month community with the other guy. It felt good, but he wasn't taking much home. So he's like, I need to strip away all of this. Like, just me, 3 hours a day of work, very high leverage activities. Let's make 100K a month profit. That's all I want. I'm set with that. We're stopping there. And that's what he's done. So grow my socials my way. No fancy editing, forced creation. It's like, he's already resonating with so many people here that they want to follow and see what he's all about. Invite people every day to join the Likes and Cash newsletter, host workshops, make it easy to buy, grow the Cash Creators community. So he's pretty much like going against what most people do. He's illustrating that, and he's creating something that's kind of new, right? A new way of doing things, and people like that. People want to follow that. So he just goes through all the steps, and this is a long form tweet. You could write this in a caption on Instagram. You could copy paste parts of this into a carousel. You can post this as, you can record this as a YouTube video. All content's the same. It's just different ways of structuring it on different platforms. You could even send this as a newsletter, but he's posting it on social media so it can actually be shared. A newsletter, if you don't have email subscribers, it's not going anywhere. So post the right things on social media into your newsletter. But that's the gist of it, right? Does he have a call to action? Yep, straight to clients, a lot of results. Cash Creator Code, he just keeps linking things. He doesn't even have a call to action. He just gets people to follow and DM him. So this works. Talk about your plan or your mission. Now, next is your code. So this is another one from JK Molina. So you create a list of what most people do versus what you do. You talk about it constantly. You emphasize why it's important. You make a good argument and get people on board with it. You have to like be knowledgeable to do this. And then for you personally right now, write this in your notes and you add to it over time. So this can be written on a physical note. This can be inside of the notes on your computer. It can be anywhere. Just have it somewhere so you can continue to add to it. So for him, at his stage of business, he could have easily done this with ghostwriting as well. But most people are content creators. They do this. This is their behavior. I, or JK, wants to be a cash creator. What's the difference, right? It's just a pros and cons list, pretty much. And then all of these are content ideas. Or it's like the contrast between the two are one content idea. You can post this as an image, which he's done many times. It was actually in that thread of his right here. So he literally just posted it and called it the Cash Creator Code. Wanted people to go in, read it. But write these down, and then you can turn any of these into content. So you could say a content creator sells with calls. A cash creator sells without calls. And then provide one last line in like a tweet. Okay, what is it? What's like a common? Most people think that they need a sales call to make money when that's not the case at all, right? You're not giving anything away, which is a smart thing to do here. You're not giving people the entire value, like JK said, day one. You're letting people ask questions. You're increasing the engagement of it. You're making people think, oh, okay, this guy knows something that I don't. And that leads to some DMs, that leads to some comments. You reach out to those people, and boom, now you have potential prospects or you have friends, right? Or people who agree with you. And the thing about this is when you talk about any of these things, if you're a beginner right now, you're going to experience some dislike and some arguments, and you grow to be okay with those. And because most people just don't have the full story, right? They're reading 280 characters. That's exactly why you're leaving it at 280 characters, so people can inquire with you. Now, the next one, this one is less of like a content piece, although you can write it. One thing I love to do is just create a magnum opus, right? My content that I write, usually, a lot of the times it's just ideas that come to mind or an idea that I have, but more of the time it's, I have this big thing, right? Right now it's future-proof. Future-proof, I write that down on the top of a piece of paper. What's everything involved with that? Just write it down. It's AI, it's learning certain skills, it's online business, it's personal branding sometimes, it's maybe software, it's mental resilience, it's a lot of things. And then you write all those things down and then you create this full guide to what it is. What does it mean to be future-proof? What does it mean to be a human weapon in Randy's case? What does it mean to be a cash creator in JK Molina's case? So for your magnum opus, so to say, you take your mission or big idea and you create a full guide on it. This is usually long form. So there's two different ways to do this. One, it just helps to write this out because then it helps create so much more content ideas and it helps frame what you're here to do. It clarifies the idea for you. But two ways you can do this is you can write it as like a free ebook so people can download it and then you get their email. But on a platform like Substack, you can't automate that stuff, right? You can't really provide a download. You can't connect with Zapier and automate people into your email list. So if you are using Substack or another form of newsletter or no newsletter at all, I'd probably recommend Substack. And then you write your magnum opus as a newsletter there. You post it. And since it's on Substack, it doesn't really matter if you send it out to a lot of people or not. But then you link to it. Well, actually, first, inside of it, you promote your offers. So your service, your product, whatever it is that you sell over time. And you just link to it. Maybe like maybe 2 or 3 times throughout it. So after the introduction, you say, if you want help on any of this, DM me and we'll talk about it. Fill out my questionnaire and we'll talk about it. In the middle somewhere where it's relevant, do that again. At the end, PS, if you want to work with me on this, DM me on this platform or fill out this questionnaire. Now, how do you get people to see that? Well, you write content about your mission or big idea or anything, and then you just link the magnum opus. And then people go in, they read it. Some of them subscribe. That's how you start building your newsletter. As they read it, and if it's really good, then people see your promotions and then they reach out to you and so on and so forth. So now you have a few different ways to potentially make money. You're writing the content. People who engage, you can message and do what we talked about yesterday. You can make friends, DM people above and below you, and then you can link your magnum opus, and then people read that, trust you more, inquire with you, so on and so forth. Another thing is you can also write this as like a big thread or a carousel or an entire YouTube video. I turn most of my newsletters into YouTube videos, so it's a good way to start. You start off with a bang, your magnum opus, and then you just talk about other topics about it. Like I made freaking 50 one-person business videos after the first one-person business video did really well. So it's like you have this big idea, this mission, you write the full guide, you post it, and then you talk about all the other nuances going further throughout it. That's like content strategy. Now, the next thing you can talk about, or at least in your first types of content that will probably lead to a decent amount of sales over time or prospects or customers, is just talking about big problems relating to your ideas, your mission, your topic, who you are, so on and so forth, your story. And what this does is it makes people problem aware. So if you don't know, if you haven't studied persuasion or copywriting or sales, there's the 5 levels of awareness. So there's unaware, so they're not aware of a problem. There's aware, so they're aware of the problem. There's solution aware, which is they're aware of a solution to solve their problems. And then there's product aware, so they know that there's products out there that can solve their problems. And then there's most aware, where they know all of the above, they just need like to push over the edge. So what you're doing on social media is you're making people both problem aware and sometimes solution aware, so that they have this desire to solve the problem. Because if you're not aware of a problem or it's not painful enough, then you're not really going to seek out a solution for it. And once you do know there's a solution for it, you need the higher you get in the levels of awareness, the more unique the solution has to be. So that's why we have the big idea, the mission, the insight versus value, the contrast, right? Content creator versus cash creator, the fitness bro versus the human weapon, the whatever versus whatever. That's where that comes into play. So the problems are more so like seeds, where people read it and they're like, okay, that's my problem. How do I solve it? And we're not really giving away solutions here in the examples, but that's why they follow. That's why they engage. That's why they maybe DM you. So one thing here is JK's is very focused and very niche down on service businesses, right? People spend 95% of their time on prospects and 5% on clients and wonder why everyone leaves after 3 months. Only people with decently successful businesses can relate with this, but that's who JK is going after. I put mine as an example here. If I were selling a focused product, right? This is like, it did really well, right? Most of them are not going to do this well. I just put this in here as an example that if you have a productivity product, a focused product, something of that nature, you can talk about problems like this and do pretty well. Are you going to land? It's like the axis that Justin Welch talked about, where if you go large and broad, you're probably going to be able to sell a lot of low ticket courses and ebooks and templates. But in terms of high ticket stuff, you have to get a bit more niche to someone's situation. Not saying that you can't land high ticket stuff with this, but why would you want to or need to when this does incredibly well, right? So keep that in mind. Is the more broad the problems and topics that you're talking about, the lower ticket you're going to have to go. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you have so many more impressions, right? So they kind of balance each other out. It's really dependent on what kind of lifestyle you want to live, how much quote unquote fame you want to have, but there's options for both routes. So talk about more problems. The next ideas to write about is, and the reason I say these is because they help you write better content than just like posting an idea that you liked, right? So what made the biggest difference for you to get results in whatever your topic of interest is? For me, with, let's say I have a writing product or writing coaching or a writing app or writing anything, then I can say the biggest difference or you can word it however you want, but the thing that made the biggest difference in my writing is being clear, not clever. Cliche, everyone talks about that, but you get the point. You can go a bit deeper there. Micro transformations. So small parts of your story where you solve the problem, right? Your founder story, your big story is your large overarching story of like everything related to the topic that you talk about, why you're here, what you do, who you are. A micro transformation is more so like, I used to never be able to come up with ideas. Now I can write 1,000 words in 5 seconds. Here's how I did it. Or the difference was X, Y, Z. Kind of simple. It's just a problem that you used to face. What changed? What was the solution? Next, what do you disagree with? So whatever your topic or interest is, again, think, what do most people do and why do I disagree with those things? And you can simply state that disagreement. I disagree that you don't need an English degree to earn a living as a writer. You don't need 2-hour gym sessions to be able to build a jacked physique. All you need is 30 minutes, 3 times a week. There's a lot of people talking about that in the fitness space, and that targets a very specific, busy individual. Productivity. You don't need a huge Notion dashboard filled with 8 billion notes in order to be productive. You need X, Y, Z, something simpler, right? Again, people disagree with either sides. That's the beauty of this. What are your extreme beliefs? So this one's difficult. We're going to use AI for this to help articulate them to ourselves. But extreme beliefs are the things that you do or think that other people would think are crazy. And I'm talking about the average person, right? Because other extreme people are like your friends, or the people you relate with. Like me personally, I walk 15,000 steps a day, and that's a pillar of my life. That's very important to me. Other people just think that's insane and that they don't have time for it. And most of you probably don't see that as insane, but that's why you're here, right? That's the entire point. Is like you resonate with things like that. Maybe not that exactly, but you get the point there. So what are the extreme things that you do or believe that other people think are crazy? This will take some time to actually ideate and think through, because once you do it, then you can question and be like, oh, that is kind of crazy to other people. The next thing, these are just like easy kind of cop-outs that I write about all the time. It's just ideas that I wish I wrote. So if I'm learning every day, which I try to at least read or listen to an audiobook or watch a YouTube video on something new. When I'm learning something new or interesting, there's usually an idea in there that I agree with. I have some kind of experience with, so I'm qualified to write about it too. And that just hits hard. And I want it to be under my brand. I want people to associate that idea with me too. So I write about it. And then last, your take on top performing content. This is more like growth content. So things that probably won't get much engagement, but are going to lead to some followers. This is going to lead to a lot of engagement, not a lot of signups or sales. So this will like pump your audience metrics. But then when you have everything else that we talked about in place, you nurture them more, you build trust with them more. You're not just building an audience to build an audience like we talked about. The other thing is that you can really make any idea unique by talking about a personal experience with it. So an idea, I have the book, Think on These Things from Krishnamurti here. I know there's a section on learning and what true education is. And he talks about education being discovery rather than like memorization and conformity. And so I can take that idea, think about my life. Okay, how did that apply? I learned the most when I stopped trying to memorize facts and started trying to discover something new with an open mind. That's a simple idea, but it's probably worth posting, and I can probably expand on it after I post it. That's the cool thing about writing, especially long form stuff for a book, is that you solidify that thought process in the physical world or digital world, and then you free your mind up to think beyond it, to make it better, right? So if you weren't writing your ideas out, and they're kind of just sitting in your head, you're, I guess, reducing your creativity, or you're reducing how creative your ideas can get or how impactful they can get just because you didn't put the first iteration out because you were trying to make it perfect. So don't try to make it perfect. Did I have examples here? Oh, I had this one. So this was me just linking the magnum opus. But if we go to my profile as well, I actually pin this too. So when people visit here, they go here. And right now, I didn't link any of my products or services in here because my main offer, I don't know if I'd recommend this to everyone. Please take this with a grain of salt. But my main offer is just the paid Substack, right? So I have, if we go to my actual profile, I have paid posts here that I post like 2 to 4 times a month. And that's kind of how I'm monetizing now, but that's for me specifically because I'm trying to transition to be able to promote the software more, right? And that be my core offer. So if you don't have a core offer, this honestly isn't that profitable. I'm actually like lowering my income quite a bit by doing this, but I'm just setting a base, right? So it's super easy to set up. Like if you want just a paid Substack to be your first offer and you just want to write content and lead people to the newsletters, like I can link people to this paid post and then in my social content. And then if they go to it, they like it, they want to subscribe, they can subscribe. That's a simple way to make money, but Substack takes 10%. It's recurring. There's a lot of pros and cons. So just keep those things in mind because there are other more profitable ways, but if that's what you want to do, do it. And this was just the example of the problem tweet. Now, I'll see if we have any questions at the moment, but we're going to talk about how to do anything with AI. So any questions related to that? Was J.K. Molina recommending we put the entire 12-page prompt into AI? Yes. And we're going to be putting a lot of stuff into AI right now because you'll see the power of AI more with that. Is Stan equal to Stripe in terms of what they do? My website hosted by Ghost has Stripe built into it. Would I still be better off using Stan? Stan has Stripe built into it as well. So you get paid with Stripe. Stan is more of like a product hosting platform. So you can host coaching calls. So if you just want to charge for one coaching call, they have a product for that. You can host communities in there, although Circle or School might be a better option. You can have digital products, so you can create a course material in there. You can do paid downloads, so you can like put a paywall over PDF. There's a lot of different stuff you can do. So Ghost, I haven't looked into it too much, but I'm pretty sure it's similar to Substack in a sense, maybe with a bit more, where it's like newsletters and articles, but not necessarily paid products, right? I think. So they would both go in tandem. Like if you want to create a product or service and charge for it on Stan, then you would still be writing on Ghost, but you would link to your product for people to buy, if that makes sense. In regards to a founder story, if I'm still in the process of developing that, how would you frame posting content? I've heard of people starting to build a following while they are still in the process of solving a problem and documenting it. You don't have to talk, the founder story doesn't have to be like the most incredible thing in the world, right? It could, and you don't have to have it all figured out. You can just talk about your story. Why are you starting to document things? Why are you starting to change your life, right? That makes people want to come and follow along with you. You don't have to promote anything. You don't have to have your offer ready. Yeah, that's all okay. What you could do instead is go the plan or the code route, right? Where you talk about your plan, not necessarily what you can help your audience do, but what you're going to do. And that's very beneficial for you too, because then you have it in public, you have that accountability and you articulate it. So it's more clear to you. So you go the plan route and talk about, here's what I'm trying to build. Here's what I plan to do. I'm going to document it all here. Follow along. Which email platform do you recommend for sending out newsletters? They all do the same thing. They all send out newsletters. However, I am kind of bullish on Substack simply because they have short form social media baked in where you have like tweets, right? I can literally cross post. I just copy paste my tweets onto here. Well, I copy paste my tweets everywhere, but Substack is a pretty, I would think, viable social media platform now, and it's growing quite well. And it's starting to adopt the same characteristics as Twitter in terms of being toxic here and there. That's just what you're going to get as social media platforms develop, but it's a good platform. And the thing I like about here is that there's actually kind of a social feed for your newsletters. So you could technically get subscribers. That said, you're probably going to grow faster on other platforms, but you can still host your newsletter here and send people to it, right? And cross post. Doesn't take much extra time to do that. I mean, it takes time to write a newsletter, but it doesn't take time to cross post. How do you get the balance between writing what you want versus writing what your audience wants to hear? It's a very good question. Usually you want to write about an idea, right? You have this idea in your head, you want to write it down, but in order, the entire, like, it's fun to me to try to phrase it in a way that would benefit other people more or that other people will like, right? So it's not necessarily, you're not changing the idea, you're just changing how you articulate it so that people can actually benefit from it. Because the thing there is, I see writing as a two-way street, right? Because it's writing, not journaling. They're the same thing, but I think you get the distinction I'm trying to make is when you write, you want other people to like it, right? That's the second part of the game. So it's not, if you want to just write ideas that you want to write about, journal, right? Articulate them. If you're trying to do something with this, then you have to play the attention game, whether or not they like it. You need to articulate yourself in a way that is impactful. And I think that adds a lot more to the writing. All right. Dan, would you be offering any discounts or rebates on Cortex and your other programs for participants here? So news about Cortex, if you haven't been keeping up with it or read the emails relating to it, for those here, I'll tell you this, is that Cortex is changing completely. If you're a Cortex user, don't worry at all. You'll be able to go over or keep using Cortex if you want, but we're changing to something entirely new. Because long story behind it, I'll be loud about it on social media, but we built Cortex in a way where we had this vision for it and we were just moving so slow because of the way that we built Cortex in terms of infrastructure. There were a lot of bugs and maintenance that should have been there because shouldn't have been there because of the way we built it. We built it like a big tech startup. I mean, a big tech company rather than a startup, which prevented us from iterating fast and getting it to a place we wanted to be. And we decided to just rebuild it from scratch. It's a lot better. It's almost ready to go out. To answer your question, not for Cortex, simply because we're not making money on that, right? The software side of things with AI baked in, it's the lowest price it can be without us hemorrhaging money and going into debt. We haven't taken on investors of any kind. I've actually lost a lot of my own money for that. So for that, probably not. I can send out a discount to the paid Substack if you want that, which has other programs in there. I'll note that down right now. Those who want it can use it, but let me write that down. Discount for Substack. All right, Angie, you mentioned your 2-hour writer system the other day. I tried to find this and read about it. Where is it? Old newsletter post, product no longer offered. It is on the paid Substack. It's also in the 2-hour writer course, but you can get most of it out of the paid Substack. The 2-hour writer course is on my Stan store or just 2hourwriter.com, like the letter 2. I mean, the number 2 hour writer. But I'm not really promoting that anymore because, again, I'm trying to shift towards like being ready for the new software. What if you're in a general field / mission, i.e. health and wellness, and you have many stories and experiences that have made you who you are today? Would you talk about them all or try to align yourself with one specifically? Well, I guess it depends what you want to help people with, right? Like you can talk about all of them, but you also have to think about the impact of the story, right? Are you overwhelming people? Are you including details that don't really need to be there? Can you focus on just one transformation, the problem with where you were, what led up to the change, what sparked the change, where you are now, how you see things differently, et cetera, et cetera? Because if you're helping people with, let's say, just health transformation, maybe it's body transformation, mind, diet, something like that, then yeah, it is kind of broad, but that's okay because it's still a very valuable thing to talk about. All right, Tanya, I'm starting a real series documenting my progress during a course I bought online. It's structured by modules. How do you recommend I go about it to show people what I'm learning without copywriting problems? I don't want to put the course out there. I just want to show people what I'm learning and possibly even inspire them to buy the course. Real series documenting my progress. You don't necessarily need to frame it as like you bought a course. It could more so be why you decided to learn copywriting, how you're learning it, the lessons you learned relating to it. You may be overcomplicating it a tiny bit, right? Because you can just straight up teach it. If you understand it, you can teach what you learned about the copywriting. There's a way to frame it that makes it sound as if you're just sharing what you're learning, right? I learned this, or this is probably a bad example. You can refine it, but if you struggle to make money, you need to learn copywriting. I learned this tip yesterday, and it changed the way I view X. Give the tip, XYZ, about copywriting. This will change everything for you. Like it can be kind of that simple. As you start with a problem that people have, you lead into like the frame. So I learned this yesterday, and then tell them what it was, and then people either find value in it or they don't. Okay, how do we blend the type of content we post on platforms like LinkedIn to align the audience we attract with our offer? I want to offer premium speech writing and public speaking coaching, but in my 9 to 5 I'm exposed to lots of tech and AI stuff, and I like writing about these topics, which are not aligned with speaking or persuasion. Talk about both. As Justin Welch said, just make noise and hone in on signal, right? The thing here is that you kind of have to be willing to pivot towards what the people want. So I guess that's the first question is, do you really want to offer premium speech writing, public speaking coaching? If that's really what you want to offer, then 50 to 80% of your content should be that, and you should brute force your way into it, right? Even you can write about the AI and tech stuff, but even if the AI and tech stuff does better, ask yourself, will you still go the premium speech writing or public speaking route? If so, then you can bake it in occasionally, but you're kind of ignoring how well it's doing, right? For the sake of refining your public speaking and speech writing. If the tech and AI stuff starts doing really well, then it may be wise to consider an offer around that and create something different because that may sell better, but you may not really know until you test, right? So write both, just 50-50 split, try them out. It won't ruin your account. If engagement goes down, it's usually because the content wasn't that good or attention grabbing, or it didn't relate to a problem that most people have. Usually when people start to introduce another topic to talk about, they start talking way too high level about it and they expect everyone to get it because they have the curse of knowledge, right? So they think everyone knows what they do. They don't start at a beginner level. When you start talking about a new topic, you kind of have to start introductory. You have to start with base level problems. You have to work your way up the ladder and kind of write about surface level stuff because social media is surface level, but then you lead people into your newsletter, a free download, a longer form piece, right? Where you start the hook off kind of shallow, but then you show you know your stuff throughout it. So try both. All right, Matthew, how to switch from a niche-based account to a mission-based account. I built a business plus have 40K followers in the niche of mobility training. Cool. Thanks to your videos. Thank you. But I've hit a roadblock and want to start including multiple interests plus creating new products and offers without alienating my audience. I don't think you'd be alienating them, right? Because I don't know what other interests and offers you have, but just think about yourself, right? You are the niche is what I've said before is like, if you're interested in one, mobility training, but you're also interested in business or writing or relationships or spirituality or something of that nature, other people are too. And if they aren't, here's the kicker, is that you just haven't articulated the idea in a way that would get people interested, right? There is something I can say. This is the fun part of content. I have this weird little idea that I love, this weird little interest of, let's say, biohacking, right? I'm into biohacking right now, but I've never talked about that before. So how would I start off? I would start maybe with a story of where I was before, where I am now. People can relate with that story. Anyone can relate with that story, not just people who are interested in biohacking or mobility training or whatever. You have to frame it from an introductory level, right? I probably won't do this, but I could say, most people struggle with weight loss, or most people are XYZ. They feel this way, they struggle with weight loss, whatever it may be. Common problem that everyone experiences. That doesn't have to be unique. That's what captures attention every single day on social media. You see that content all the time. What's different is how you go about it, right? I could say most people feel terrible, don't have any energy, or however much overweight, and then I could start talking about retatrutide. I could start talking about all of these different biohacking things that I'm interested in. I could just talk about regular diet. I could talk about anything related to that, and it gets people interested in it, right? You don't need to throw away 40K followers because that's a base, right? If your content doesn't do well, then you kind of need to just dumb it down more at the beginning, right? Of course, that requires testing, and it is kind of scary because the first video, you probably won't get that much engagement, and you're like, crap, this was a terrible idea. But if you just stick it through and keep testing, iterating, making things better, it should work, and you shouldn't have to give it up. But, oh, I think you're saying that you want to switch the account, not start a new account. Okay, well, that's my advice. Or you could start a new account and start from zero, but I think you should just keep the account. Okay, can my founder story be the discovery, me being diagnosed with chronic illness and the realization of the value of time when you're being threatened that your time is limited? So I found that time to build a business 1 hour daily while working 9 to 5. I'm targeting women over 50 with a demanding job in business and complaining they don't have the time. Yeah, absolutely. That's good. That's a great story. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Do it. What platform do you use to create your graphics? Do you still use Photoshop? I use Figma. So I'll show you. This is kind of what Figma looks like. It's kind of like Illustrator. So mine's a mess, but I just create frames. I create the text on it. Looks like this. This is actually how I created the, where are they? This is how I created the event slides too. So I just like outline them all here. We have day 1, day 2, day 3, and I can press this to play them. So yeah, that's what I use. I do use Photoshop for like thumbnails or like raster graphics because Figma doesn't do that really well. Would you be open to sharing your actual process map or workflow sheet so we can study and adapt it to our own business? If we're talking about my business, I can. Depends how you want to see it. I don't have it anywhere. Like I don't have a physical process map or workflow sheet. It's kind of just like I know what to do, right? I wake up, I write 2 to 3 tweets, I post those to all platforms, I write my newsletter, I write a section of my newsletter for 30 to 60 minutes. It's done, right? That's my content in a day. In terms of products, that takes a bit longer to build, but then you just promote them in your content and make sure your content is growing to an extent. So if you have like details of what you want to see, I can try to map it out, but that's I try not to overcomplicate it. It's just all in my head, and it's a habit by now to just wake up in the morning and do it. If you're focused on helping people that are not beginners, how can you get more eyes on the content? Good question. Well, you don't necessarily need to get more eyes on the content, but it depends on who, like how advanced are you going? Because you do need to get in front of them some way. But the way that I like to think about it is, let's say we're talking about business, right? It's just easy example. Your super advanced topics are like at the top here, very small portion. Then you have your beginner topics down here. But the people who are interested in the advanced topics still benefit from the beginner topics, right? That's how they're going to be introduced to you. Is they're going to see you and they're like, oh, okay, he's talking about business. I like business. This is actually good insight. I'm gonna follow him. And then when you release the advanced insight to an audience of people you've already built, some of them are going to see it. And even if people aren't even if people are beginners, they may know someone who's advanced and will share your content with them. So that's why you kind of strike the balance between both growth and authority, is so that your audience grows, so that you have more people who can share your stuff, so that you have more surface area to find the advanced people. So it's not that you have to go all in on this advanced content, but you also don't have to go all in on the beginner content. You just have to be aware that the advanced content probably won't get as much engagement, and that's okay. That's by design. But the beginner content is what's usually going to bring more people in. And then if you ever want to release a beginner level product, that's another revenue stream. So win-win. All right, I have an e-commerce product, physical mobility, good that's used by a very niche audience that I've been selling with some success for the last few years, but I want to transition into writing about the bigger picture, fitness, training, nutrition, and broadening my audience. My e-commerce product is applicable to more than just a very niche audience. Is there any way to do this elegantly without people going, what the fuck is this guy doing? FYI, Dan, since only you're seeing this, I don't know if I won't read this if you don't want me to, but what I think either way, they're the same niche, right? People who are interested in mobility are interested in fitness, training, nutrition. It's just a matter of, it's on the content level. That is what makes the content do good. If you talk about nutrition in a way that grabs the attention of the people who are interested in mobility, then it works out, right? It's still the same niche. You're just going a bit broader. You may get even more engagement. You don't really know. But again, test with that, give it some time, some iteration. You don't need to post your first content and expect it to do as well as all the other ones. But it's the same domain. I don't think you're going to have too much of a problem doing that and expanding into something broader. If I have multiple interests I want to talk about, would you make a priority for one thing that can make you the most money first? Go a bit niche, like Justin Wells talked about. Then after I grow a bit, expand what I talk about, or general thoughts about how to go about multiple interests. Can you find a through line? Can you find the mission, right? So I have all of these different interests. I have business, obviously, writing, fitness, mental stuff, philosophy, almost everything. I like everything. I can get interested in everything, and so can other people. But what's the through line? Like, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? What am I trying to reach? For me, it's future proof, or it's human 3.0, like trying to maximize all domains of my life. Other people can resonate with that, and all of my interests can fall under that. So it's like, you're not necessarily like niching down into one little unique topic. You're more so creating this big umbrella that is niche, right? It's unique, it's novel, it's only you that's doing that thing. Future proof, human 3.0, whatever else I've talked about. and then other things fall under it. And now all of your content has a through line. So you can talk about them all, but some of them are going to lead to more money than others. And it's okay if like 50% of your posts just don't lead to anything. That's kind of the entire game. Usually it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of your content is going to lead to 80% of the results. So your job is to like experiment with things until you can narrow down, okay, what are the 20% of things that do really well? Bake those in consistently. And then when those are kind of a system, kind of habit, you talk about them often, then you can just start talking about other things and see what does well from those. And then if one does really well, then cool, you bring that in to the rotation of topics that you talk about consistently. So you have the core foundational ideas, and then you experiment so you don't get like trapped in that, and you just like rotate things in and out over time. And that sounds like it's super systemized. Like I have this just like list and like process of doing it. It's kind of just mental, right? You look through your past content, you see what did well. Okay, I should write about that again, and so on and so forth. You kind of, once you get the content flowing, it kind of just happens naturally if you're trying to talk about more things, reincorporate what works, so on and so forth. Do you have a plan to grow at this magnitude on social media? It's kind of everything we've talked about. There's no like, I'm sure there's a course out there where like someone has a really good strategy for how to grow, but then again, that's just a tactic, and this is social media, and you're going to run it for a bit. It may or may not work, and even if it does work, it stops working after a certain amount of time. So it's just like, just continuously iterate and do the things, the foundations, the principles. Like I used to do the animations on Instagram, and that blew me up like crazy, and then they just stopped working, and I started losing followers. I still lose maybe like 40,000 followers a month, and I have to try to outpace that. Yes, 40,000 followers a month. Okay, I'm reading through these. I do want to touch on some AI stuff, and questions are starting to pile. So I have it marked where we were. We're gonna talk about some AI stuff because I don't want to go too long over, but we'll get back to those. So how to do anything with AI, and this will be helpful because it's going to help us implement kind of everything that we just learned, right? I want you to go in with this frame is, as I'm showing you some of this stuff, I want you to think about what we learned throughout this entire event, and I want you to think, oh, okay, how can I do this with what we're learning? I think that'll make sense. So the first thing you need to do anything with AI is you need to understand that AI is not just a chat box. It's not just a thing that you ask questions to. It's a literal programming language for language. You tell it what to do, and it does it in the form of text at the moment, sometimes code. It's getting better at images. It's getting better at whatever it is. So that means that the quality of the output of the AI is dependent on the quality of the instructions that you give, right? So from JK, if you look at JK Molina's prompt, someone asked, do we paste this whole 12 pages in here? And it's like, yes, because he's literally providing the instructions to the AI. And if those instructions weren't there, then it wouldn't get as good as a result. So examples here is like this YouTube video, how to build a profitable personal brand in just 30 days. Now, people see AI as this like all-seeing overlord that can do anything for you out of the box. But if I were to ask it to help me build a personal brand, just think about it. How many ways to build a personal brand are there? How many good ways are there? There's tons. I have my own way. Matt Gray has his own way. 1,000 other people on YouTube have their own way. How is AI going to pull from all of those and come up with the best one? It's not going to be able to, because one, it doesn't have the context of who you are unless you give it to you, unless it gives it to you. Two, it hasn't gone through, it hasn't had the experience. It hasn't, the AI, ChatGPT, doesn't have a social media account where it's testing and iterating on this content, right? Social media and culture and content, it changes, it flows. Like there are just some things that you just can't ask AI for and get the best response out of the box. You'd be better off watching this YouTube video from Matt Gray rather than asking AI how to build a personal brand in just 30 days. Now, well, that's the other thing. Everyone has their own methods, right? Alex Hormozi has a content system that works for him. And if he were to just ask AI, hey, handle all my content for me, his business would die, plain and simple. So would mine, because you're stripping the business of the edge, which is the person. So what you can do here is you can combine the two. I can take the transcript from this video from how to build a personal brand in just 30 days. I can feed it to AI. And now the AI has the knowledge of Matt Gray. And before, in let's say Media 1.0 or 2.0, you can't hire Matt Gray without physically paying him a lot of money to mentor you. Same with me to an extent. But if I take this, how to build a profitable personal brand in just 30 days, and I feed it to AI, and I say, hey, create a detailed master plan for how to build a profitable personal brand in just 30 days based off of the transcript from this video, that's a much better output from the AI. Now you have a source of instructions that you can turn into a prompt. What can I turn that into? I can turn it into a coach. I can say, hey, I want to create a prompt that coaches me to build a profitable personal brand in 30 days. Use this source of instructions from Matt Gray and create a prompt that I can check in with every day, share my content, you give me an actionable strategy, and that's how I'm going to build a personal brand. Now you have a personal coach, right? So that's one example out of many, many, many. The other thing, if I want to create a focus coach, what if I want to create a study partner? What if I want to create an offer, right? If I want to create an offer, I can ask AI, and that'll probably give me some good stuff. We're actually going to do that one. But I can also feed it the PDF from Alex Hormozi, $100 million offer is a proven way to create an offer. And then I can say, give me a detailed guide on how to create a great offer. It's going to break down what's in the PDF, give me a guide. I can turn that into a prompt. Then it can interview me, or I can tell it to interview me on everything that it needs in order to turn what I have into a great offer. And then it spits out your offer. And now you have an offer that's 10 times better than anything that you could do on your own. And you're much more likely to make a lot more money. So we'll just start going over examples. So the thing here is you just need a source of instructions. And the few ways you can do that is if the knowledge is already well known and it's kind of general, or you know exactly what you want, then you can ask AI for it and you can get it to spit out the right instructions. Second, you can just reverse engineer your own process into a list of steps. So for me, I have a specific way that I write tweets. I can reverse engineer how I personally write tweets. I can teach AI to do that. I've tried this. It still isn't there, but it's good at giving you ideas, not necessarily writing for you. I actually don't recommend having it write for you. But just as an example, I can break down things that I've done and then teach that to AI. Other thing, you can find a YouTube video or PDF that has the instructions of what you're trying to do. If you're trying to write sales copy, like a promotional email to pitch your product or service, you can go and download Breakthrough Advertising, which is a well-known copywriting book. You feed it to AI. Hey, break down all these principles. Okay, let's turn it into a prompt. I'll give you my offer, and then you spit out a first draft of copywriting, sales copy, and then I can refine it from there. Boom, probably better than what most people would be able to write without copywriting knowledge, right? So you don't need to go and learn that stuff anymore because that isn't your main interest. And the other thing here is that as a one-person business or as someone who's just starting out, you don't have $10,000 to $20,000 to spend on the greatest copywriter in the world. The greatest copywriters in the world have written books, and now you can employ them if you know how to use AI, right? That's the power of this. Now, the second thing you do is one, you have the source of instructions because you're trying to teach AI. The second thing is you're going to either ask AI everything it would need to know to do this for you, or you just have to think through, okay, what am I going to feed the AI to get the results? Like for an offer, let's say I have AI break down what's in $100 million offers, give me a guide, and then what does it need from me? So I can literally type to AI, what is every single thing that you need from me in order to create a great offer? And then it's going to give you a list. It's going to say, well, I need the idea for your product. I need the price point. I need the potential risk reversal. I need every part of it, right? So now you have two things. You have the context and then you have the instructions. And when I feed that or create a prompt from it, I can do it in two phases. So the prompt is going to ask me for all of the information it needs, because how else are you going to create an offer or copywriting or tweets or anything? And then it's going to take all of the instructions on how to create an offer and put all of that together into whatever it is. Now, how do you put these two things together? You use a prompt to create prompts. So most people don't study prompt engineering. Most people don't know the start of it. They just think like, okay, I need to write a paragraph into AI and tell it what to do. And then they may get some good results depending on what they're working on, but most of the time it's disappointing and they don't see the real potential of what they can do. And my throat is getting dry. Okay, so what we can do here is I have a prompt to create prompts, and in general, it just, well, let's just look at it. Many of you probably already have this. I talk about it all the time in my newsletters and other things like that, but the greatest thing ever out there. This is the most incredible document. Like, I wish I could charge for this, but I don't think that would be ethical because this just like is incredible. So what you do whenever you want to create a prompt relating to anything is you just paste this in first, and then it'll ask you what kind of prompt you want to create. And then that's when you start feeding it the instructions. So what you want to do, and you guide it on what kind of context to create for you. So I'll share this in the chat. I'll also share it in everyone. Okay, there's a prompt. Nice, we have a party going on here. Oh yes, so this is the prompt. What we're going to do, I have notes over here so I can make sure I do this right. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do something really unique. We're going to create a thought partner for everything that we just talked about today, right? So for creating content, because well, the second thing we'll do is we'll learn how to teach AI to write something for me. But let me actually close it. So we could go in here and we could take everything that we just learned about all these different content types and we could like teach AI how to write them. And that'll kind of work. I don't recommend it. Please don't do that. We're going to try to use our brain with AI here and not let it atrophy. I'm going to write a newsletter about that, about how AI makes you dumb when I don't think it does. But yes, so we'll do this second. We'll break some tweets down and learn how to teach AI to write them. But right now, what I want to do is something very simple. So let me make sure I have this. We're going to take all of these things and we're just going to turn it into a thought partner prompt so that when you talk to it, you give it an idea and then it's going to like shine. It's going to give you potential ideas based on these things that you can be writing about. Now, I haven't fully done this, so I don't know what the quality of it's going to be, but we're going to try live. So I'm going to take the entirety of this prompt. I'm going to go to Claude because I like Claude. You can use ChatGPT if you like. It works, but I'm going to go Opus 4.1. Sonnet 4 also works well. I just like using the top model, but I'm going to paste this. And what I can do here is turn on extended thinking. So this turns on the reasoning mode, right? Because I want the best output. I actually don't know if this is best practice, but I feel like I get better outputs when I do this. So I'm just going to paste it in. You can do this in ChatGPT 2. I believe GPT-5 automatically reasons. You don't get to choose it, which I don't like that, but we hit send and it's just going to say, what kind of prompt do you want to create? What is the topic or role? And now if you already have an idea of a prompt you want to create, you can just start typing out. I want to create, actually one good tip here is, let's say I want to create, we'll do it about a product later, but I want to create a digital product. One thing you can do here, because a lot of people, like if you don't know exactly what you want to do, they'll just hit send here, and then they kind of like castrate themselves in terms of the effectiveness. They aren't very specific. So what you can say here is, before you continue, clarify everything you need to know so that you can create the best digital product. Be comprehensive. So that way now it'll come back with questions and it will give you probably with this, because I want to create a digital product, it's so broad. It's going to come back with like 10 questions, maybe more, and then you answer them thoroughly and then you get a prompt that is a lot more better, but we're not going to do that right now because we have a better way of doing this. Now, I wrote this out before because I don't want to waste your time and it's actually pretty long. Does it paste? Yeah. Okay. So what I did is I said, I want to create a prompt that acts as a thought partner. Simple. Your goal is to help me spot patterns that I couldn't see myself after I give you a topic I want to explore. Your goal is to act as fresh eyes that mines for these ideas as we have a conversation. I've written a thought partner prompt before, so this is something that I've done, but remember that AI can be an iterative process. The output doesn't have to be the final output. You can prompt it to refine it over and over again. But what I did here is I went through everything we talked about, like all of the different content types, aside from like my story or my plan or other things. But I said, look out for micro transformations. I described what those were. I said ideas that made the biggest difference in getting results. These are the ideas that would help other people get the same results without the noise. Things I disagree with relating to the topic, how most people do it versus how I do it or think about it. My extreme beliefs. So we're trying to have it surface those polarizing beliefs that the average person would think are crazy, but they hold truth. Let's give an example. I walk 15,000 steps a day, and many think that's unreasonable. We'll just leave it there. AI will get the point. My take on popular way of thinking about a topic, things that I see but others don't, how I would reframe how people think about the idea, insight from value. So what J.K. Molina was talking about, take actionable processes and turn them into an insight that makes people desire the process. Big problems that many people struggle with that I can help solve with potential solutions. So big problems. Then more things like novel concepts, perspectives, or paradoxes like the one-person business, the human weapon, and proof. Do I have any real-world case studies, so on and so forth. Ask me one question at a time and build on the previous answer. Challenge generic claims until you find specific and memorable ideas. Don't compliment, just observe, challenge, or dig deeper. When you spot potential ideas, make them known. Keep the conversation natural. So still have extended thinking. I'm going to hit send. See what it comes up with. Okay, so it clarifies a few things. Sometimes it doesn't do this when I don't have extended thinking on, so that's why I like to have extended thinking on, is it will dig deeper and make sure the prompt is really good. So 1, depth of challenge. When you say challenge generic blames, how aggressive should the challenging be? I'm just gonna say very aggressive. Challenge it the most so that I can get the best ideas to write about. Pattern recognition output. When the thought partner spots these patterns, would you prefer them to simply flag them in line? Both. Those both sound helpful. So it clarifies and helps me come up with things that I may have missed that make it better. So here it's like, do you want me to just tell you what the idea is in the response, or collect and summarize them over time, which is helpful because then I have all the ideas there. 3, conversation boundaries. Are there any topics or areas where you'd want the thought partner to be more careful, or should they probe everything equally? No. Probe everything equally. End goal. After mining these insights, is the ultimate purpose to help you create content, develop frameworks, or something else? This might influence how the thought partner frames discovered patterns. Ugh. Sometimes I don't like telling it that I'm wanting to create content, because then it like starts to get a bit corny, because then it pulls in like its information about how to create content. But I'll say it anyways. Create content. I'll just say and develop frameworks. Okay, I'll send that. All right, so now it's writing. Another thing you can do is this will probably output some code. So I just tell it to rewrite it as Markdown so that it copies well over into like a Notes app or Google Docs. Oh, it didn't do that. Okay. Cool. So now I can copy this, have a cool prompt, and I can start testing it, right? Because we don't know if this is going to be like really good out of the gate. So I can paste it here, remove this last part because it just says this prompt is blah, blah, blah. Can remove that part as well. And we don't really need extended thinking now, but let's just test this and we'll go on to the next example. What topic do you want me to explore? Give me the version you tell people at parties. Interesting. So let's say my main topic, or you could say like whatever your mission or idea is, but main topic is I want to talk about writing because it is an incredible skill. The cop-out answer could probably be better, but everyone says writing is incredible. What specific result did writing create for you that nothing else would have? Give me numbers, not philosophy. So it's asking for specific results. I'm gonna skip this. I don't have specific results. Okay. Then why are you wasting time talking about it? Geez. What's the real reason you picked writing? The selfish, uncomfortable truth you don't tell people. Ooh, I wanted to start writing because I didn't want to show my face online. Well, not my face. I was afraid of speaking to a camera. That's a good insight already, right? Good starting point for some piece of content. Contrarian position detected, using writing to hide from visibility. So you chose writing as camouflage. What happened when you realized that best writers become more visible than video creators? Interesting. So you get the gist here, right? This is like a unique way of coming up with content ideas without having it write it for you. I could also say, generate me, like, take this article and generate 50 content ideas based on it. And that works, like, right? But that's what most people think to do. What you can do instead, and if you want, I'll share this prompt as well later on, but you can just keep having a conversation with this. We only answered 2 questions and I copped out of 1. But the more you converse with this, give it like 10 minutes, you'll probably have a lot of good ideas to write about that are aligned with the types of content that you should write. And the thing here that I'm already noticing in myself is like I have the curse of knowledge, right? So I hear this of, I want to start writing because I didn't want to show my face. And I think, well, I've already talked about that before. And other people have already talked about that before. But it's a good idea. I know that. I like when other people talk about it. So I should get myself to write about it. If I wanted to here, I could say like, I don't like, how about this? Give me 3 tweet variations of how I could write about the idea of not wanting to be visible. This is going to sound like AI so much. If it has 1, it's not this, it's this. Okay. Being disobedient. I'm not here to write your tweet. Okay, we'll move on, but this is a good thought partner thing. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is going to be very similar, but what we're going to do is I'm going to show you like how can we learn how to write growth-oriented tweets, right? So that one can help with generating ideas for authority tweets, but for what is it? Growth tweets specifically, the best way to do that, in my opinion, is as so. So you can go on any platform. Usually I like to go on Twitter because it's easier to find ideas that are the best, where I can go to advanced search. So I can go, well, what you do here is explore, remove this. I just type something so that I can get to this. So type something, hit enter right here, advanced search, and then I can go down from these accounts at DDanCo or any account that you want to find their top tweets. Remove those. You can change like minimum amount of likes, minimum amount of whatever. I like to filter by dates, and I'll go back like a year. So say May 2024 to June something 2024. Search. And it usually tends to show the highest engagement tweets first. So the thing about something that's high engagement is that usually they're validated, right? Usually the idea and how it's written is pretty good. So I want to take something like, I'm going to take something a bit longer. Let's take this. Okay, so we have a tweet. We're going to go to Claude, and I'm going to say, actually wrote this down as well because it helps. I want this to be spaced right. I actually don't think it matters. So we have a tweet here, and copy pasted this, but it's pretty simple. So break down the structure of this post so that I can recreate it from scratch. Break down why it works, the psychological patterns involved, what context is needed from me, and anything else I would need to understand how to recreate it. So do that. And now, why is this better than just writing the tweet itself? Because 1, it teaches you how to write it, and you can do this with anything. I remember seeing a landing page one time that I really liked. It was really good. The copywriting was amazing, but I didn't know where to learn it. So I literally just copied the entire landing page. I said this, break down the structure of this landing page, and so I can recreate it from scratch, blah, blah, blah. And I pasted the landing page, and then it broke down the entire structure. And now, as I mentioned in the slides, we have a list of instructions, right? So I have this for 1 of these tweets. So if I want to recreate this tweet, then I can. But let's actually do a few more. So let's go to We don't have to do all my tweets. Who do we like? Do we like Zach? And a little tip here is that I have Super X. Sometimes this works. It's called Super X. If you type that in on Google, whatever, it'll work. But sometimes this gets all messed up. But what this does is it shows their top tweets. Tweet Hunter X was also another one. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. They're just a Chrome extension that shows the top tweets. Most of the time, yeah. So let's see, 37,000. Okay, we'll take this one. And what I'm going to do with images is if you're on a Mac, actually, can Claude read this? I'm not sure if Claude can read this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to save image, save to my downloads, tweet one. And then you won't be able to see this, but if you open the tweet up on a Mac or on your computer, you can just copy the text from the image. So I can go here and then I can paste it. And now we have the full tweet. And I can come here, copy this, or I'll just say, do the same thing with this. Now we'll wait for that. Okay, so it breaks it all down. Why it works. Beautiful, beautiful. So, I mean, I'm assuming you can already see why this is better, but a lot of people will just come in and be like, write a tweet for me on whatever, how to live a meaningful life. And it will come nowhere close to this. And it won't even give you anywhere close to this depth. It won't even think about any of this stuff. So what we're doing here is we're creating the list of instructions so that we can provide the specific context to AI so that it doesn't go off and do all this crap that we don't want it to do. Now, let's take one more. You can do this from any platform, right? I'm assuming you follow people. It's actually a wise thing to do to save post to your swipe file, whether you want to just steal the idea or do something else, whatever it may be. So who's another person? Let's do JK. Let's look at one of his top tweets. And remember, we're doing this for growth tweets, but you can do it for any kind of tweet. This one is actually good. People in third world countries spend their days talking. It's a contrast tweet, right? So this doesn't have to be people in third world countries or people in first world countries. This could be content creators versus cash creators. This could be who you were before versus who you are now. So let's go to back here, do the same thing again with this, paste that, format this just in case. Okay, so now we've done that 3 times. Pretty good, right? You'll learn a lot just by reading this, right? Again, with the people think that AI makes you dumb, when I'm learning more than I'd ever learned scrolling on social media by breaking down posts here. And yeah, I could try to come up with this stuff by myself, but if I don't have education on psychology and other things that may or may not work, like I may not be able to come to all of this, then I start to understand, okay, this is what really creates engagement. It starts to seep into my own writing. But now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna say, combine all of these into a guide. Let's just say singular guide. So it's gonna write those all out. 3 archetypes. That's sweet. Ooh. I haven't done this before, by the way. This is just cool. Okay, we're actually gonna do something really cool with this. So we have a guide, a list of instructions that we can then feed to AI to turn into a prompt, but we need one more thing. Your recreation framework, select your archetype. Okay. Got it. Hurry up. I'll start typing this anyways. From that guide, what is everything you would need from me in order to start writing tweets? I don't know if we need this actually. I'll send it anyways. But now this is going to give me the context. And this just helps me understand, like, okay, how can I turn both of these into a prompt? Because I need to be able to tell the prompt something. Like, it needs to be able to interview me and get the context from me, but it also needs to be able to turn that context into the actual post. Oh, okay, this is long. We're not going to use this, but I'll tell you where we could have used it, and I'll leave that up to your own experimentation. But what we're going to do now is we're going to keep this in here safe. We're going to go back to create great prompts. We're going to copy that over. We're going to go to Claude. We're going to create a new chat, paste. I'll leave extended thinking off just for the sake of speed. Let's topic or role. I'm going to go, is this it? Yeah. Okay, now we're going to take this. So this was the list of instructions on how to write 3 tweets. We're going to go back to the other chat. And I want to create a prompt that helps me ideate social media posts based on the guide for writing posts below. Structure this prompt in 2 phases. Phase 1, context gathering. What do we do? Interview me for the ideas that I want to write about. Phase 2, let's say post writing. Write 3 variations of posts using, write 3 variations of each type of post using the ideas that I gave you. Here's the additional context. Paste, send. So now this is going to create a prompt that'll help us ideate viral tweets based on the 3 things that we talked about. So, or the 3 tweets that we broke down. Oh, that's cool. That's actually really cool. Okay, domain and expertise. What area of life or work do you want to address? Audience pain points, your unique observation, transformation vision, personal connection. So it pulled from each of these types of tweets and it brought up like, okay, what are the key things that these tweets are talking about? And it's one, obviously, expertise. Okay, pain point, observation for the patient observer post, transformation, probably for the dramatic profit post, personal connection for maybe the quiet devastator post, optional. That is going to be longer. It's going to take a bit more time and we're running out of time. So I'll send this prompt as well. After you can try it out, but I think you're getting the point of what we can do here. Now, one other thing that we can do is, let's go back to the create great prompts. Actually, we don't need this. I'll just show you what we're gonna do. Okay, give me a detailed guide on how to create offers like Alex Hormozy. We'll keep it that simple, right? So I'm not asking for how to create an offer. Like, how do I create an offer for me? I'm asking from a specific person who I know has done it very well, right? So it spits out this guide. And then what I can do is I can take this guide because I'm constraining the context to something specific, right? I'm just feeding it to this. I'm not letting the AI do whatever it wants because frankly, I don't trust the AI doing whatever it wants. I know that this works. I take this, I paste the create great prompts prompt, and then I say, I want to create a prompt that helps me come up with my offer. Phase 1, interview me until you have enough context to create my offer. Phase 2, use this guide to create the offer and then paste this guide inside of there. Then it creates the prompt. You send the prompt. It asks you, okay, what's your product? Do you have anything for risk reversal? Do you have a dream outcome? If not, okay, I can just type in, I don't have a dream outcome. Help me come up with one, so on and so forth. The next thing, and where you can really start to see this power and to finally get to the point where someone asked yesterday, Dan, I have a service. How do I turn it into a product? Well, I can say, let's have a small conversation here. What are the best ways to create a cohort-based course that maximizes impact and retention? I want it to be useful. So I'll send that. It could be a cohort-based course. It could be a physical product. It could be whatever. Core design principles, transformation, not information, design for active application, build in accountability layers, cap enrollment strategically. So this is less about, like, you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm not taking this in its entirety. I'm reading through and I'm saying if I agree with things, okay, it's not actually talking about building it out. I want a detailed guide to building out the curriculum and structure of the cohort itself with my material. So I'll send that. Transformation arc, so on and so forth. Okay, we got all of this. Good. Now, what I could do here, now this is a cohort-based course, so this is like a bit off because you have, like, that's not just a straight ebook or a straight whatever it may be. So I can copy all of this, do the same thing, create a prompt out of it, and tell it I want it to coach me to building a cohort-based course with this specific offer that I have, or whatever it may be, right? So over the next however long, we're going to talk back and forth. You're going to be my product manager. You're going to be my fresh eyes. I'm going to send you what I do. You're going to grade it. You're going to help me make it better, so on and so forth. And then that's kind of like how you build it out. And there's just so many different things you can do with this. With an ebook specifically, I can type in here, what is the best way to write an ebook that is attention grabbing, so on and so forth. And it's going to give me some kind of framework to use. And then I can put that into a prompt and I can say, like, I want you to help me flesh out a detailed outline of my ebook or course or even coaching program. How do you structure a coaching program? Ask AI. For an ebook, I want to create an outline using my own ideas. Help me do that. Let's just talk back and forth. I need to give you everything I need to know, and we're just going to walk through the outline chapter by chapter until I have a fully fledged outline that I can go and take and write myself. So if you don't know how to do something, anything, just think through the steps that we talked about here. Like when I say you can do anything, you can do anything. How to do anything with AI. Source of instructions. You can ask AI. You can put a PDF in there. You can find a YouTube video, pull the transcript. Think about the context that's required. What does the AI need to know from you? Usually, if you don't know what this is, you can just ask the AI for it. Use a prompt to create prompts, and then tell it the prompt that you're trying to create. And you can create various types of prompts. You can have it do it for you. So you can have it write the tweets. You can have it coach you through building a personal brand. You can have it just create your offer. You can have it become a thought partner. You can do anything you want to do, right? That's the beauty of this, is like you can literally program a text-based software to help you do what you want to do. Really cool. So I'm sure we have questions, and we'll take some time for those. So I'll stop sharing so you guys can see me. And all right, we have a lot. Let's start back where we were. I'm starting a product-based business. I'm unsure whether to start my social accounts under my brand name or personal name. I recommend personal name always because it's more personal. People feel that. What you could do is you start as a personal name, and then you say that you are building the company. You can have both social accounts, but usually you're going to post personal content through a personal account, right? A brand name or a business account, unless done really well, usually aren't that personal and aren't going to get as good as results. It's just a personal name, or even a pseudonym or an anonymous name. All right, you talked about pain points and problems as under an overarching umbrella yesterday in relation to a mission-based approach. So in writing, do each of the problems I've solved in my life, part of my founder story, become a series of posts that over time build up to become the umbrella? It definitely can. So for the founder story, I would choose the most impactful, right? You're just creating a story, right? It's just here's one problem. Here's some of the pains I felt because of it, right? This problem led to this pain point, and then eventually got to the point where I had to change everything. And now I have to do this instead. And so now I'm doing this, and it introduced me to this, so on and so forth. But yes, the pain points are just a bunch of content topics that you talk about. The more you talk about them, the more you'll start to see which pain points are the most attention grabbing and impactful. And then you can start to talk more about those ones specifically. I've been running a successful one-on-one executive coaching service successfully for 14 years. I have 18K followers on LinkedIn, about 1,500 people in my Kit newsletter. What are some ways I can productize myself? So that's kind of the way what we just talked about. Well, I guess that's the thing, is like you create a product, right? So whatever that could be, there's many different routes like Justin Welch talked about yesterday, but you kind of just pick one, right? You have one-on-one executive coaching. What's that about? You can turn that into a mega guide, a full course, a full digital product. You can turn that into a cohort. You can turn that into a paid Substack. You can turn that into, what else is there? Group coaching. You kind of just productize down based on what you think would work best for your audience and the amount on your newsletter. So you start with one and you try it out. Maybe try an ebook, right? Something super simple. Of course, I would go the simplest route first and then build up, right? Start with the ebook. And then if that does well, you test the idea, then you move it to a course, expand it, then expand it to a cohort. What is a cohort? Kind of like this. Or I guess what I think of a cohort. A cohort-based course online is, think of a course, but you only run it for a certain amount of time. So that creates like this baked-in scarcity. So you can charge a bit more because you're limiting the amount of people that come in. So rather than you have a course and you sell that all the time, everywhere, in every newsletter, under every YouTube video, every day on social media, a cohort-based course is the same course, but you run through it over maybe a month, 2 months, and you have like calls baked in, maybe you have a community where people can talk, you just add more value to the course and you run it like it's a semester in college, right? And then you can charge a bit more for that. And since it's scarce and it's only running for a certain amount of time, usually people join more because they can't get it at any other time. So it like demands a certain premium. So you could start with a course, or actually I recommend start with a cohort-based course because you can charge higher prices and then you don't need as many people to join. And then if that does really well and you don't want to run the cohort anymore, just turn it into a course and boom, that can sell. All right, my 1-year goal is to open a luxury boxing gym company that offers boxing in an elevated setting for people who want to optimize health and fitness, not just people who want to get in the ring and fight. I want to generate revenue online to fund the first space. How would you teach about what product to build online if the long-term goal is brick and mortar? Good question. I mean, it's kind of what everything we've talked about, right? It can be related to boxing, but I'd recommend talking about health. Maybe talk about why boxing is important, why your unique way of boxing is a great way to get in shape. In terms of monetization, you can create a digital product. You can create a training program for boxing specifically. Maybe look up what other people in the boxing space are doing and just like gauge what kind of products they have and what you could create there. What is the best way to learn the best practices of copywriting? First, start writing. Social media, newsletter, whatever it may be, you're not going to learn if you aren't writing. Create a product, write the landing page. If it sucks, then you kind of have to learn copywriting principles to make it better. But what is it? It's Dickie Bush. He says something like learn just in time, not just in case, right? So you don't learn stuff just in case, you learn them just in time. You do the thing, and then that identifies the knowledge gaps that you have. You're aware of those, and you can go learn specific knowledge and apply it immediately. So start writing, then start watching YouTube videos on copywriting, then start buying books on copywriting. Doesn't matter which ones, just do the thing, learn about it the entire way, and slowly you'll get better. What's your process to simplifying dense/complex messages? I write it out first as a newsletter. I write it long form, and then I like try to think of ideas that articulate it short form. If something complex can't be simplified beyond a certain amount, then probably post something else to social media. And it's okay if you don't write about the complex thing on social. If an interest doesn't perform well in terms of monetization, how do I know if it's still worth iterating on it or pivot to monetizing another interest entirely? Also, are there interests that just don't do well and are not worth the time? Sometimes. I feel like usually it's a skill issue. It depends on the interest, obviously, but the main thing is, are there other people that are making a living from the interest that you want to make a living from? If yes, then there's a way to improve to get to their level and far beyond their level. Usually, when an interest doesn't do well, it's usually because of positioning or not writing the right content, not being persuasive. So you're not talking about pain points. You're not making the thing is anything can sell if it's desirable enough. The thing is you're just not creating the desire for it. You're talking about it, expecting people to become interested in it rather than making people interested in it by talking about the pains they have and the benefits they would get if they started using your interest, right? So something worth studying is persuasion. Do you have advice for pushing past fear of failure or being seen, especially when first starting out? I don't have too much advice. If you've read my newsletters, most of my advice in this regard is like, or at least what I did is I just didn't have any other choice. I gave myself no other choice. If I wanted to be able to, for me, as a young person, not wanting to work a job, if I didn't want to work a job, then I had to do it. Like me working a job, no, I not anti-job, but you know what I mean? For me as a kid, where that was like a strong desire not to do, the fear of me working a job was greater than the fear of me posting or me reaching out to people for my web design services or whatever it may be. So it's less about overcoming the fear of failure and more so having something you're more afraid of that pushes you to do the thing that will help you get away from that fear, right? I do manage to fill my agenda with consultancy appointments thanks to online writing and in-person communication. I need to work less and make as much or more money. How to get there? Would you automate some of the advice? Not easy. Definitely not easy, but congrats on the full agenda. Since you're writing online, how's your audience growth going? Because the way that I see, at least out of consultancy or appointments, is, well, one, you can increase your prices, demand more premium pricing, and take on higher paying clients, but less of them, right? So your agenda isn't so full, but you're making the same amount, probably more. The other thing you can do is productize. So you can turn what you talk about mostly in your consultancy into an ebook, a course, a cohort. You kind of just, you increase the scalability of what it is that you're doing by creating a curriculum for it and hosting it somewhere. And then you decrease the amount of time you spend on that by either changing the delivery method of it to something like a cohort. So you're taking on 100 people on a group call instead of one person on one call for a lower price point, but that's 1 hour instead of every day of the week, right? So there's various examples there, but some kind of digital product, cohort, course, whatever it may be, that's usually the next step for consultancy. Should you start without knowing what to sell? I have a vision, but I don't have anything to sell right now. Should I develop an MVP, like a planner book or something, or should I not have any products, just build in public? And when I feel like I have something to sell that. It can go either way. I do think there is a lot of value in having something to sell right away because it helps you stay more aligned with the content that you write because now you have a purpose for it, right? As weird as that sounds. Like if I have a web design product, then in order for me to make more sales, then I need to talk about something that can lead into that, whether it's web design or something related to skill acquisition or whatever it may be. So I know that, oh, I don't have ideas to write about today. Well, I can write about this, and it indirectly and directly leads to an income. So yes, I would recommend having an MVP or something because then like you have accountability and your actions have more gravity because they have the ability to make money now. But at the same time, if you don't know what to sell, I would still start because posting and talking to more people is what's going to help clarify the ideas and what people want. That would lead into the idea for your first product. What's the difference using Beehive for a paid newsletter and Substack? What do you use? I use Substack. I use Beehive, but they both do the same thing. They both have monetization tools. You can run a paid newsletter, but Substack actually has an algorithm. So people can find however many people, 50 million plus people that log into Substack every day and scroll on it have the ability to find your newsletters, your posts, etc. So it's You still manually have to promote and grow your newsletter on other platforms, but if you're on Substack, you may have the added benefit of getting picked up in the algorithm and getting more subscribers. So they both do the same thing, but Substack has a cool platform. It'd be awesome to see some behind the scenes YouTube videos, a day in the life of Dan, show collaborating with others, workflow. I do have one. We go to the gym, I show you what I eat. Other things, I think it's just called like a day in the life of me. Somewhere you can scroll on YouTube and find it. There's a picture of me shirtless in the thumbnail because we go to the gym. But Matt and Ari are also starting a YouTube channel. They're the co-founders of Cortex and the new software, and I'll be in a few of those videos because I go up to Toronto quite a bit. And those are more vlog documentary style. Can you share techniques to reframe technical or woo-woo content? Are there reframes? Might be good to have AI give you various variations, like write what the concept is and say, just talk with it for a bit. Hey, how do I ground this a bit more? How do I word this in a way so that other people are more receptive to it? What are 3 reframe techniques to reframe woo-woo content, right? That could work really well. Where in my mind, I kind of just think through like, what am I actually trying to say in plain language, right? When I get into too much of the spiritual metaphysical lingo, I'm usually just using language that can be substituted for something else, right? Or if you think metaphorically about it, what are you trying to say? Lots of great info. I currently offer a 2-day workshop that is fairly niche, creating winning sales demos. Interesting. I'm currently working to convert the content to a course to duplicate myself. The last few days have been focused on building a social media audience. Is the best only way, in your opinion, to launch this new product? I think it's the best. If you're asking, like, is it the best to launch the product on social media? Yes. But just posting a launch post isn't going to do much, right? From day 2 yesterday, we talked about making friends. We talked about building a network. Think about it from my lens. When I was at, let's say, 10,000 followers, I could launch to my audience, or I could reach out to the friends I made along the way and just be like, hey guys, I'm building this product. I think it's gonna be really cool. I'm pouring a lot of time into it. When I start, would you guys be able to help me boost the launch post? I want to blow this out of the water. And the more people I connect with, then I have 10, 15, 20 people who are ready to launch with me, and they each have their own audiences, and so on and so forth. So it can be a lot more strategic. Obviously, the bigger the audience you have, the easier it is to launch a product. But at the start, you can bring your friends together to turn everyone's 5 to 10,000 follower audience into a 300,000 follower audience, right? All together. So how do I sign up for coaching lessons with me? I apologize, but I do not offer them at the moment. I am one of those busy startup founders now, fancy startup. So I'm just solely focused on that. But that's why I do these. Could you talk a little bit more about a newsletter-focused business? Paid newsletter is the main product, and then book releases over time. What are the challenges and benefits of this model? Benji, stop, dude. The challenges. So the challenges are, one, you're probably going to charge something very low ticket, like $9 a month, $10, $15, $20 a month. You're going to need a lot of traffic and a lot of subscribers to sign up for that, and you're going to need a lot of value in the paid newsletter portion itself, right? A lot of people just like write a typical old newsletter and then put a paywall on it and expect people to enjoy that, but it should be treated, I think, a paid newsletter portion should be treated as like one big course that you're adding to over time for one specific purpose. But the thing there is like $9 subscriptions, Substack takes 10%. In order to get to $5,000, $10,000 a month, that's a lot of people, and people are, it's a lot more difficult to convert subscriptions than it is flat rates. I would argue that the friction, the amount of people that will pay for a $9 subscription versus a $150 product are the same, right? There's going to be the same amount of friction. The more the subscription goes up, the higher the friction is going to be. But would you rather sell a $150 product a few times and only do the work once to create the course? Or would you rather continue adding to a paid newsletter week after week after week, grinding to get to this certain amount every month and dealing with churn and stagnating, so on and so forth? It can work. Some people do it very well, but I don't know. I would say test it, right? I think it's best to test it either way, because you can always just stop doing it and transition into something else. It's painful to do that, but you can absolutely do it. So if that's something that you want to do right now and you have clarity on it, I would recommend going into doing it, because all of my challenges and pain points around it may not apply to you and you may like it a lot. So I don't want to discourage that. Dan, could we get into AI and have other Q&A at the end of the session? Oh, could we get into it? Yes, we did that. Is it worth trying to start out with trying to monetize that people don't consider a high income skill? What if I want to monetize an interest that I know quite a lot about, but never leverage these skills to make serious money using them, i.e. photography? I don't really see it as a high income skill like copywriting. That's completely fine. Peter McKinnon's business models. Look at other photographers on Instagram. They're selling LUTs, they're selling tutorials, they're selling teaching how to do photography. A lot of people get hung up on the, it's not a high income skill problem, but people just want to learn things. That's one thing I've realized is like with writing, that's a skill that can help people. I'm not positioning it, at least into a writer, I wasn't positioning it as like, oh, you can make $100,000 a month writing online. It was like, no, you're learning how to write because that's a skill you can use in other areas of your life. So is photography. Photography may not be a stereotypical high income skill, but if they want, they can freelance with photography. That's on them, but it opens up the opportunity, and that's what people want, right? If your product doesn't provide freelancing knowledge, that's okay. People understand like, hey, I'm learning photography, but this is going to open up the next route to potentially freelance with it or potentially start editing. Like there are a lot of opportunities that someone needs to learn photography for. That's where persuasion comes into play. The most persuasive thing in the world isn't like, oh, you can make money with this. It's a persuasive thing, but people learn photography all the time. Go look at Udemy courses or even Skillshare and see how well the photography courses do there. If you can't sell a photography course, that's usually a problem with your messaging or your persuasive ability or your sales or your copywriting or other things of that nature. For beginners who are just figuring out their offer and building a personal brand on LinkedIn, would you advise against having 2 separate offers? Context: I have a lot of public speaking experience, and presentations are a skill I'm naturally strong at, so I figured this is something I can coach, but I am also strongly interested in ghostwriting and offering that on LinkedIn, which with myself is a case study. Do you advise starting off with 2 different offers like this? I don't recommend starting off with 2. Start off with the one that you want to do the most. They're both profitable. I see them work all the time. public speaking works great. Ghostwriting also works great. You'll probably have more fun teaching public speaking rather than physically doing ghostwriting. I've ran a ghostwriting business. It's hard work. It's draining. People leave ghostwriting for a reason and do another business model. So if you could just go straight into public speaking, I don't know if you know Joseph Sar on YouTube. Joseph Tsar. He's been going viral just creating YouTube videos on public speaking, and I'm sure he has some kind of coaching product in there, and he's probably killing it. So you can use a lot of his content as inspiration to get that off the ground. Oh, hey Jen, what do you feel about using a digital twin for a YouTube video? I'm not sold on it yet. I probably won't. I could see it benefiting people who still write their stuff. I don't know. I'm not really for it. I see Tanya asking Joseph what. It's Joseph, sorry, yeah, Tsar. How can I activate extended thinking for Claude and Cortex, or is it already active by default? That's the unfortunate thing. It's not an option in there, but it should work without it on. Dan, do you have a prompt idea that can help us identify our core story or ways to articulate our experience that are relevant to other types of growth authority content you mentioned earlier? Yeah, that one's probably pretty easy. Type in, so paste the prompt creator prompt, the Google Doc, into AI, and just say, I want to create a prompt that interviews me to uncover my core story for creating authoritative and growth-oriented content. The output should be a document with my core story, like as simple as that. I mean, you don't even need the prompt for that, right? You could probably just ask AI, because storytelling in general is like, ask AI, okay, what are the most compelling parts of a founder story? Then you have a list of instructions. Then you can say, okay, what do you need from me in order to identify my founder story? And then it spits that out. And you say, okay, can you interview me right now to come up with my founder story? And then it interviews you, and you say, can you spit all this out in one document? And then boom, you have it. Could you please bullet the AI prompt steps into the email? Yep, I can do that. The slides will also be in there if you want to just skim through those. Can you share those prompts? Yes, I can. I'll do that. I'm starting a beta test for a 52-week asynchronous mentorship program fully delivered through email. Interesting. Sort of selling accountability for fellow freelance email marketers. How do I funnel traffic to this offer? I mean, just like you funnel traffic to any other offer. You write the content, you promote the offer. The better the content, the more it leads into the offer, the more people are going to click. If it's more high ticket, then you may have to get people to DM you or send them to a landing page or whatever it may be to get people into that. But yeah. For building a personal brand via personal name, do you have any pro tips in regards to privacy concerns, considering that we're opening ourselves and maybe our full names up to the weirdness of the entire internet? I mean, I use a pseudonym, but it doesn't really matter because you can find my real name with a Google search. My real name is Daniel Koenigslieb. Co is just like shortened, so you could do that if you want. But you're already online. Everyone already knows all about you, even if you're super private. I don't know. There isn't really a way around it, but I also don't think it's as prevalent as it seems, because most people aren't going to reach the stage where they're under direct threat, and they're usually not going to say the things that put them under direct threat. I've had my weird share of people, but kind of just block them. A few years ago, I wrote a 100-page ebook about my unique mindset and tools to learn Spanish after I struggled a lot with traditional education and dropped out of university to travel and learn through immersion. I haven't created a lot of content yet for my personal brand, but I realized I already did a lot of heavy lifting. Yep. Would you recommend using this ebook as a lead magnet or your Magnus Opus example that you gave, or trying to self-publish and sell it? Either or. If you're not trying, you don't have to. It can go either way. Like, it's your decision ultimately. You could condense it a bit because that is kind of long. You could turn a summary of it, a very impactful summary, into your Magnus Opus, Magnum Opus, and then self-publish it if you want through Amazon KDP, or sell the digital copy. Am I correct in thinking of this creator path? At its core, the creator economy is just humans using new tools to meet our oldest need, finding and creating a tribe and exchanging trust. That's the way that I like to think about it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. When you start thinking about it that way, literally, it's like you start off in the digital world and you need to find your little tribe, and then you just grow together. You trade with each other. You're kind of in this little bubble of people who are buying your products. You're buying theirs. It's cool. Yeah, and is Discord still the primary platform for the Cortex community to connect, or is it now Substack? Are you planning to change this? We're planning to change it. Right now, it's still Discord. The mods are pretty active in there, but we just have so much that we have to organize and orchestrate in terms of getting the right information out with the new version of the app and so on and so forth. So things will change a bit, but right now it's still Discord. What would you feel would be more beneficial to learning how to grow and run an online business as a new startup, YouTube, or investing into a business mentorship? If so, would you suggest anyone? It depends what kind of online business. If you're trying to do like the service-based business or even product-based business, the person I would recommend is just JK Molina, the guy who came on day one. So you can reach out to him if you'd like. But aside from that, I mean, YouTube, always worth learning. You should probably be doing that whether you go with a mentor or not. But it really depends. It's like I said with the copywriting example, is you just start building it. You learn just in time, not just in case. You don't start learning and then start doing and then waste a lot of what you learned. You start building, even though you're maybe afraid to. Most people are. It's okay. But then you learn along the way and you apply the strategies as you go. If you can't apply what you're learning, then you're not learning it. Any thoughts on starting a school community? Same thing as Circle. It's a community. It's a recurring membership. It can work. They can all work, right? Depends. Test it out. Try it. What is the name of the Cortex replacement product? And do you have a timeline for release? Looks awesome. It's going to be called Eden, like the Garden of Eden, a garden for your knowledge. But it is, and that's kind of the thing. Our whole mission or manifesto is that we're trying to create more artisans rather than factories, gardeners over factories, like content factories. We're trying to create more Timeline for release. We're aiming for, timelines are always super hard with software. We're aiming for early next month to roll out to Cortex users, those who want it right now, because we're going to roll out web only. We were going to roll out everything, desktop, mobile, etc., all at once, but I feel like it just makes more sense to get it into people's hands as soon as possible. So we're going to be like, hey, this stuff is coming. If you want the web only version, it'll probably be available October, very early October. So if you use Cortex, then you'll get an email for that. It'll be super easy to migrate documents over to test it. How did you get meta verified to approve a pseudonym? Does your name? I don't know. I actually have no idea how I got verified, but it doesn't match my ID and I still got verified. I think they just wanted the money. It's like what, 99? It's a lot. If you could give the most valuable piece of advice to yourself 10 years ago, what would it be? Fuck up a lot, which is kind of what I did. But yeah, mistakes, greatest pivot, or pivot all the time, trial and error. What you are so excited and obsessed with right now, you're probably not even going to care about in 6 months. And so just do things. Nike has a great quote. Just do it. Okay. Do we need to make any changes to everything? We're learning here to apply for a combination of mid-price services, one-on-one executive coaching for C-suite leaders, and higher price services. I mean, I would make changes accordingly, right? Depending on who you want it to be targeted towards. Usually the offer ladder, the value ladder follows like beginner, what you need to know, intermediate. Okay, you learn the beginner stuff. Now you're here. Intermediate goes to advanced. The advanced is like the executive coaching for C-suite leaders. The other products are education to create the people who are ready for that. Okay. Hey, Dan, I have a extensive experience and insight into the dynamic of business partners as I've created multiple successful companies with different partners across varied backgrounds. I know that I can provide specific and valuable insight into business partner dynamics, and I've identified certain truths that can only be found with experience and focused reflection. What do you think the biggest challenge would be in trying to get into this niche? The biggest challenge in getting into that niche is not using that language. not that there's anything wrong with it, but like go for a pain point language. Like play around with pain points and desired outcomes for teams. For the thing about like you need to speak the language that they resonate with, and like dynamic of business partners doesn't really get much across. So what's like the real pain point you're solving? And then being able to focus solely on that and attracting the right people is going to be the biggest challenge, because it's difficult to articulate the value of something like a dynamic of business partners. So you need to find like a very painful problem relating to that. Like what problems does it cause in the business? And then can you illustrate that in a way so that people desire fixing that dynamic? Would you advise starting in my own language for creating content, easier to grow but less profitable, then switch to English? I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that because I don't have experience, but from people I know who have answered that question, they usually just say just start in English. Jose Rosado learned English as he was started writing online. Dan, will the app skills learning Cortex transfer to Eden? Yes, definitely. There will be, so I can't wait for Eden to come out. So a lot of you like in Cortex, you can paste YouTube links and it'll transcribe and you can reference it. Like you can barely, I don't think you can do that in many other apps, but we're really working on that. You can now, well, one, we're merging library and the documents, right? So the library isn't just a place for highlights anymore. It's that's where you store YouTube videos. The YouTube videos are actually downloaded, so you can watch them offline. So the YouTube videos are downloaded. You can paste Instagram reel links. It transcribes them. You can paste Instagram carousels. It's all shown inside of there. You can paste tweets. You can paste threads. You can paste Substack notes, newsletters, articles, so on and so forth. And you have all of this in your quote unquote second brain. Then you can connect them all in a Canvas, reference them with AI. You still have notes in there. It's just like literally anything, any piece of content can be transcribed, downloaded, uploaded into there. So yeah, I'm very excited. Do you have any experience in high ticket selling to other entrepreneurs over YouTube? Not over YouTube. What I would think is just creating a video for them, having the top of funnel in the description, telling people to go to that. That's what I think most people do. Usually like a questionnaire or some kind of simple landing page that talks about what you do, get them on a call or have them DM you or something of that nature. Yeah, not a question, but from The Art of Focus, your quote, I can think of nothing more worthwhile pursuing than seeing what you're capable of. It lives on my wall. It's my inspiration to get up every time. Thank you, man. That's awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I felt pretty good writing that tweet. I'm like, damn, yeah, that hits. So I'm glad it hit. Will the functionality of Readwise, will it still connect with Eden? We're working on that because we're not sure how the highlights will display. They'll be transferred over easily from Cortex, but in terms of like integrating, we're gonna have our own highlight feature, and we're going to be able to have more functionality than Readwise down the road. Oh, you just paid for that. Don't worry. In terms of annual plan and everything, it'll transfer over fine. You'll actually pay less, so it'll be good. Eden will be replacing Cortex as a lifetime member of Cortex. I'm curious. Oh, you'll have lifetime access. Don't worry. Trust me when I say anyone here who's a Cortex user, you will be thoroughly rewarded for your patience with us. And yeah, I would not worry about anything related to that. In Cortex/Eden, what security and confidentiality level applies to a piece of content? I'm an attorney, and I could be excluded from the profession if anyone else, including the founders or IT of Cortex, has access to my files. If you can address that, yeah, it's going to be similar to Cortex. So inside of Cortex right now, we have a permission button. So the only time that we would ever need to access your files in the first place is if you have a support issue that requires it. We'll tell you if we need to actually go in to see anything, but otherwise it's completely locked off from us, and you have to physically go in and press the button to give us support access in order to go in and see the specific document that you're telling us to see. So yeah, it's all locked down. The thing there is it's not going to be SOC2 compliant or whatever the cybersecurity thing that you need to get is, that most companies don't get until a few years down the road. We're going to have to be working on that the entire time. But in terms of general security, it's very secure, top of the line, aside from SOC2. Is there any use case or reason to use both Cortex and Notion? Project management inside of Notion, I don't think they're going to be beaten on that. I don't think people are going to try to compete with them on that aside from the project management companies. But in terms of note-taking and storing knowledge, there are definitely better ways to go about it. But yeah, usually project management we still use Notion for project management. So yeah, there's that. Okay, we ran through the questions, 12:46, almost 3 hours. last question. Will Eden replace the need for Claude? Potentially. I think it will. It won't have artifacts, but you'll be able to chat with any model inside of there. So it should. I believe it will do more than Claude because you can reference any kind of content inside of it, and you'll see what the canvas feature looks like. It's going to be really cool. I know I'm teasing a lot, but it'll come, and it's very exciting. So I hope you guys enjoyed all of that. We're 3 hours in. I hope that was useful. Same thing as yesterday. I'll send an email with, make sure you check your spam. I'll send all the prompts. I'll send the things that we talked about, the slides, recording, so much, all of that. Thank you guys for the thank yous. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you on the internet. Bittersweet goodbyes. Thank you again. Bye, guys.